In the realm of agriculture, infrastructure, and technological domination, the grandson of the Ming dynasty, exiled at the start, I forged firearms in Hainan, creating an everlasting Ming empire. Upon traversing into the Ming dynasty, he becomes Zhu Yunxi, the son of the esteemed Prince Yingtian, Zhu Biao. Aware of the trajectories of history, he realizes that remaining in the capital, Yingtian leads only to a dead end. To preserve his life, he defies the imperial decree and voluntarily seeks exile to the desolate Qiongzhou. The entire court ridicules him for his folly, abandoning the position of heir apparent to live as a savage. Unbeknownst to them, the moment he steps out of the capital, the Supreme Lord system awakens. After 3 years, the world undergoes a dramatic upheaval. Emperor Jianwen, Zhu Yunxi, frantically reduces the feudal lord's power. The king of Xiong commits self-immolation. Various princes are confined. The king of Yin, Zhu Di, rises in rebellion, igniting flames of war across Beiping. While the world focuses on the conflict between uncle and nephew, they are astonished to discover that the forgotten Qiongzhou has transformed into a bastion of steel. Report, Your Majesty. The king of Wu has produced divine firearms with a range of 1,000 paces. Report, Your Highness. The naval fleet of Qiongzhou is entirely armored. Our swords cannot pierce them. What? The people of Qiongzhou feast on meat daily? 1,000 pounds per mu? The Flintlock formations sweep through the armies. The red artillery shatters city walls, and ironclad warships darken the skies. The governor of Lijiao bows in submission. The strategist of King Jingjiang trembles in fear. Zhu Yunxi stands atop a 100-meter-high cement wall, surveying the chaotic realm. Fourth uncle, since you and Jianwen are locked in a fierce struggle, let this nephew take control of the Ming Empire. Witness how Zhu Yunxi, with Qiongzhou as his foundation, sweeps across the 8 realms, establishing an everlasting Ming Empire. Chapter 1. The Supreme Lord System in the 28th year of Hongwu, Yingtian. Continuous rain falls as a carriage halts beneath a willow tree outside the city gate. On the yoke, a young servant anxiously tiptoes, gazing toward the city. Your Highness, time is running short. If we do not depart soon, we may not reach the post station today. The servant, Xiao Ding, turns back, gently urging the carriage. The curtain of the carriage is slowly lifted, revealing a handsome and resolute face. Zhu Yunxi, the grandson of Zhu Yuanzhang, the founding emperor of the Ming dynasty, and the son of Prince Yingtian, Zhu Biao, should have been among the most esteemed princes of the empire. Yet, at this moment, he dons simple clothing, his gaze fixed on the towering city gate. Just a moment longer, Zhu Yunxi replies calmly. Xiao Ding sighs, retracting his neck. He knows whom his master awaits. Miss Su Miaojin of the Su family, his childhood confidant and the catalyst for his exile. Days prior, at the Fengtian Hall, the Hongwu Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang decreed that the daughter of Lan Yu be wed to Zhu Yunxi. What was intended to be a political marriage to consolidate imperial power and win over the nobility was met with an unexpected defiance from the usually reserved Zhu Yunxi. The grandson has already chosen someone in his heart. He does not wish to marry a woman of the Lan family. Upon uttering these words, the court was taken aback. In a fit of rage, the emperor declared, those who do not know their place shall be sent to Qiongzhou. No return to the capital without a decree. A royal edict dispatched this prince to the savage land known as the ends of the earth. As the rain intensifies, pattering on the carriage roof, the noise drowns out the distant sound of hoofbeats. Zhu Yunxi quietly gazes at the city gate, his fingers brushing against a jade pendant at his waist. This was a relic left to him by his mother, Lady Chong, and his only solace in the cold imperial palace. Since the early deaths of his mother and elder brother Zhu Xiongning, and with the side consort Lu being favored, his life has only grown more unbearable. From being the legitimate son, he has become a mere illegitimate child, subjected to cold disdain and harassment within the prince's residence. To survive, to evade his grandfather's suspicious gaze, he has learned to hide his talents, feign ignorance, and endure humiliation. Yet, endurance has its limits. This defiance against the decree may appear as a reckless act of passion, but in truth, it is a carefully calculated strategy to break free. Remaining in Yingtian, he would forever be the useless prince under Lu's watch and Zhu Yunxin's suspicion. Only by leaving, fully departing from the vortex of power, could he soar like a dragon in the ocean or a tiger in the mountains. Xiao Ding's voice breaks in again. Your Highness, a quarter of an hour has passed. The city gate guards are changing shifts. If we do not leave now, we may encounter trouble. Zhu Yunxing's gaze darkens, then shifts to determination. She has not come after all. Perhaps she has been confined by the Duke of Wei's residence, or perhaps to avoid suspicion, or perhaps. Let us depart. Zhu Yunxi lowers the carriage curtain. Yes. Xiao Ding, relieved, raises the whip, and with a crisp crack, the sound pierces through the rain. The carriage creaks as it turns. Wheels rolling through the mud, splashing murky water, slowly heading south. Just as the carriage rounds a bend, about to vanish at the end of the official road. From within Qiongzhou Gate, a lavishly adorned carriage rushes out. Before the carriage steadies, a graceful figure leaps down without regard for decorum. The young girl, dressed in white garments that resemble snow, is now drenched by the rain. She stumbles towards the city gate, gazing at the empty official road, releasing a heart-wrenching cry. Yunting. The rain drowns her call, leaving only the two streams of tears mingling with the rain, cascading down her cheeks. Su Miaoji kneels in the muddy water, tightly clutching a talisman, one she had sought for 3 days and nights. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She has ultimately arrived a step too late. On the official road, the carriage jostles. Zhu Yunxi leans against the wall of the carriage, closing his eyes to rest. Your Highness, do not be disheartened. Xiao Ding, while driving, cautiously offers comfort. Though Qiongzhou is distant, it is far from the Emperor's gaze. Once we arrive, we can live a peaceful life. Zhu Yunxi opens his eyes, the previous melancholy vanishing. Disheartened? Why should I be? The moment he stepped out of Qiongzhou Gate, the submissive prince Zhu Yunxi had perished. Now, he is the strategist poised to take control of his own fate. Xiao Ding, Zhu Yunxi inquires, what do you believe Qiongzhou to be like? Xiao Ding hesitates, grimacing. I have heard it is rife with miasma, filled with venomous creatures and savage beasts. The people are uncultured, and there are no proper city walls. It is a place for exiled criminals. That was in the past. Zhu Yunxi gazes through the carriage window at the gloomy sky to the south, his vision penetrating the layers of rain, as if he glimpses the azure sea. For others, it may be hell, but for him, it is a land of opportunity where dragons may ascend and tigers may thrive. A mechanical voice devoid of emotion echoes in his mind, detected that the host has exited the core monitoring range of the imperial power. The Supreme Lord system has been officially activated. Current bound territory, Qiongzhou Prefecture. The novice gift package has been issued. Would you like to open it? A fervor flickers in Zhu Yunxi's eyes. This is the true foundation that emboldens him to defy the imperial decree and seek exile. As a time traveler, he is acutely aware of the future of the Ming dynasty. In the 28th year of Hongwu, there are still 3 years until that old man passes away. 3 years later, Zhu Yunwen ascends the throne, and that seemingly gentle heir apparent will reveal his fangs, wielding the blade against his uncles. The flames of feudal reduction will engulf the Ming dynasty. The king of Xiong will self-immolate, and the king of Qi will be deposed, leading to chaos across the realm. Soon follows the rebellion of the king of Yin, Zhu Di. Uncle and nephew will turn against each other, rivers running red with blood. If he remains in Yingtian Fu, Zhu Yunxi will either be swept up in the feudal reduction or face retribution after the rebellion, with the best outcome being a life of confinement, raised like a pig. That is not the life he desires. 3 years. Zhu Yunxi murmurs softly, his fingers gently tapping his knee. I have 3 years to develop in Qiongzhou. When the winds of change sweep through the world, who will be the true player in the game of the Ming dynasty remains uncertain. He silently vows. Open the novice gift package. Congratulations to the host for acquiring 1,000 pounds of super hybrid rice seeds. Congratulations to the host for acquiring a set of primary industrial foundation blueprints, including cement, glass, and the refined steel smelting method. Congratulations to the host for acquiring special troop summoning card for the Snow Dragon Riders, 3,000 men. Congratulations to the host for acquiring access to the Reputation Value Mall. As the rewards manifested on the system panel, Zhu Yunxi's smile grew increasingly radiant. Food, industry, elite cavalry. With these, even if Qiongzhou were a desolate wasteland, he could construct a fortress of steel with his own hands. Shouting, increase the pace. I am eager to behold my fief. Yes, onward. Chapter 2. 3 years have passed, time slipped away like sand through fingers. In the blink of an eye, it was May of the 31st year of Hongwu. At the port of Baisha in Qiongzhou, a gentle sea breeze carried the briny scent, caressing this once desolate coastal metropolis now transformed beyond recognition. 3 years ago, it had been a barren mudflat, home to a few dilapidated fishing boats and ramshackle thatched huts. Now, wide, smooth concrete roads crisscross the landscape, flanked by bustling shops and buildings of red brick and green tiles standing in orderly rows. Within the harbor, masts rose like a forest. Dozens of grand treasure ships rested in the deep-water bay, their hulls adorned with fearsome dragon motifs, emblematic of the Qiongzhou Navy. At the docks, thousands of laborers fervently transported an array of goods, spices and gems from the South Seas, alongside refined salt, glass, and sugar produced in Qiongzhou, converging into a torrent of wealth. At the heart of the city stood the Qiong royal residence. Tall walls loomed, where patrolling soldiers clad in dark iron armor brandished refined steel spears, their gazes piercing. Inside the study, Zhu Yunxi, dressed in a dark robe, stood with hands clasped behind him before a vast maritime map. 3 years had stripped away his youthful naivety. He now stood tall and imposing, his visage stern, exuding the aura of a ruler. "Your Highness." The door swung open, and Xiao Ding, now sporting a short beard and exuding a composed demeanor, strode in with a thick stack of documents in hand, his expression a mixture of excitement and barely concealed concern. "Speak." Zhu Yunxi did not turn, his gaze still fixed on the map marking the location of Shuntian Prefecture. "This is the statistical report from last month," Xiao Ding reported, steadying himself, his voice resonant. "As of the end of last month, the registered households in Qiongzhou have exceeded 850,000, more than tripling since 3 years ago. Among them, 200,000 craftsmen have been settled in the workshop area. Regarding taxation, last month saw an influx of 800,000 taels of silver. And we project the annual fiscal revenue to exceed 10 million taels. 10 million taels. Should this figure reach the Ministry of Revenue in Yingtian, it would surely cause the officials to faint on the spot. The annual treasury income of the Ming dynasty scarcely reached such heights. What of the people's sentiments? Zhu Yunxi inquired calmly. "The people's hearts are as solid as a fortress," Xiao Ding replied. "Your Highness has undertaken water conservancy projects, promoted divine seeds, and established free schools. Today, every household in Qiongzhou has ample grain, and gratitude for your benevolence is sung from every home. With the completion of the Bixia Yuangjun Temple and the Martial Sage Temple, the populace is at peace, unwaveringly loyal to you. The sentiment value has reached a full 100. Zhu Yunxi nodded slightly, turning to reveal a look of satisfaction. In 3 years, he had transformed this forgotten corner of the world into a bastion of strength. While the system's assistance was indeed significant, it was his tireless planning and governance that formed the foundation of it all. And the military? This remained his primary concern. "Your Highness, the Royal Guards number 20,000, all elite troops forged in battles against pirates in the deep mountains and jungles, seasoned in bloodshed and ready to fight. The Navy possesses 15 treasure ships, with 20 additional vessels guarding the harbor, unmatched in the South Seas." However, Xiao Ding hesitated. Though the Qiongzhou garrison has expanded to 50,000, most of these are newly recruited refugees and young men from this year. While they are well-equipped and rigorously trained, they lack real combat experience. If they were to face the Imperial Army, renowned for its battlefield prowess, he did not continue, yet his meaning was clear. 70,000 troops. In this era, that was a considerable force. Yet, in the face of the impending storm sweeping across the land, such numbers would merely suffice for self-preservation. Zhu Yunxi fell silent for a moment, approaching his desk to pick up a recently delivered confidential report. The seal bore a blood-red insignia. News from the capital had arrived. Zhu Yunxi's voice turned icy. Xiao Ding's heart raced as he listened intently. In May of the 31st year of Hongwu, His Majesty the Emperor has passed away. Though aware of the historical trajectory, uttering those words still stirred a tumult of emotions within Zhu Yunxi. The elder who expelled the Tartars and restored China, his stern yet complex grandfather, had ultimately departed. Xiao Ding dropped to his knees, his eyes reddening. The great ancestor has passed? Not only that. Zhu Yunxi cast the report onto the table. Zhu Yunwen has ascended the throne, initiating the Jianwen era. The first decree of the new emperor was to strip the feudal lords of their titles. The Prince of Zhou, Zhu Li, the Prince of Dai, Zhu Gui, the Prince of Qi, Zhu Xiu, and the Prince of Min, Zhu Jian, have all been demoted to commoners and subjected to confinement and exile. And just half a month ago, Zhu Yunxi's voice rose, laced with suppressed fury. Prince of Xiong, Uncle Zhu Bo, was falsely accused of treason. The imperial army besieged the royal residence, and unable to endure the humiliation, he bid farewell to his family over wine, set fire to his palace, donned princely attire, and rode into the flames to perish. None in the palace survived. Xiao Ding's face turned ashen. Prince Zhu Bo? He was the most talented and spirited of the princes. A wise ruler who loved military texts and adhered to Taoist principles, renowned for his integrity. To think he was driven to self-immolation. Such cruelty, such brutality. Xiao Ding murmured, for he was his own uncle. This is the nature of the imperial family, Zhu Yuntong remarked with a cold laugh, his murderous intent palpable. Zhu Yunwen is not only killing the chicken to frighten the monkey, but is also digging his own grave. The fire set by Prince Zhu Bo has not only consumed the Prince of Xiong's residence, but has also incinerated the last shred of hope the feudal lords had for the throne. When the rabbit dies, the fox grieves, such is the fate of kin. Zhu Yuntong envisioned his fourth uncle in Beiping, likely feeling the unease and sharpening his blades at this very moment. Your Highness, does this mean? Xiao Ding raised his head, his face stricken with fear. Will he be the next target? For now, Zhu Yunwen's next target is the Prince of Yin, Zhu Di. He is too preoccupied with me. A waste exiled to the ends of the earth, Zhu Yuntong mused, pacing the room. Yet, the storm would inevitably reach Qiongzhou. 70,000 troops were insufficient, far from enough. Zhu Yuntong turned to fix his gaze on Xiao Ding, commanding, issue the military order. From this day forth, Qiongzhou will enter a state of full military readiness. Expand the Qiongzhou Guard. The target is 100,000. Expand the Royal Guards. The target is 50,000. Any man capable of wielding a blade, any whose background is untainted, shall be recruited. Double the rations. Double the relocation fees. Shouting was taken aback. Your Highness, we currently have a usable population of 600,000. Supporting 70,000 troops is already at the limit. If we recruit another 80,000, agriculture and workshops will come to a halt, and our finances will. Money is not the issue, nor is grain. Zhu Yuntong interrupted Xiao Ding's concerns. What I need is soldiers. Soldiers who can fight. Tell the people that chaos is imminent. And to preserve their current blissful lives, they must take up arms to defend it. Understood. Xiao Ding, awed by Zhu Yuntong's fervor, gritted his teeth in agreement. Chapter 3. Zhu Di's Rebellion. Zhu Yuntong dismissed Xiao Ding and returned to his desk. He gazed at the system panel. Current reputation value, 54,300 points. This was the reputation he had painstakingly built over 3 years among the people of Qiongzhou, visiting merchants, and various nations of the South Seas. Zhu Yunwen, since you have no desire for the well-being of the people, I shall engage you in this game. Zhu Yuntong clicked on the reputation mall. Amidst the dazzling array of goods, the alluring golden glow of sci-fi weaponry, such as the interstellar fortress and interstellar battleship, beckoned. Yet the string of zeros following their prices deterred him. His gaze shifted downward, ultimately fixing upon an icon. It was a weathered blueprint, depicting a firearm of intricate design, embodying the aesthetics of violence. Complete set of blueprints and crafting process for Flintlock. Price, 40,000 reputation points. Redeem. Zhu Yunting pressed the confirmation button. In an era where cold weapons reigned supreme and matchlocks were still in their infancy, the advent of the Flintlock signified a paradigm shift. The age of execution by firing squad would be ushered in by Zhu Yunting in Qiongzhou. Clutching the recently redeemed complete set of blueprints for Flintlock manufacturing, Zhu Yunting pondered. The blueprint was indeed a remarkable asset, even a weapon of a new era. However, it was not a mere game item that could be conjured with a click. The task was daunting. Zhu Yunting sighed heavily, slamming the blueprint onto the table. To mass-produce flintlocks, 2 formidable obstacles loomed before him. The first was resources. Though Qiongzhou boasted decent iron ore reserves, the mining technology was archaic, relying solely on manual labor, rendering the efficiency appalling. Not to mention the high purity required for the steel needed to forge gun barrels. Merely sorting the ore would consume vast amounts of manpower and resources. The second, and perhaps more critical, was manpower. 200,000 craftsmen. Zhu Yunting rubbed his temples, offering a wry smile. This daunting figure comprised predominantly carpenters, masons, and stoneworkers. Skilled in construction, wall repair, and house building. True artisans familiar with metallurgy, forging, and precision machining were exceedingly rare. In the Ming dynasty, such craftsmen were regarded as specialized talents. tightly controlled by the Imperial Bureau of Military Affairs and the Bureau of Armaments, as they constituted a strategic national resource, nearly impossible to find in the civilian sector. It appeared he would have to cultivate them himself. Zhu Yunxi rose and approached the window, gazing into the dark night sky. Cultivating craftsmen would require time. From literacy and blueprint comprehension to hands-on practice, and ultimately mastering tolerance control, it would take at least a year or more to achieve any substantial progress. Yet, what he lacked most was time. In Beiping, the lurking tiger was likely losing its restraint. Counting the days, it would be merely a matter of days now. Zhu Yunxi fixed his gaze northward. Once the Jingnan campaign ignited, the entirety of the Ming dynasty would be engulfed in flames of war. He must shape this firearms unit before the inferno reached Qiongzhou. May the hunting party that set sail bring back surprises. Zhu Yunxi murmured to himself. The fleet he dispatched aimed not only for spices and gold in the South Seas, but, more crucially, to plunder manpower. Though the indigenous people were uncivilized, they were robust and strong. With a bit of training, they could become the best miners and laborers, liberating the current skilled craftsmen from arduous physical toil to focus on mastering firearms technology. In Beiping, at the residence of the Prince of Yan. Though it was the height of summer in July, an eerie chill mingled with heat lingered in a secluded corner of the royal courtyard. This place was once the pig pen of the manor. Hundreds of fat pigs were crammed together, emitting deafening grunts, and the air was thick with an unbearable stench. Yet, beneath this pigsty lay an extraordinary secret. A vast underground ice cellar had been transformed into a weapons factory, where dozens of furnaces burned day and night. Bare-chested craftsmen worked tirelessly. The rhythmic clanging of hammers striking red-hot iron resonated throughout the space. However, all these sounds were drowned out by the cacophony of the pigs above. A middle-aged man in plain clothes stood in the shadows at the entrance of the cellar, his gaze heavy as he surveyed the scene. His features were rugged. A thick beard adorned his chin, and his bloodshot eyes retained a cold glimmer. The Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, father. A corpulent man, panting as he walked, approached hastily, a handkerchief in hand, constantly wiping the cold sweat from his brow. This was Zhu Di's son, Zhu Yunxi. The two men watching us, Xie Gui and Zhang Bing, just sent someone to loiter outside the manor again. Zhu Yunxi whispered anxiously. They seem to have sensed something. The scrutiny has intensified recently. Even the vegetable carts are being stopped for inspection. Zhu Di remained silent, his hands clenched behind his back. He had no desire to rebel, truly. Even after being expelled from Yingtian, even after losing his military power, he would have accepted a peaceful life in this small corner of Beiping. But that nephew of his, seated on the dragon throne, was too ruthless. Disbanding the fief was one thing, but driving people to their deaths was another. Prince of Xiong, Zhu Bai? What a proud man he was, driven to self-immolation with his entire family. The flames that consumed the Prince of Xiong also extinguished Zhu Di's last flicker of hope for the court. What about the second brother? Zhu Di finally spoke, his voice low. Second brother is sharpening his blades. Zhu Yunxi offered a bitter smile, suggesting that instead of waiting passively for death, it would be better to fight back. Even if it meant dying, they should at least spill the blood of those dog officials. And the third brother? Third brother is distributing armor to the palace guards. He even proposed to host a banquet tonight, luring Xie Gui and Zhang Bing in for a surprise. Zhu Yunxi made a slashing gesture across his throat. Zhu Di fell silent. Just a few days prior, his grandson Zhu Yunxi had been born. The child's cries were robust, and his features bore a striking resemblance to him. In that moment, holding his grandson, Zhu Di suddenly had an epiphany. He must not only live for himself, but for the future generations of his family. If he submitted, the fate of the Prince of Xiong would be the fate of the Prince of Yan's residence tomorrow. Yunxi. Zhu Di turned to his usually gentle and timid eldest son, his eyes resolute. Are you afraid? Zhu Yunxi paused, a struggle evident on his chubby face. Yet meeting his father's heavy gaze, he gritted his teeth and knelt. I am afraid, father. But I am even more afraid of my father's humiliation, afraid that the descendants of the Zhu family will be slaughtered like pigs and dogs. Good. Zhu Di helped his son up, his large hand thumping heavily on his shoulder. Since the court offers no escape, we shall carve our own path to survival. Issue the order. Tonight, we shall act according to the third brother's plan. Raise a toast to signal, and slay Xie Gui and Zhang Bing. Seize the 9 gates. Control Beiping. Zhu Yunxi trembled, the fear in his eyes dissipating, replaced by unwavering determination. I shall obey. That night, as the darkness thickened, the Prince of Yan's residence was ablaze with lights, the aroma of wine wafting through the air, concealing the glint of drawn swords lurking in the shadows. Chapter 4. Huang Ziqing is truly astounding. In the first year of Jianwen, July, astonishing news swept across the northern lands. The Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, raised an army in Beiping under the pretext of purging the court and restoring the nation. In a single night, the 9 gates of Beiping changed hands. Zhu Di captured the Beiping garrison, rallied his old subordinates, and executed the governor Zhang Bing and commander Xie Gui, his military might unstoppable. Within mere days, Tongzhou, Jizhou, and Juyong Pass fell one after another, the Yin army's momentum shaking the world. Nanjing, Yingtian. Within the Fengtian Hall, the atmosphere was stifling. Rebellion! Rebellion! The young emperor, Zhu Yunxi, slammed the urgent battle report he held onto the imperial court floor, his youthful visage contorted with rage. He is my own uncle. I have endured and tolerated him, even allowing him to feign madness in his fief, yet he dares to rebel. Below the throne, civil and military officials were silent as the grave, heads bowed, not daring to utter a sound. No one had anticipated that the Prince of Yan, who had been feigning madness in Beiping, would truly dare to raise the flag of rebellion. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. As silence enveloped the hall, one person stepped forward, dressed in a crimson official robe, with a lean face and an air of scholarly confidence. It was Huang Ziqing, the Minister of Rights. Zhu Yunxi, the most trusted strategist of Zhu Di, was one of the principal architects of the policy to reduce the power of the feudal lords. Upon seeing Huang Ziqing emerge, Zhu Yunxi felt a surge of confidence, eagerly inquiring, Huang, the Yin rebels are rising in revolt, their momentum like a raging torrent. What should we do now? Huang Ziqing, with a knowing smile, replied, Your Majesty, the rebellion of the Yin commoners is merely a desperate struggle of a cornered beast destined for self-destruction. I have a word that will ease Your Majesty's mind. Although the Yin rebels have risen, they lack the advantage of heaven, geography, and the support of the people. Zhu Yunxi's eyes sparkled with interest. My dear minister, please elaborate. Huang Ziqing raised a finger and spoke confidently. Firstly, it is July, and the northern wheat harvest is not yet complete. The common folk are preoccupied with agricultural tasks. The Yin rebels, by conscripting laborers at this critical time, will surely alienate the hearts of the people. Moreover, the supplies in Beiping are insufficient to sustain a prolonged campaign. Secondly, the geographical advantage does not lie with Yin. Key strongholds such as Huailai and Yongping are firmly in the hands of loyal subjects of the Ming, forming a strategic encirclement with Beiping. Once the imperial army arrives, they can easily ensnare the rebels. Most importantly, it is the support of the people. Although the feudal lords harbor resentment towards the reduction of their powers, they would never dare to openly side with the rebels. They are mostly watching and weighing their options. Listening to this, Zhu Yunxi nodded repeatedly, his previously anxious heart gradually settling. What do you suggest the court should do? Huang Ziqing smiled subtly, presenting a plan he had meticulously prepared. Your Majesty, the immediate priority is to isolate the Yin rebels. I advise you to draft an edict promptly, announcing to the world, especially to the feudal lords of various provinces, that any who contribute to quelling the Yin rebels will not only be exempt from punishment, but will also be rewarded with titles and lands. This proclamation startled the entire court, followed by expressions of enlightenment. Ingenious. Truly brilliant. This was a classic strategy of using 2 peaches to kill 3 scholars. Driving tigers to swallow wolves. What do the feudal lords fear most? The reduction of their powers. Now the emperor has promised not to diminish their authority as long as they fight against Zhu Di. In their quest to preserve their wealth and status, these lords, even if not genuinely committed to the cause, would never aid Zhu Di. They would remain passive and watch from the sidelines. Thus, Zhu Di would become a true solitary figure. Excellent. What a clever strategy. Zhu Yunxi clapped his hands in laughter, dispelling the clouds of worry. You are indeed my trusted advisor. He commanded, convey my edict immediately, and send it to the fiefdoms of the various lords. The scholars of the Hanlin Academy immediately busied themselves, preparing ink and paper to draft the imperial decree. At that moment, a senior eunuch approached, whispering, Your Majesty, there is one more matter. Speak, Zhu Yunxi responded, in good spirits. The messenger sent to Qiongzhou to deliver the edict has yet to return. By the pace of travel, he should have arrived by now. The eunuch bowed. Now that we are to issue an edict to the feudal lords regarding the suppression of the Yin rebels, what of His Highness the Prince of Wu in Qiongzhou? Upon hearing the name Qiongzhou, Zhu Yunxin's brow furrowed slightly. That was his exiled brother, Zhu Yunxi. Ever since he had banished him to Qiongzhou 3 years ago, Zhu Yunxin had almost forgotten his existence. Qiongzhou, Zhu Yunxin pondered, glancing at Huang Ziqing. Do you think we should also issue an edict to pacify the situation there? Huang Ziqing displayed disdain, shaking his head with a tone of contempt. Your Majesty, Qiongzhou is a remote, barren land, rife with miasma and poverty. Prince Zhu Yunxi is merely a young boy, cowardly and inept. Surviving in such a place is already a challenge for him. He likely possesses few decent weapons. Continuing, Huang Ziqing said, Your Majesty, the Yin rebels are the true immediate threat. As for Qiongzhou, with all due respect, it is insignificant to the overall situation. Issuing an edict to him would merely waste resources. Furthermore, the messenger has not returned, likely delayed by the long journey and rough seas. There is no need for concern. At present, Your Majesty should concentrate all efforts on mobilizing the imperial army northward to quell the rebellion, rather than waste energy on a useless brother. Zhu Yunxin nodded in agreement. Indeed, what upheaval could a brother banished to a deserted island, without arms or provisions, possibly cause? If he were granted an edict exempting him from punishment, it would render any future actions against him unfounded after the Yin King was subdued. It would be better to allow him to fend for himself. Huang Ziqing's reasoning was sound. With a decisive wave of his hand, Zhu Yunxin coldly concluded, As for Qiongzhou, we need not concern ourselves. There is no need to issue any decree regarding the suppression of the Yin rebels to that traitorous brother. If he knows his place, let him die in Qiongzhou. If not, Zhu Yunxin did not continue, yet the implication was unmistakable. In the grand hall, the flickering candlelight elongated the shadows of Zhu Yunxin and Huang Ziqing. The two, immersed in fantasies of quelling the rebellion, remained oblivious to the grave mistake they had just made. They had overlooked the true hidden dragon of the Ming dynasty, a terrifying force capable of overturning the entire chessboard. This trump card, capable of determining the fate of the realm, was carelessly cast aside into the discard pile. Draft the edict, and aside from Qiongzhou, send urgent gold seals to the other princes. Zhu Yunxin turned his back to the hall's entrance. Chapter 5. The confounded messenger in the grand hall of the Qiong prince's residence. A middle-aged man clad in the court's crimson robes knelt, tightly bound, his hair disheveled. The official cap long lost, his expression a mixture of shock and anger. This man was Luan, the court messenger sent to Qiongzhou to convey the edict of the Jianwen Emperor. Zhu Yunxi, have you lost your mind? I am a court official, an imperial envoy sent by the emperor. Luan struggled to rise, but was firmly held down by 2 guards of the prince's residence, his voice rising in a roar. By detaining an imperial envoy, you are showing great disrespect. This is rebellion. If the emperor learns of this, your entire family will face annihilation. Seated at the head of the table, Zhu Yunxi lightly skimmed the surface of his tea, not even lifting his gaze. Beside him, Xiao Ding was sweating profusely, leaning close to Zhu Yunxi and whispering, Your Highness, this is, after all, a person from the court. If we act too ruthlessly, the news may swiftly reach the capital, prompting the court's army to retaliate. Perhaps we should release him and offer some silver. Release him? Zhu Yunxi chuckled lightly, setting down his teacup. Fixing his gaze upon Luan, I not only will not release him, but I will also utilize his head as a bargaining chip. Zhu Yunxi rose, stepping before Luan, looking down at him. You claim I am rebelling? No, you are mistaken. I am conducting a revolution. Revolution? Luan was momentarily taken aback, then let out a derisive laugh, his eyes filled with disdain. Preposterous. What revolution? It is merely a pretext for treachery. Zhu Yunxi, do not think I am unaware of what kind of place Qiongzhou is. A land of desolate mountains and waters, filled with unruly commoners. With your meager resources, you cannot even feed yourself, let alone incite a rebellion. This is utterly ludicrous. In Luan's eyes, Qiongzhou was a desolate wasteland. Zhu Yunxi's detainment of him was merely an attempt to leverage this for more provisions and rewards from the court. Kill an imperial envoy? He wouldn't dare, even if given 10 lives. Clearly, you do not believe me. Zhu Yunxi shook his head. Guards, take him away and chop him up for the fish. Yes. The 2 guards, fierce as wolves, immediately advanced, dragging Luan towards the exit. Initially shocked, Luan then chuckled coldly to himself. Are you trying to scare me? I have seen this trick many times. Someone will surely come out to play the good cop and stop me. As he was being dragged away, he shouted defiantly, Zhu Yunxi, spare me your theatrics. If you have the guts, kill me. I want to see if this impoverished prince has the courage to do it. Zhu Yunxi ignored his outcry, standing with his hands clasped behind his back, watching him being dragged from the grand hall. The path to the seaside slaughterhouse happened to pass by the training grounds on the west side of the prince's residence. Luin, grumbling incessantly, firmly believed that this was merely a prank orchestrated by Zhu Yunxi. However, the moment he was dragged through the gates of the training ground, all his curses abruptly ceased. The earth trembled, and dust swirled around him. What met Luin's eyes was not the ragged beggar soldiers he had imagined, brandishing bamboo poles, but rather a formation of stern, fierce, elite warriors. Thousands of soldiers clad in dark iron armor, wielding finely crafted steel spears, practiced in perfect unison under the blazing sun. Their movements were powerful and vigorous, each thrust accompanied by thunderous battle cries, the overwhelming aura of ferocity surpassing even that of the Imperial Guard by a significant margin. This. Luin's eyes widened, nearly bulging from their sockets. His legs weakened, and he collapsed onto the ground. This was hardly the desolate land he had expected. It was unmistakably a fortress of war concealed overseas. Was he truly terrified to this extent? The guard escorting him scoffed disdainfully, instructing him to look over there. Luin instinctively followed the direction of the guard's finger. In the corner of the training ground, he saw several enormous double-wheeled artillery pieces. A few soldiers were diligently polishing the cannon barrels, and as the oilcloth covering them was lifted, their terrifying true forms were revealed. The red robe cannons. As the Minister of Rights, Luin had seen blueprints of such Western firearms in the Ministry of War. They were coveted artifacts by the frontier troops of the Ming dynasty, reputed for their immense power, capable of devastating several miles with a single shot. Yet, how could such a national treasure appear in this remote Qiongzhou? Moreover, there were more than a dozen of them. Is this truly the red robe cannon? Luin's voice trembled. Oh, quite the connoisseur, the guard remarked, patting the cannon's barrel with a grin. These are for His Highness to use as fireworks. How's that for a display? Fireworks? Luin was drenched in cold sweat, his back instantly soaked. He finally comprehended that Zhu Yunxi was not jesting or bluffing. He was genuinely preparing for war. He truly possessed the strength to overthrow the Ming dynasty. Qiongzhou was no longer the legendary land of exile. It had been armed to the teeth. Spare my life. Luin utterly collapsed, disregarding the dirt beneath him, desperately kowtowing and pleading for mercy. Your Highness, spare me. I realize my mistakes. I truly understand now. I am willing to serve you as a loyal dog. Please do not kill me. He did not wish to die. He had just come to the horrifying realization of the vortex he had become ensnared in. Enough. The guard abruptly lifted Luin, his expression devoid of emotion. If His Highness decrees that you shall be chopped into pieces to feed the fish, then that is precisely what shall occur. The sharks in the waters of Qiongzhou have been starving for several days. No, I do not wish to feed the fish. I am a court official. Help! His piercing cries echoed across the training ground, quickly drowned out by the booming sounds of the soldiers' drills. In the Qiong Palace, the armory department, after sending off the oblivious messenger, Zhu Yunxi felt no relief. He strode into the heavily guarded courtyard, the site of Qiongzhou's most confidential weapons workshop. The furnace blazed with fire, waves of heat emanating from it. Dozens of shirtless craftsmen were busy, the rhythmic sounds of hammering filling the air. Your Highness. Upon seeing Zhu Yunxi's arrival, the overseer of the armory hurriedly set aside his work and rushed over to pay his respects. How goes the recruitment of new soldiers? Zhu Yunxi inquired as he examined the components laid out on the table. In response to Your Highness, after posting the recruitment notice, the populace eagerly enlisted. Following 3 rounds of screening, we have successfully recruited 10,000 new soldiers, all robust and of unblemished character, ready to commence training at any moment. The overseer replied respectfully. Excellent. Zhu Yunxi nodded, his gaze falling upon a row of neatly arranged firearms on the table. These guns were markedly different from the flintlock muskets of the Ming dynasty. They eschewed the cumbersome matchlock mechanism in favor of a sophisticated flintlock ignition system. The barrels were elongated, and the stocks were crafted from premium hardwood, polished to a smooth sheen, exuding an intoxicating aura of violent beauty. This is the flintlock musket. Chapter 6. What identity dares to raise prices? Zhu Yunxi picked one up, skillfully pulling the hammer and squeezing the trigger. Click. A crisp sound echoed, sparks flying. How many have been manufactured? Zhu Yunxi asked. The overseer's expression darkened, stammering. In response to your highness, this batch, produced in haste, consists of only 100 pieces. Zhu Yunxi frowned, his tone filled with dissatisfaction. Only 100? I provided you with the blueprints, the finest craftsmen, in half a month's time, and you only managed to produce 100? At this rate, by the time the Jingnan campaign concludes, my army will still be using firewood sticks to poke at enemies. The overseer fell to his knees, a bitter expression on his face. Your Highness, forgive me. It is not that we are slacking off. It is simply that a skilled cook cannot make a meal without rice. Zhu Yunxi inquired, what seems to be the issue? A shortage of iron. The overseer raised his head, speaking helplessly. The iron ore in Qiongzhou is of poor quality, with many impurities. To refine steel capable of making gun barrels, it requires dozens of repeated hammerings, resulting in a high failure rate. Additionally, our stock of quality iron is nearly depleted. Without good iron, these barrels will explode upon firing. It is impossible to manufacture them. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yunxi slammed the flintlock musket heavily onto the table. Iron. Again, it is iron. This is the Achilles heel of industrial development. Without sufficient steel production, all advanced blueprints are merely worthless scraps of paper. Development feels like an endless abyss. With blueprints, there are no craftsmen. With craftsmen, there are no materials. With materials, there is a lack of technology. Each of these shortcomings requires a massive investment of manpower and resources to remedy. Zhu Yunxi let out a long sigh, suppressing his rising frustration. He knew that blaming these craftsmen would be futile. Send out the order. The production of flintlock muskets must not cease for a moment. Zhu Yunxin's gaze hardened as he spoke. Since we lack iron, then let us use copper for now. Have Xiao Ding lead a team into the city to collect all copper basins, locks, coins, anything made of copper from the households. Compensate the populace at market price. We must produce these guns, even if they are made of copper. Yes, the overseer quickly responded. Zhu Yunxi paced around the workshop, contemplating longer-term plans. Using copper instead of iron was ultimately a stopgap measure. Copper was far more expensive than iron and lacked the hardness of steel. To equip firearms on a large scale, the issues of iron mining and smelting must be addressed. System. Zhu Yunxi silently recited in his heart. A cerulean system panel materialized before him. Current reputation points, 14,300. This was his final reserve. Zhu Yunxi swiftly browsed the mall list, his gaze finally settling on a specific technology. Basic iron ore exploration and smelting technology upgrade package. Includes, or prospecting techniques, blast furnace iron making method, coke preparation process. Hydraulic hammer blueprints. Price, 3,000 reputation points. Exchange. As the reputation points were deducted, an immense flow of information surged into Zhu Yunxi's mind. Those obscure geological concepts, blast furnace structural diagrams, and coke ratios became as clear as innate memories. Come. Zhu Yunxi opened his eyes, summoned all the old blacksmiths in the city, as well as the iron prospectors who roamed the mountains. I shall teach them. For the next 3 days, the courtyard of the Qiong Palace transformed into a temporary classroom. Zhu Yunxi personally led the instruction, imparting the knowledge granted by the system without reservation to these craftsmen. He sketched blueprints, explained principles, and even guided them in the manufacture of new mineral exploration tools and refractory bricks. The entire craftsman system of Qiongzhou began to operate like a finely tuned machine. However, just as Zhu Yunxi prepared to embark on his grand endeavor, a piece of bad news arrived. Your Highness, there is trouble. Xiao Ding hurriedly entered the study, his complexion ashen, clutching a letter in hand. Our long-term partners among the Jianwen iron merchants have unexpectedly changed their stance. Changed their stance? Zhu Yunxi set aside the blueprints he had been examining, his brow furrowing slightly. What do you mean? They claim that recent disturbances at sea have increased risks, necessitating a hike in shipping costs. Xiao Ding gritted his teeth, adding, moreover, they have learned of our urgent need for copper and iron materials and audaciously inflated the prices of pig iron and wrought copper by a staggering 40%. 40%? Zhu Yunxi's anger transformed into a sardonic smile. This is not merely a price increase. It is blatant robbery. Furthermore, Xiao Ding fumed. The leading merchant, Wang, has threatened that if we do not accept this price, they will immediately cease supply. ensuring that not a single piece of iron will reach Qiongzhou. They are exploiting our desperate need for resources to prepare for war, intending to strike us hard. With a sharp crack, Zhu Yunxi snapped his brush in two, ink splattering across his hand. He felt both dependent on and resentful of these merchants. Although Qiongzhou is rapidly developing, it remains fragile, heavily reliant on the mainland for essential supplies. It would be one thing if these merchants were merely profiting. However, at this critical moment of preparation for war, they dare to use this as leverage, tightening their grip around our necks. This exemplifies the avarice of capitalism. For the sake of profit, they are willing to trample upon everything, even betraying their own country. Very well. Zhu Yunxi rose and approached the window, gazing at the bustling port in the distance. His murderous intent more palpable than when he had dispatched that messenger. He was racing against time. Every second was pivotal to the future survival. He did not wish to disrupt the hard-won order of commerce, nor did he want to resort to force to resolve commercial disputes, fearing it would drive away other merchants. However, if these individuals insist on pushing their luck at such a critical junction. Xiaoding. Zhu Yunxi turned, instructing Wang to come to the Wang residence tonight for a banquet, where he would personally discuss matters over tea. Your Highness, do you intend to? Xiaoding's heart trembled at Zhu Yunxi's expression. First courtesy, then force. Zhu Yunxi adjusted his sleeves, his tone icy. Should they demonstrate some sense and lower their prices, I may allow them to continue prospering. But if they remain obstinate, intent on becoming an obstacle. He narrowed his eyes, his hand gently resting on the hilt of the dagger at his waist, indicating he would not hesitate to employ certain measures to make them understand who truly holds power in Qiongzhou. At Haikao, in the Grand Hall of Trade, despite ice basins placed in each corner, the forehead of County Magistrate Lu Ji was still drenched in beads of sweat. He held a thoroughly soaked handkerchief, his face flushed, pointing at the merchants leisurely sipping tea before him, his voice trembling. Wang, we signed a contract. The prices for pig iron and wrought copper are clearly stipulated in black and white. How can you claim a price increase? And a 40% increase at that? Are you trying to drive the Qiongzhou government to its knees? Lu Ji was an honest man and a diligent official. Having endured hardships alongside Zhu Yunxi for 3 years, he had watched Qiongzhou steadily improve, only to find himself at the mercy of these merchants, frantic and desperate. Seated across from him was a portly man clad in a silk long gown, adorned with jade rings, Wang Fugue, the leader of the Jianwen iron merchants. Chapter 7. The ace behind the merchants, Wang Fugue, gently blew the froth from his teacup, not bothering to lift his eyelids, a faint smirk playing at his lips. My dear magistrate, your words are quite displeasing. Wang Fugue set down his teacup, leisurely responding, in business, one must heed market conditions. Given the current tumultuous seas and rampant piracy, transporting this cargo puts our lives at risk. It is entirely reasonable to raise the shipping fee. Furthermore, Wang Fugue leaned slightly forward, his facial fat bunching together, revealing a set of yellowed teeth. I have heard that His Highness, Prince Wu, is currently expanding military preparations and urgently requires this batch of copper and iron. We are merely assisting His Highness in alleviating his burdens. Thus the price must naturally rise with the tide. You are robbing us in our time of need. Lu Ji trembled with rage. Do as you please. Wang Fugue shrugged nonchalantly, lifting his teacup once more. The goods are already on the ship. Either pay the new price, or we will set sail back to Jiangnan. We can do without Qiongzhou's business. The atmosphere in the hall instantly turned tense. Lu Ji glared at the merchants, filled with a sense of helplessness. He understood that they were fully aware of Qiongzhou's current shortage of iron, and that His Highness would not dare to act against them. Just then, clap, clap, clap. A series of crisp applause echoed from the entrance of the hall. Zhu Yunxi, dressed in dark robes, with the dagger symbolizing his princely authority at his waist. He wore a smile that was neither here nor there. Behind him, Xiao Ding led 2 squads of fully armed royal guards, flooding into the hall and surrounding it completely. What a fine notion of doing without end prices rising with the tide. As Zhu Yunxi applauded, he strolled towards the main seat. Upon seeing Zhu Yunxi, Lu Ji felt as though he had encountered a savior, rushing forward to bow. Your Highness, I have heard everything. Zhu Yunxi waved his hand, signaling Lu Ji to step back, then sat down heavily in the grand chair, his gaze playfully sweeping over the merchants. The once arrogant merchants, upon seeing their sovereign had arrived, especially with the surrounding guards exuding palpable menace, all changed their expressions, instinctively rising to their feet. Wang Fugui, having seen the world, quickly composed himself and clasped his hands. Commoner pays respects to His Highness, Prince Wu. Since you have arrived, let us speak frankly about this price. Kneel. Zhu Yunxi commanded coldly. Wang Fugui was taken aback, seemingly unable to comprehend. Your Highness, what did you say? I said kneel. Zhu Yunxi leaned forward slightly. What? Upon entering my domain, have you forgotten the etiquette of the Ming dynasty? Or do you believe that possessing a few pieces of worthless iron grants you the right to stand before me? Wang Fugui's expression stiffened. Feeling the icy glares of the guards, particularly the hands resting on their daggers, he swallowed hard, his knees buckling as he fell to the ground. Commoner. Dares not. Seeing this, the other merchants quickly knelt as well, not daring to breathe. This was the oppressive weight of power. No matter how much wealth one possesses, before imperial authority, one remains but an ant. Leaning back in his chair, Zhu Yunxi spoke languidly. Wang, is it? I have heard that you have someone backing you. Wang Fugui's heart raced. Your Highness, what do you mean? We are merely honest merchants. Honest? Zhu Yunxi scoffed. Honest merchants would dare to collude and raise prices by 40% at such a critical juncture? Honest merchants would threaten a prince of the Ming dynasty? He slammed the table heavily, causing the teacups to rattle. Speak. Who gave you the audacity? Guards. Drag these scoundrels out, break their legs first, then interrogate them slowly. Yes. Several guards pounced like wolves, seizing Wang Fugui and the others, dragging them towards the exit. Your Highness, have mercy. We are innocent. We are merely conducting business. The merchants were terrified, their souls fleeing, crying out for mercy. They had never imagined that this Prince Wu would be so unreasonable, eschewing negotiation for immediate punishment. Wang Fugui was hoisted off the ground by two burly men, struggling desperately. Just as he was about to be dragged out the door, he finally broke down, hysterically shouting, Your Highness, you cannot harm us. We are people of the Prince of Jingjiang. This shipment was ordered by the Prince of Jingjiang. Stop. Zhu Yunxi raised his hand. The guards immediately halted, dropping Wang Fugui to the ground. Lu Ji and Xiao Ding exchanged astonished glances. The Prince of Jingjiang, Zhu Zani, was the great-grandson of Zhu Yuanzhang, the founding emperor, with a feudal territory in Guilin, Guangxi. Though not a direct royal, the Prince of Jingjiang held a position of great prestige. And Guangxi was affluent and powerful, far surpassing the current Qiongzhou. Seeing Zhu Yunxi call for a stop, Wang Fugui assumed he had instilled fear, gaining confidence. Your Highness, since we have reached this point in our conversation, I shall not hide the truth any longer. He straightened his disheveled attire. Though still kneeling, his tone had hardened. Indeed, we are backed by the Prince of Jingjiang. He has said that Qiongzhou is impoverished and that you are enduring hardships, so as his cousin. He ought to lend a helping hand. However, this business is still a matter of trade. The prince has a large army to support, incurring significant expenses. Thus, the price increase of 40% is, in fact, the prince's directive, intended as a test for you. At this, Wang Fugui raised his head to meet Zhu Yunxi's gaze. A hint of blatant threat in his tone. Your Highness, should you harm us, it would be a slap in the face to the Prince of Jingjiang. Not only would you lose this shipment, but the entire trade routes of Lingnan may close off to Qiongzhou in the future. You must consider whether it is worth offending the Prince of Jingjiang for this mere sum of silver, or... Suddenly, a hearty laugh interrupted Wang Fugui's words. Zhu Yunxi laughed heartily, as if he had heard the most amusing joke in the world. A test? Does he think himself worthy? The laughter ceased abruptly, and Zhu Yunxi's expression turned grave, his face a stormy hue. What was Zhu Zani, a mere side branch of the royal family, daring to act haughty before him? Did he think to constrict his neck? He stood up and approached Wang Fugui, gazing intently at the self-important merchant. Do you think that if I were to lose your iron, Qiongzhou would cease to function? Do you believe I am unaware of your schemes? Attempting to profit from my misfortune while the court seeks to diminish your power? Zhu Yunxi lowered himself, gently patting the greasy face of Wang Fugui. With each pat, Wang Fugui's heart quivered. Listen well. I now present you with two options. First, this shipment must be unloaded at the dock at the original price. Not a single coin less. I am offering you a chance to survive. Return to Guangxi and inform Zhu Zani to retract his clause and refrain from extending them to Qiongzhou. Second, Zhu Yunxi rose, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, exuding a murderous aura. If you force my hand, I shall kill you all and seize the ship. The goods will be mine, and I will not part with a single coin. Chapter 8. Qiongzhou is not only tough, but it also burns the tongue. Wang Fuguei was left utterly dumbfounded. Gazing into Zhu Yunxi's bloodshot eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. How dare he? How dare he disregard the Prince of Jingjiang's threat? Did he truly not fear the severance of trade routes? What Wang Fuguei did not know was that Zhu Yunxi had already mastered the foundational techniques of iron ore exploration and smelting. Given time, Qiongzhou would yield an endless supply of iron ore, rendering him free from dependence on others. His current need to purchase was solely a matter of urgency. Your Highness, Wang Fuguei stammered, you intend to rob us outright. In extraordinary times, extraordinary measures are required, Zhu Yunxi replied coldly. I have no time for idle chatter. Shouting, present. Dispatch orders to seal the port. Bring in 100 gunmen to surround those merchant ships. If they dare to flee, sink them on the spot. Yes. Hearing the term gunmen and witnessing Zhu Yunxi's resolute demeanor, Wang Fuguei's last line of defense crumbled completely. A scholar encountering soldiers cannot articulate reason. Moreover, they faced a mad prince who possessed power and did not abide by conventional rules. If they were truly killed, the Prince of Jingjiang would only scold a few times, but their lives would be at stake. Stop. Do not act. Wang Fuguei prostrated like a pestle. Your Highness, please temper your anger. I promise. I promise to deliver the goods at the original price. Spare our lives. Zhu Yunxi let out a cold snort, returning to his chair. Why not say so earlier? Worthless wretch. Wang Fuguei wiped the cold sweat from his brow, his eyes darting as he donned a troubled expression. Your Highness, we can agree on the price, but transporting the goods may pose a bit of trouble. What trouble? Zhu Yunxi raised an eyebrow. It is this way, Wang Fuguei lamented. To transport the goods from the port to your workshop, we must pass through the territory of Haiyan. The commander there has a grudge against us, and inspections have been strict lately. If he discovers we are transporting iron, he will certainly seize it. Our merchant convoy lacks sufficient guards. We may not be able to break through. Perhaps, Your Highness, you could send soldiers to assist us? This was a trap. Haiyan fell under the jurisdiction of Lizhou Prefecture, which belonged to the court. If Zhu Yunxi dispatched a large force into Haiyan, it would be seen as unauthorized troop movements across borders, tantamount to rebellion. The court was eager for an excuse to deal with him. If he did not send troops, the goods could not be transported. Wang Fuguei lowered his head, a malicious smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Having suffered a loss on the price, he sought to recoup elsewhere. If he could drag Zhu Yunxi into the mire and alert Lizhou Prefecture, he would relish watching how he would navigate the aftermath. Zhu Yunxi observed Wang Fuguei's expression, a cold smile forming in his heart. Such petty tricks, and he thought to outsmart him? Haiyan? Zhu Yunxi lightly tapped his fingers on the table, pondering briefly. This is easily resolved. I will send men to escort you. Wang Fuguei's heart leapt with joy, hastily inquiring. How many will your Highness send? Haiyan has over 1,000 soldiers. If we send too few, we may not be able to maintain order. Not many. Zhu Yunxi extended 2 fingers, 200 men. 200? Wang Fuguei was taken aback, nearly laughing aloud. 200? To breach a force of over 1,000 in Haiyan? That is akin to seeking death. It seemed this prince was still too young, unaware of the gravity of the situation. However, this was also advantageous. 200 men would be a smaller target, unlikely to attract much attention. Once they were captured by Haiyan, Zhu Yunxi would be left speechless in his defeat. Very well, 200 it is. Fearing Zhu Yunxi might change his mind, Wang Fuguei hastily agreed. With your Highness's 200 elite soldiers escorting us, the Haiyan garrison would surely not dare to act recklessly. I shall now arrange for the unloading and loading of the goods. With that, Wang Fuguei, along with several merchants, expressed their gratitude profusely and exited, their steps light as if they had just found treasure. Watching their departing figures, Xiao Ding, who had remained silent, could no longer contain himself. Your Highness, Xiao Ding exclaimed, stamping his feet in frustration, how could you agree to their demands? This is clearly a trap. The commander of Haiyan is a greedy man. Although his 1,000-strong force is not very competent, there are many of them. Sending 200 men would be like sending meat buns to a dog. Moreover, Xiao Ding lowered his voice, his expression grave. Lizhou Prefecture is our lifeline for trade with the mainland. If we offend them over this shipment, how will we sell our salt, sugar, and glass in the future? This could sever our financial lifeline. Zhu Yunxi picked up a teacup, taking a gentle sip. His demeanor unfazed. Shouting, do you think me foolish? Your Highness is undoubtedly wise and mighty, but there are no buts. Zhu Yunxi set down the teacup, a shrewd glint in his eyes. Who told you that I would send ordinary soldiers? Shouting was taken aback. Not ordinary soldiers? Then what? The 200 most elite brothers of the Imperial Guard donned the attire of laborers, blending into the caravan. Zhu Yunxi lowered his voice, a hint of excitement in his tone, instructing them to bring along all 200 newly forged flintlock guns. What? Xiao Ding's eyes widened in disbelief. All of them. Your Highness, are you planning to? Qiongzhou is too small and too remote. Zhu Yunxi rose and approached the map, his finger emphatically marking the location of Lizhou Prefecture. We have developed in seclusion for 3 years, amassing this small fortune. Outsiders perceived Qiongzhou as desolate, unaware that we have become exceedingly wealthy. This disparity in information serves as both camouflage and a stumbling block. Currently, we lack iron, manpower, and time. Relying solely on clandestine purchases will not meet our military expansion needs. Hence, I must draw my sword. This hand office is the whetstone I have chosen. 200 flintlock guns are sufficient to deal with 1,000 soldiers armed with rusty spears. I want Lizhou Prefecture and the entire Lingnan region to understand that Qiongzhou is not just a tough piece of meat, but also a hot one. Xiao Ding felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. However, Your Highness, once the first shot is fired, how will we explain it to the Lizhou governor? What if he reports it to the court? He wouldn't dare. Zhu Yunxi scoffed. Go write a letter now to the Lizhou governor. In the letter, state that the Han office's 1,000 households conspired with the Prince of Jingjiang, intending to intercept the resources of the Ming prince, akin to treason. I am forced to retaliate for self-preservation. Xiao Ding was left speechless. Will that work? Have no fear, Zhu Yunxi replied confidently. Today, as officials prefer to avoid trouble. Moreover, the Lizhou governor is a clever man. When he witnesses the might of those 100 flintlock guns and sees our 200 laborers swiftly defeating 1,000 soldiers, he will know how to choose. We have an army of 100,000, most of whom are new recruits, but in the eyes of the Lizhou Prefecture, that is an astronomical number. In this chaotic era, strength is the ultimate truth. Zhu Yunxi gazed out the window, his eyes seemingly piercing through the strait to the Lizhou government office across the way. The day this batch of resources returns will be the day the Lizhou governor comes to curry favor. Go and carry out the task. Yes. Xiao Ding responded with heavy yet resolute steps. Chapter 9. The Emergence of Flintlock Guns. At the Han office, the 1,000 households official hall. County Magistrate Zhao Yang was currently bowing slightly, pouring tea for the middle-aged scholar seated in the main position. The scholar, dressed in scholarly robes, appeared cultured and refined. Yet the ominous glint in his eyes sent chills down the spine. This man was none other than Mr. Yun, the chief strategist under Prince Jingjiang Zhuzani. Mr. Yun, what do you think about this matter? Zhao Yang said with a forced smile. If I can truly assist His Highness in achieving his goals, I could perhaps become the governor of Lizhou. Mr. Yun took a delicate sip of tea without even glancing at him. As long as this matter is executed flawlessly, not only could you aspire to be the governor of Lizhou, but if His Highness ascends the throne, titles and appointments may also be within reach. Upon hearing the mention of titles, Zhao Yang's breath quickened, and a sickly flush spread across his wrinkled face. He straightened up, patting his chest with assurance. Rest assured, sir. My loyalty to His Highness is as evident as the sun and moon. Once the Qiongzhou fleet docks, I assure you they will have no return. Mr. Yin set down his teacup, his gaze scanning Zhao Yang's avaricious face with contempt. Do you understand why His Highness values that dilapidated place of Qiongzhou? Zhao Yang paused, scratching his head. Isn't it just a barren island for exiles? I heard it's a desolate land where not even a bird would alight. Foolish, Mr. Yun interrupted. He stood up and walked to the map, emphatically marking the position of Qiongzhou Prefecture. The world believes it to be a dead end, yet it is, in fact, a true treasure trove for troops. Isolated offshore, it is a place from which one can advance or retreat. More importantly, although Zhu Yunxi is deemed useless, the commotion he has stirred in Qiongzhou over the years is anything but small. The fine salt, white sugar, and glass, each is a source of immense wealth. At this point, Mr. Yun's eyes gleamed with greed. What His Highness desires is not merely those resources, but the foundation of Qiongzhou itself. Once Qiongzhou is secured, His Highness will possess the capital to contend for supremacy over the realm. Zhao Yang suddenly realized that Prince Jingjiang's ambition extended to the entirety of Qiongzhou. But Zhu Yunxi is still a prince. Zhao Yang hesitated. A prince? Mr. Yin scoffed, a deposed, illegitimate grandson of the emperor. While the court is busy curtailing the fiefs, who would care about his life or death? Furthermore, our plan is to borrow a knife to kill. He turned to Zhao Yang. Remember, once the fleet arrives, act immediately. Eliminate everyone and seize the resources. Then declare that the Qiongzhou prefecture initiated an attack on the Han office, intending to rebel. You're quelling a rebellion. This will be a great achievement. As for Zhu Yunxi, Mr. Yin sneered, if he dares to resist, it will provide the court with an excuse to dispatch troops to eradicate him. By then, both Lizhou and Qiongzhou will suffer mutual devastation, allowing His Highness to reap the benefits. I understand. Zhao Yang wiped the cold sweat from his brow. I shall not ask unnecessary questions. I will simply carry out the killings. Meanwhile, off the coast of Lizhou Prefecture, the sea was tumultuous. A fleet of 10 merchant ships struggled against the wind and waves. On the flagship, Wang Fugue stood on the deck, peering through a spyglass at the distant, elusive coastline, his heart uneasy. Manager Wang, at this wind speed, we should reach the Han office port within an hour. A trusted aide approached. Once we enter the harbor, our mission will be complete. Wang Fugue nodded, but sighed. I hope so. For some reason, I feel unsettled. Those 200 laborers sent by Zhu Yunxi seem quite peculiar. He instinctively turned to glance towards the cabin. There, 200 men dressed in tattered brown garments, appearing like dock workers, sat quietly in a lotus position. They were silent, not bickering, and not a single one seemed seasick. Leading them was a young man named Li Qing. Despite his coarse clothing, his posture was upright, exuding an air that belied his laborer facade. Suddenly, Li Qing stood up and strode onto the deck. Master Li, Wang Fugue quickly put on a smile. What brings you out? It's quite windy outside. Li Qing ignored his flattery, casting a cold glance at the distant coastline, and abruptly commanded, signal, change course. Change course? Wang Fugue was taken aback. Master Li, the direction is correct. Ahead lies the Han office port. I am not going to the Han office. Li Qing's voice was firm and resolute. Head west. Land at Baishao Bay. What? Wang Fugue jumped up in fright. Baishao Bay? That's a barren beach with no dock. How can we dock there? Moreover, the waters are shallow and rocky. What if we run aground? Absolutely not. His cargo was worth a fortune, and he had a conspiracy with Prince Jingjiang. He needed to bring the ship into the encirclement of the Han office. If they went to Baishao Bay, wouldn't the entire plan be thrown into disarray? I am not discussing this with you. Li Qing turned, his aura imposing. In that moment, Wang Fugue felt a chill run down his spine. You. Wang Fugue stammered. Master Li, we have a contract. The goods must be delivered to the designated location. You are breaching the agreement. Moreover, this fleet is under my command. He steeled himself and shouted to the surrounding guards. Someone, escort this Master Li back to the cabin to rest. Continue sailing towards the Han office. A sharp sound of a blade drew through the air. Before the guards could react, a gleaming steel blade was already pressed against Wang Fugue's neck. Li Qing held the knife with one hand, the edge nearly slicing through Wang Fugue's greasy skin, drawing a bead of blood. Do you dare to kill me? Wang Fugue stammered, terror-stricken, his legs trembling uncontrollably. I am a man of the king of Jingjiang. The king of Jingjiang? Li Qing scoffed derisively. The prince has long suspected that you unscrupulous merchants are untrustworthy. Since you refuse to comply, then do not transport the goods. With a swift motion, he commanded loudly, attack. The 200 laborers, who had been quietly seated on the deck, instantly shed their disguises. They moved in perfect unison, drawing peculiar-looking short guns from their satchels. The dark muzzles aimed directly at the sailors and guards aboard the ship. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of gunfire erupted like popping beans. Amidst the billowing smoke, the guards, still bewildered by the turn of events, fell in droves. Chapter 10. The mantis stalks the cicada, yet the yellow bird is behind help. Murder. The cries and screams reverberated across the sea. Wang Fugue, witnessing the scene akin to a hellish battlefield, collapsed to the ground in utter despair. He never imagined that these seemingly docile laborers were actually merciless demons. You all. Wang Fugue pointed a trembling finger at Li Qing, his teeth chattering. You knew all along. You knew. The prince is wise and formidable. How could you clowns ever scheme against him? Li Qing, sheathing his knife, gazed at Wang Fugue. Originally, the prince intended to spare you, provided you delivered the goods and received your payment. Alas, you chose to court death. No, do not kill me. I was wrong. I truly was. Wang Fuguei desperately bowed his head, his forehead banging against the deck with a thud. I have money. I have plenty of money. I will give it all to you. Please, spare my life. Li Qing, expressionless, raised his flintlock, the muzzle pressed against Wang Fuguei's forehead. In your next life, remember to be more discerning. With a gunshot, blood and brains splattered. Wang Fuguei's corpulent body fell heavily to the deck, eyes wide open in death. Clear the deck and toss the body overboard to feed the fish. Li Qing exhaled the smoke from his gun and steered towards Baisha Bay, preparing to unload the goods. At the Haiyan station, atop the watchtower. What is happening? Why has the fleet stopped? Mr. Yun stood high above, peering through a telescope, his brow furrowed. From his vantage point, the fleet, which was initially heading towards the port, had abruptly halted several miles from the coastline and was now turning westward towards the desolate shore. This is not right. Mr. Yun's expression darkened as he lowered the telescope. There is a disturbance on the ship. Those merchants have lost control of the situation. Standing beside him, Zhao Yang looked equally bewildered. How could this be? There are dozens of guards loyal to Wang Fuguei on that ship, and didn't Zhu Yunxi send 200 laborers? Could they really turn the tide? Fools. Mr. Yun cursed. Since Zhu Yunxi dared to send people, he would never dispatch a bunch of useless fools. It seems that lad has been wary of our moves all along, seizing the ship directly on the sea. He slammed his fist against the railing. That Zhu Yunxi, so young yet ambitious, is quite ruthless. He intends to engage in a direct black market operation. What? What should we do? Zhao Yang panicked. If they escape, the prince will be furious. Escape? Where can they run? Mr. Yun's gaze hardened. Baisha Bay is nothing but a swamp. Large ships cannot dock. Only small boats can ferry the goods bit by bit. This is our chance to strike. He turned to Zhao Yang, barking commands. Send the order. No need to wait for them to enter the port. Immediately gather our troops and head to Baisha Bay. While they are still unsteady, let us wipe them out completely. Remember, leave not a single survivor. Just say it was the Qiongzhou pirates attacking merchant ships. We are merely eliminating bandits. Yes, yes, Zhao Yang hastily agreed, turning to mobilize the troops. However, in that split second, a glint of cunning flashed in Zhao Yang's eyes. Instead of heading directly to the training grounds, he summoned a trusted soldier, pulling out a pre-written note from his sleeve and stuffing it into a small bamboo tube. Quick, send this via carrier pigeon to the governor of Lijiao, Zhao Yang whispered. Inform him that the men of the king of Jingjiang intend to privately seize a large quantity of iron materials at Baisha Bay, with ulterior motives. Request the governor to make a swift decision. The soldier took his leave. Watching the pigeons soar into the sky, Zhao Yang felt a surge of delight. Mr. Yun, you wish to use me as a tool and make me bear the blame? Dream on. The governor has long had his eyes on this batch of supplies. I shall orchestrate a maneuver to let you and the Qiongzhou folk fight to the bitter end. Once the governor's troops arrive, I will seize you all in one fell swoop. Then, all the credit shall belong to me, Zhao Yang. Heh. This is what you call the mantis stalking the cicada, with the yellow bird lurking behind. Zhao Yang adjusted his official garb, adopting an anxious expression, and rushed towards the training grounds. Quick, assemble, assemble. Follow me to slay the bandits. Baisha Bay. The waves crashed against the rocks, creating a thunderous roar. The large ship anchored in deep water, with dozens of small boats shuttling between it and the beach. Heavy boxes of wrought iron and bundles of gleaming copper materials were being transported ashore. Li Qing stood atop a massive rock, the sea breeze whipping his clothes. He surveyed the desolate beach, his heart ablaze with fervor. With this batch of supplies, the prince's artillery battalion could truly take shape. Move faster, Li Qing urged loudly. Do not dawdle. Hide the supplies at the edge of the woods. The Haiyan station people will discover it soon. My lord. Wang Fuguei brought a considerable amount of money. A loyal guard approached, carrying a heavy box, grinning widely. There are 200 taels of gold and plenty of silver notes. Keep it. Li Qing did not even glance at it. The prince said we need the supplies, and we also need the money. This is what we call taking from the people, using for the people. At that moment, the sentinel on guard suddenly let out a sharp whistle. Li Qing's expression shifted, and he sharply turned to look towards the woods to the east. In the distance, dust billowed as banners fluttered, and a multitude of figures swiftly approached. They're coming. Li Qing drew his waist knife, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. All personnel stand ready. Prepare for battle. Standing on the rock, through his telescope, he observed the troops from Haiyan Station spreading out from the edge of the eastern woods. 500 soldiers armed with swords and shields and spears, under the command of County Magistrate Zhao Yang, were chaotically forming ranks. Is this the elite of Haiyan Station? In his eyes, this was not an army, but merely a throng of farmers wielding weapons. If placed among the border troops of Beiping, such a force would not even suffice to fill the gaps in a cavalry unit. My lord, we only have 100 guns, and the remaining 100 brothers are still moving the goods. The deputy approached, glancing at the approaching dark mass, his throat tightening. Should we retreat to the ship? Retreat? Li Qing glanced back at the towering piles of iron boxes behind him. These supplies were the lifeblood of the prince and the future of Qiongzhou. If we retreat, all this iron will fall into the hands of those ruffians. He decisively cocked the hammer of his flintlock. Send the order. All personnel. Establish a defensive line using the supply boxes. Tell the brothers that we are the prince's personal guards, the most elite troops of the Ming dynasty. If we allow this rabble to steal even a single sheet of iron today, we might as well not return to Qiongzhou and end our lives right here. Understood. The deputy was inspired by Li Qing's boldness, roaring in response, and turned to relay the orders. The 200 guards disguised as laborers swiftly sprang into action. They stacked the heavy iron boxes into a half-circle barricade, while 100 gunmen crouched behind the boxes, their dark muzzles peering out from the gaps, locking onto the approaching enemy. Chapter 11. Zhao Yang, you are too audacious. Across the distance of 500 paces, Zhao Yang rode upon a gaunt steed. Wielding a rusted saber, his gaze fixed upon the group of laborers entrenched on the beach, their faces contorted with defiance. Huh, they are indeed here, Zhao Yang exclaimed, pointing at the crates of supplies, his eyes gleaming with avarice. Brothers, do you see? Those boxes are filled with gleaming silver. If we eliminate these Qiongzhou folk, all of it will belong to us. Though greedy, he was not a fool. He discerned that the enemy numbered fewer than 200, most preoccupied with transporting goods. Only about 100 were truly combatants. 500 against 100. That was a crushing advantage. My lord, they seem to possess firearms, a hesitant officer indicated. Glancing at the opposing side, I believe they hold those short tubes. Firearms, my foot. Zhao Yang scoffed, spitting dismissively. What kind of fine weaponry could come from the impoverished region of Qiongzhou? At best, they have a few sticks of firewood. With our numbers, a single spit from each of us could drown them. He raised his saber and bellowed, charge. The first to leap forward shall receive 50 taels of silver. For every enemy slain, 10 taels await. Under heavy reward, brave men will surely emerge. The soldiers, previously hesitant, now blazed with fervor at the mention of silver. They roared, brandishing swords and guns, charging toward the beach. Kill. Grab the silver. The battle cries reverberated as the 500 surged forward with a fearsome momentum. 2 miles away, on a high slope, Mr. Yun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, surveying the battlefield. The sea breeze billowed his sleeves, bestowing upon him an air of a strategizing Confucian general. Sir, it seems victory is already determined, a smiling attendant remarked, standing behind him. Although the troops at Haiyan are disorganized, they are numerous. Those over 100 from Qiongzhou will likely falter against the first charge. Mr. Yin nodded slightly, exuding confidence. 100 against 500. This is a deadlock. Zhu Yunxi is still too inexperienced. Does he think sending a few guards can transport the supplies? He is utterly deluded. In Mr. Yun's eyes, the outcome of this battle was without question, though the Qiongzhou soldiers appeared formidable. Individual valor could not alter the tide of battle in the face of overwhelming numbers. Once engaged in close combat, it would be a one-sided massacre. Sir, when shall we act? The attendant inquired. No rush, Mr. Yun replied, narrowing his eyes as he focused on Zhao Yang's rotund figure, his gaze cold. Let Zhao Yang expend his efforts first. Once they are mutually exhausted, we shall emerge to tidy up the remnants. He had meticulously plotted this. When the battle concluded, the supplies would belong to King Jingjiang, while the blame would rest upon Zhao Yang and the Lizhou government. Moreover, the spies stationed in Lizhou City could now be activated. Mr. Yun turned to his attendant, commanding, immediately disseminate the news. Announce that the Qiongzhou king Zhu Yunxi colludes with pirates to assault Haiyan, plotting rebellion, murdering court officials, and plundering military supplies. I wish for this news to spread throughout Lingnan overnight. When the court is enraged, and the army marches forth. Even if Zhu Yunxi possesses 3 heads and 6 arms, he shall find no refuge. Yes, I shall attend to it at once. The attendant took his leave hurriedly. Mr. Yin turned back to observe the two forces on the verge of collision below, a smile increasingly curling at the corners of his mouth. In his eyes, this was not merely a slaughter. It was a meticulously orchestrated spectacle, and he was the director controlling the entire scene. Zhu Yunxi, do not blame me for my ruthlessness. Mr. Yun murmured to himself. If blame is to be assigned, let it be for your birth into a royal family, yet lacking the fortune to match. At that moment, on the battlefield below, the soldiers of Haiyan had closed to within 200 paces. Zhao Yang led the charge, his steed slow, yet his boisterous shouts rang clear. Charge! Forward! Do not let them escape. In stark contrast, on the beach, Li Qing and his subordinates remained crouched behind the crates, utterly still. The 100 dark muzzles of their guns, like the eyes of death, coldly watched the oblivious prey. 150 paces. 100 paces. 80 paces. Zhao Yang could even discern the expression of indifference on the face of the leading youth across from him. Huh, are you frightened? Not even daring to move. Zhao Yang laughed maniacally, raising his saber. Brothers, push harder. The silver is within our grasp. The 500 soldiers from Haiyan, spurred by the promise of reward, howled as they charged toward the barricade of wooden crates. 60 paces. 50 paces. Zhao Yang, on his horse, brandished his saber, able to see the indifferent expressions on the laborers' faces across the way. His heart soared with joy, envisioning the gleaming silver filling his pockets. Kill. Annihilate them all. Zhao Yang screamed, spittle flying. However, in that instant, Li Qing, standing upon the rocks, slowly raised his right hand and violently slashed downward with his saber. First row, fire. The 50 prepared guards with firearms simultaneously pulled their triggers. Bang, bang, bang. The deafening gunfire erupted, a series of explosive sounds that resonated through the air. Clouds of white smoke billowed before the line of defense, instantly obscuring vision. The foremost soldiers from Haiyan, caught unawares, felt their chests erupt in bursts of blood mist before they could even scream, their bodies violently propelled backward to crash onto the sand. Zhao Yang's cruel grin froze. He watched in horror as the leading officer's head burst like a watermelon, red and white splattering onto his face. What sorcery is this? Zhao Yang wiped the blood from his face, trembling, his eyes nearly bulging from their sockets. Before he could regain his composure, amidst the smoke, Li Qing's voice rang out once more. First row, retreat and reload. Second row, advance. Fire. Another round of simultaneous fire ensued. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets whistled, slicing through the air, their deadly shrieks piercing the crowd. This time, even more fell. Those clad in tattered war jackets were mere targets at this distance. Bullets easily tore through their flimsy armor, penetrating flesh and shredding internal organs. Screams of agony echoed, a cacophony reminiscent of a hellish inferno. My God, this is the wrath of the thunder god. Sorcery. This is sorcery. The once belligerent soldiers of Haiyan instantly collapsed. They had never encountered such a spectacle. Without even touching the enemy, a multitude of their own had fallen. The unseen, intangible fear of death shattered their psychological defenses completely. Do not panic. Zhao Yang, witnessing the chaos among his men, felt a surge of terror himself. Yet he knew that if they faltered, his own life would be forfeit. He recalled the military text discussing the weaknesses of firearms and shouted hoarsely, they must reload. Now is the time. Charge. Charge and slay them. Yet, despite his desperate cries, those soldiers, already paralyzed with fear, were unwilling to heed his orders. My lord, this battle cannot be fought. Run. It was unclear who led the charge, but over 300 soldiers, with a single shout, abandoned their weapons and turned to flee. Even as Zhao Yang struck down 2 fleeing soldiers, he could not halt the tide of retreat. Chapter 12. 2 miles away on the high slope, Mr. Yun's telescope fell to the ground with a crash, shattering into pieces. He stood frozen, his complexion as pale as a sheet, his lips trembling uncontrollably. How is this possible? Mr. Yin stared in disbelief at the distant battlefield shrouded in smoke, his eyes filled with terror. Firearms, they were indeed firearms, and ones that did not require a match. As the strategist for the king of Jingjiang, he was no stranger to the world. He had encountered the firearms of the Ming dynasty, which were notoriously slow to load, prone to misfires, and reliant on slow-burning fuses, rendering them nearly useless in inclement weather. Yet, the weaponry wielded by the Qiongzhou garrison before him was astonishingly rapid in fire rate, immensely powerful, and remarkably accurate, shattering his previous notions entirely. Despair washed over the attendant behind Mr. Yun, his teeth chattering in fear. Sir, Zhao Yang has been defeated. In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, 500 men fell. Qiongzhou harbored such lethal weapons. Mr. Yun forced himself to regain composure, though his trembling hands betrayed the terror within. He had initially dismissed Zhu Yunxi as merely a clever yet ineffective king, with Qiongzhou appearing as nothing more than a plump lamb awaiting slaughter. But now, it was evident that he was, in fact, a ferocious dragon disguised in sheep's clothing. We must investigate. We must ascertain the truth. Mr. Yun ground his teeth, a flicker of madness igniting in his eyes. How many of these weapons did they possess? 50? Or 100? If they were allowed to flourish, the prince's grand ambitions would be jeopardized, sir. We must leave at once. If we delay any longer, it will be too late. The attendant urgently tugged at his sleeve. No, I refuse to believe it. Mr. Yun flung the attendant aside, fixated on the battlefield. The production of such firearms was exceedingly challenging and costly. That miser Zhu Yunxi would never be able to equip his forces on such a scale. This must be all he had. He was merely bluffing. On the battlefield, as the troops of Haiyan crumbled, the fight had devolved into a one-sided pursuit. Li Qing refrained from ordering a chase, coldly observing the fleeing figures. Ceasefire. He sheathed his sword and strode to the front lines. The beach was littered with over 100 corpses, blood staining the sea crimson. Account for our gains. Moments later, his aide rushed to report, my lord. In this battle, our forces suffered no casualties. We eliminated 163 of the enemy. That wretched official, Zhao Yang, fled swiftly, escaping our grasp. We have triumphed. Ha! What pitiful officials. Reduced to mere paper against our firearms. The guards erupted in jubilant cheers, their faces alight with ecstasy. They caressed the warm barrels of their guns, filled with pride and honor. This was the divine instrument bestowed by His Highness, a true demonstration of overwhelming superiority. Silence. A fierce reprimand cut through their revelry. Li Qing's face darkened as he surveyed the overzealous soldiers, sternly admonishing, is it truly worthy of such joy to have slain a mere 100 worthless foes? The crowd fell silent, soldiers exchanging bewildered glances, unsure of how to respond. Li Qing seized a flintlock from one of the soldiers, pointing at the spent shell on the ground, and scolded passionately, do you know how much a single bullet costs? Do you understand the value of the copper used to forge this barrel? His Highness melted down the copper basins of the royal palace to create these guns. The copper locks from the homes of commoners were confiscated. What you fired just now was not lead, but silver, His Highness's sweat and blood. Li Qing pointed accusingly at several soldiers, his spittle flying. Look at what you just did. Some of you needed to fire a second shot to kill. Wasteful. Utterly prodigal. The soldiers bowed their heads in shame, their earlier pride dissipating in an instant. Remember this. Li Qing's tone softened but carried a fierce intensity. We in Qiongzhou are poor and cannot afford such extravagance. In future battles, aim carefully. 1 bullet for 1 life. That is the true measure of worth. He squinted at the fleeing enemy in the distance. If our ammunition runs low, we shall seize theirs. Take their guns, their iron, their gunpowder. Using the enemy's resources to forge our own bullets is true skill. Do you understand? Understood. The soldiers roared in unison, their eyes rekindled with a wolf-like gleam. Let us seize it. A seed of plunder took root in the hearts of these soldiers. Having concluded the battlefield affairs, Li Qing turned his gaze towards the woods to the west, where startled birds took flight. My lord, it appears there are people over there, his aide whispered. I am aware, Li Qing replied with a cold smile. Since our landing, there have been watchful eyes upon us. Surely, the main party is observing from afar. In the thicket, Mr. Yun lay hidden in the grass, beads of cold sweat dotting his forehead. Sir, we have been discovered. The attendant pointed fearfully towards the beach. They are looking this way. Do not panic. Mr. Yun feigned calm. At this distance, they cannot discern us. Besides, we have horses, should they approach. We shall simply ride away. Yet, he remained unconvinced, unable to believe that Qiongzhou possessed so many firearms. That earlier volley of 50 men, while terrifying, could very well be all they had. If he did not ascertain the truth, he could not return to report to the king of Jingjiang. Observe further, Mr. Yun gritted his teeth and ordered, send 2 scouts to ride closer. I must ascertain how many men they have with firearms and the construction of those weapons. Yes, sir. The 2 stealthy scouts mounted their horses and galloped out of the woods, taking advantage of their speed to ride back and forth 300 paces from the beach, attempting to provoke the Qiongzhou soldiers into firing, thereby gauging the range and quantity of their firearms. Fools, Li Qing scoffed at the reckless cavalrymen. Sharpshooters, step forward. 3 agile guards immediately knelt, raising their specially crafted long-barreled flintlocks. These firearms were 3 inches longer than standard models and had been meticulously crafted for exceptional precision. Do not shoot at men. Aim for the horses, Li Qing ordered coldly. His Highness has commanded to capture the leader alive. He will be of use. Understood. The 3 sharpshooters held their breath, their gun barrels tracking the galloping steeds. Bang! Bang! The sharp reports rang out. 300 paces away. The 2 galloping horses suddenly emitted a mournful cry as their front legs buckled, the immense inertia causing them to crash to the ground. The 2 scouts were flung from their mounts like rag dolls, crashing heavily to the earth, unable to rise for some time. What? Mr. Yun in the thicket gasped, his soul nearly fleeing his body, his folding fan slipping from his grasp. 300 paces. They could accurately strike the legs of a running horse? This was no mere firearm. It was akin to the ledger of life and death wielded by the King of Hell. Chapter 13. A bunch of useless fools run. Quickly. Mr. Yun could no longer afford to contemplate reconnaissance. At this moment, all he desired was to distance himself from these monstrous beings. He scrambled onto his horse, frantically urging it forward, desperate to flee this nightmarish place. However, it was too late. Since you have come, do not think to leave. Li Qing observed the panicked figure fleeing through the woods and waved his hand. 20 guards, who had long been lying in ambush in the adjacent woods, sprang forth, cutting off Mr. Yun's escape route. Bang! Bang! More gunfire rang out, though this time the muzzles were aimed low. Mr. Yun felt a chill in his thigh, followed by a piercing pain. Ah! He screamed, tumbling from his horse and rolling on the ground, clutching his bloodied leg. Several guards surged forward, pinning him and his attendant to the ground, binding them tightly. Moments later, Mr. Yun was thrown in front of Li Qing, disheveled and caked in dirt. He bore no resemblance to the once cunning strategist. He raised his head, gazing into the dark muzzles surrounding him and the towering stacks of supplies, his spirit utterly shattered. Madmen, you are all madmen, Mr. Yun muttered, his gaze vacant. So many firearms, so many. The king of Jingjiang has lost without a doubt. Li Qing crouched down, tapping Mr. Yun's face with the hilt of his sword, a smile playing on his lips. The king of Jingjiang? He leaned closer to Mr. Yun's ear and whispered softly. Who told you we are of the Wu King's faction? Mr. Yun was momentarily stunned, his pupils constricting sharply. You are not people of Zhu Yunxi? He stammered. With a cold sneer, Li Qing pulled out a waist token from his bosom, flashing it before Mr. Yun's eyes. The token bore the prominent character Jing. Let me be frank with you, Li Qing said mysteriously. We are people of the young master. The prince believes your reach has extended too far in recent years. It would be more reassuring to have someone else handle certain matters. What? Mr. Yun felt as if struck by lightning, his mind blank. The young master? Could it be that the heir of the king of Jingjiang sought to seize power? Or perhaps the prince believed him too accomplished, wanting to eliminate him? No wonder Zhao Yang fled so swiftly. No wonder that treacherous merchant Wang Fugui met such an untimely demise. It was all a trap. An internal purge within the Jingjiang royal household. No, I am the prince's confidant. I am his strategist. Mr. Yin screamed in desperation. I demand to see the prince. Zhao Yang must have framed me. I want to see the prince. Li Qing, observing Mr. Yun's bewildered expression, couldn't help but smile inwardly, though his face remained cold. Wishing to meet the prince? Perhaps in your next life, he replied dismissively. Take him away. Muzzle him. Do not let him make a racket. Thus, this self-proclaimed master strategist of the Jingjiang royal court, engulfed in self-doubt, became a prisoner in Qiongzhou. 2 hours later, as the sun dipped low, painting the sea a crimson hue, the final crate of copper materials was hoisted onto the grand ship. After 5 trips, the Qiongzhou garrison, akin to industrious ants, had successfully transported this invaluable strategic resource. Throughout the operation, they neither set foot on the docks of Heian nor left any incriminating evidence for the Lizhou government. As the ship weighed anchor, slowly departing from Baisha Bay, Li Qing stood at the stern, gazing at the receding coastline and the battlefield still shrouded in smoke. Exhaling a long breath. Your Highness, the mission is accomplished. He touched the list he had recovered from Mr. Yun, which detailed the covert placements and troop deployments of the Jingjiang king throughout Lingnan. This was the true bounty of the expedition. The sea breeze rustled, and Li Qing's gaze grew ever more resolute. With this supply and the list in hand, the rise of Qiongzhou was now inevitable. Return. The smoke of Heian had yet to dissipate when a carrier pigeon flapped its wings, bearing the terror and despair of the remnants of the Jingjiang king's forces, flying swiftly towards Guilin in Guangxi. Meanwhile, Zhao Yang, the county magistrate of Heian, was already so frightened that his soul fled. Having witnessed the terrifying might of the Qiongzhou garrison, he dared not remain in Lizhou. He hurriedly packed his valuables, donned plain clothes, and fled to the city of Lizhou, seeking refuge behind its stout walls. In the south, the tides of conflict had turned dramatically following the resounding victory of Qiongzhou. Zhu Yunxi not only seized this strategic supply without bloodshed but also captured Mr. Yun, the strategist of the Jingjiang king, achieving overwhelming success in this contest. However, as the winds of change swept through the south, the skies of the north were ablaze with the fires of war. South of Beiping, at the walls of Qiongzhou, the deafening battle cries echoed, and a large flag adorned with the character Yin flapped vigorously in the morning light. Zhu Di, clad in heavy black armor, rode at the forefront, his Yin army behind him, a force as thunderous as a tempest. In just a few days since the uprising began, the Yin army advanced with unstoppable momentum. Seeing the tide had turned, the defending general of Tongzhou, Fang Sheng, surrendered the city. Soon after, Jizhou fell, and its commander, Ma Xian, perished on the battlefield. The garrison at Juyong Pass fled in panic. The entire region surrounding Beiping was now under the control of the Yin prince. In Nanjing, at the Fengtian Hall, smack, Zhu Yunwen slammed the battle report onto the imperial table, his youthful face flushed with rage, his chest heaving violently. Incompetence! All of you are useless, Zhu Yunwen roared, pointing at the civil and military officials in the court. In less than 10 days, Tongzhou has fallen, Jizhou has fallen, Juyong Pass has fallen. I maintain this million-strong army. Are they mere clay figures? They cannot even withstand a single rebel. In the Grand Hall, the officials bowed their heads, none daring to provoke his wrath. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. It was once again Huang Ziqing, the Minister of Rights, who retained his composed demeanor as he stepped forward. Though the Yin rebels currently enjoy an advantage, it is merely due to their surprise attack. Our imperial army has yet to assemble, allowing them to exploit this opening. In my humble opinion, the urgent matter at hand is to dispatch troops and encircle them from all sides. Huang Ziqing approached the map, pointing to the position of Huailai. The commander there, Song Zhong, is a seasoned veteran, leading elite troops. Your Majesty could order him to strike at the Yin rebels' flank. Simultaneously, he traced his finger towards Xuanfu and Datong, indicating that Xuanfu had the Gu Wang and Datong had the Dai Wang. Your Majesty could summon these feudal lords back to the capital to assist in quelling the rebellion, especially the Gu Wang, Zhu Zua, who commands a formidable force and is closest to Beiping. If he can strike the Yin rebels from behind, the siege of Beiping will be lifted. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yunwen's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope. The Gu Wang, my uncle? Will he heed my call? Your Majesty is the sovereign, and he is but a subject. Huang Ziqing replied earnestly. When the sovereign commands the subject to die, the subject must obey. Furthermore, Your Majesty has already issued the decree of suppress the Yin and do not diminish the fiefs. If the Gu Wang wishes to avoid the fate of the Xiang Wang, he will surely understand what choice he must make. Very well, Zhu Yunwen gritted his teeth. Convey my decree for Song Zhong to mobilize troops to Huailai. Order the Gu Wang Zhu Zua to return to the capital immediately to assist. However, reality dealt Zhu Yunwen a resounding slap to the face. Merely 3 days later, news of the fall of Huailai reached him. The veteran Song Zhong was captured in defeat, and the entire Huailai garrison was annihilated. The officials of the court were shocked, and Zhu Yunwen turned pale with fear. Chapter 14. I consider you a brother, yet you have killed my messenger at the Gu Wang's residence in Xuanfu, within the study. Gu Wang Zhu was stared at the 2 letters placed upon his desk, his hands trembling violently. The letter on the left was a personal correspondence from the Yin Prince Zhu Di, written with earnest words, recounting the court's malicious intentions to diminish the fiefs, inviting him to raise a banner of justice to purge the court and protect the state. The letter on the right was the imperial decree from the Jianwen Emperor, sternly commanding him to return to the capital immediately, to suppress the rebels, or be deemed a traitor. Your Highness, what should we do? An anxious advisor beside him questioned. The Yin Prince's power is formidable. If we assist the court, We may not withstand the Yin army's might, but if we support the Yin prince, that would be treason, a crime punishable by the extermination of 9 generations. Zhu was slumped into his chair, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. He possessed neither the exceptional talent of Zhu Di nor the resolute decisiveness of the Xiongwan. He was merely a mediocre ruler wishing to safeguard his modest domain. Fourth brother is too fierce. Zhu was swallowed hard, panic lacing his voice. Tongzhou, Jizhou, Jiong Pass. He seized them all at will. Songzhong, such a formidable general, was also captured. My Xuanfu, though it has some troops, is no match for the Yin army. Then, should we side with the Yin prince? The advisor tentatively proposed. Absolutely not. Zhu sprang to his feet, fear evident in his eyes. Rebellion is an act against heaven. The court commands the realm, with 1 million soldiers at their disposal. Fourth brother may be winning now, but when the court regains its strength, with hundreds of thousands of troops bearing down, Beiping would become a graveyard. If I follow him, I will inevitably face a fate worse than death. The more he thought, the more frightened he became, convinced that Zhu Di was destined for defeat. We cannot help either side. Zhu paced back and forth in the room, agitated. If we do not assist either, when the court emerges victorious, they will surely hold me, the bystander, accountable. At that point, the punishment for diminished fiefs would be the least of my worries. I might lose my life. Suddenly, he glanced at the imperial decree. A wild yet cowardly thought surfacing in his mind. Return to the capital. I must return to the capital. Zhu seized the decree, gripping it tightly. If I voluntarily return, surrender my military authority, and pledge my loyalty to the emperor, he will surely spare my life to calm the public, perhaps even reward me. But the Yin prince's messenger is still waiting outside, the advisor reminded him. Zhu was expression hardened. Since I have decided to be a turtle hiding in its shell, I must do so thoroughly and offer a token of loyalty. Kill him. Zhu Yin gritted his teeth and shouted fiercely. Kill the messenger of the Yin king. Decapitate him and place his head in a box. I shall bring it to Nanjing as an apology to the emperor. The aides were taken aback. Quickly, that very night, the gates of Xuanfu opened wide. The Duke of Gu, Zhu Yin, fled the city with 3,000 guards, racing southward towards Nanjing. In Beiping, at the Yin king's residence, a thunderous blow echoed as Zhu Di slammed his fist onto the table, shattering the teacups. Old 19, how foolish you are. Zhu Di gazed at the intelligence report delivered by the scouts, his eyes brimming with tears of rage and sorrow. I regarded you as a brother, wished to aid you. Yet you have slain my messenger and run to Nanjing to serve that wretched boy. Father, interjected Zhu Gaosu, clad in heavy armor and radiating a murderous aura. With the Duke of Gu's flight, Xuanfu is now unguarded. We can seize this opportunity to take the city and expand our territory. It is not that simple. Zhu Di shook his head, suppressing his fury to regain his composure. Though the Duke has escaped, Xuanfu remains under the control of the court. Furthermore, the Duke of Shu has sent a plaque proclaiming loyalty and filial piety as a barrier, indicating no support from their side. All the vassal kings are watching, and our situation remains precarious. Despite his recent victories, Zhu Di was acutely aware that the Yin army numbered fewer than 50,000 and occupied a limited territory. If the imperial forces encircled them, it would spell doom. He must seize more strategic locations before the imperial army arrived, particularly Kaiping. Kaiping Guard, situated north of Beiping, was the former capital of the Yuan dynasty, holding immense strategic significance. Capturing Kaiping would not only alleviate his concerns, but also secure a vast number of warhorses and soldiers. Old 3, Zhu Di turned to Zhu Gaoquo, who had been silent until now. Father, Zhu Gaoquo stepped forward, his eyes glinting with cunning. I have already contacted Wang Yuan, the deputy commander of Kaiping Guard. Oh, Zhu Di's eyes lit up. What did he say? Zhu Gaoquo lowered his voice, chuckling. Wang Yuan is an old subordinate of yours and has long harbored discontent towards the court's attempts to diminish the vassal states. He responded that once the army arrives, he is willing to act as an insider. To demonstrate his sincerity, he will send his wife and children out of the city as hostages tomorrow at midnight. Excellent. Zhu Di sprang to his feet, his eyes gleaming with intensity. Heaven assists me. Father, Wang Yuan also mentioned that although the garrison commander is loyal to the court, most lack strategy. If we stage a show, pretending the army is advancing, he can create chaos within the city, and Kaiping may fall without a fight. Moreover, Zhu Di approached the map, tracing his finger around Longmen and Qiongzhou. Once we take Kaiping, we can use it as bait. The garrisons at Longmen and Qiongzhou will surely mobilize to reclaim it upon learning of Kaiping's fall. At that moment, we can set an ambush along their route. Zhu Di clenched his fist, as if grasping these cities in his palm. We shall surround and eliminate them all. In this battle, I will make that wretched boy in Nanjing understand the art of war. In the 31st year of Hongwu, in August, the Yin King Zhu Di, with thunderous momentum, approached Kaiping. Deputy Commander Wang Yuan turned traitor and opened the city gates. The Yin army seized Kaiping without shedding blood, capturing 5,000 warhorses and countless supplies. Following the plan, Zhu Di lured the garrisons of Longmen and Qiongzhou to their aid, ambushing them en route and annihilating them entirely. North of Beiping fell entirely under the control of the Yin King. This ferocious tiger of the north finally revealed its sharpest fangs, preparing to unleash a resounding roar across the vast southern lands. In the dungeons of the Wang residence in Qiongzhou, the dim and damp cell housed Mr. Yun, curled up in a corner atop a pile of straw. Once adorned in scholarly robes that symbolized wisdom and dignity, they were now tattered and filthy. His hair was a disheveled mess, lips cracked and peeling, and his eyes sunken, devoid of any trace of the former strategist of the king of Jingjiang. For 3 whole days, no one had attended to him, nor offered him a morsel of food, not even a drop of water. Each day at noon, the chilling sounds of screams echoed from outside the cell, the cries of his subordinates being dragged out for execution. Each scream shattered his spirit. With a creak, the heavy iron door swung open, a blinding light flooding the cell. Mr. Yun instinctively shielded his eyes, his body trembling uncontrollably. Are they here to kill me? Li Qing, clad in armor and wielding a battle knife, strode into the cell. He carried a food box, and the faint aroma of cooked dishes wafted through the air, making Mr. Yun's stomach churn with hunger. Mr. Yun, how have you been? Li Qing placed the food box on the dusty table and opened it. Inside were a bowl of white rice, a plate of braised pork, and a jug of clear wine. What would have been mere coarse fare in ordinary times now appeared to Mr. Yun as a banquet of celestial delicacies. His throat convulsed violently. He longed to pounce on the food, but held on to the last shred of dignity, clenching the straw beneath him. That place like Guilin. How can it be compared to Qiongzhou? Mr. Yun's voice was hoarse. If Zhu Yunxi wishes to kill me, he could have done so at Baisha Bay. Why humiliate me? If His Highness wanted you dead, you would have been a corpse long ago at Baisha Bay, Li Qing scoffed, pouring himself a cup of wine and downing it in one gulp. His Highness is merciful and, recognizing you as a scholar, wishes to offer you a chance. If you cooperate, this meal shall serve as your welcome banquet. If not, Li Qing's eyes glinted coldly. Your subordinates have been waiting for you on the road to the netherworld for 3 days now. Mr. Yun's body stiffened. He remembered those screams. The terrifying gunfire at Baisha Bay. Fear gripped him. The so-called loyalty crumbled in the face of death and hunger. I will cooperate, Mr. Yun lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. That's the spirit. Li Qing tossed the chopsticks onto the table. Eat. Once you are full, His Highness wishes to see you. Half an hour later, a specially designed prison cart slowly emerged from the Wang residence's dungeon, heading towards Qiongzhou's most bustling thoroughfare, Zhuke Street. Mr. Yun, locked inside the cart, clutched the wooden bars, squinting to survey his surroundings. In his mind, Qiongzhou had always been a wild and untamed place. The houses should be thatched huts, the roads muddy, and the people ragged and emaciated. However, when the cart entered the street, he was utterly astounded. This is Qiongzhou? Mr. Yun's eyes widened. Beneath him lay an incredibly broad and smooth gray road. The surface was as hard as stone, yet as flat as a mirror. The cart rolled over it without a hint of jolt. What kind of road is this? Has it been paved with solid stone? Mr. Yun's heart surged with astonishment. On either side of the road stood neatly arranged shops and buildings. These structures were not the traditional wooden ones, but were instead constructed of sturdy gray bricks. What stunned him further were the sparkling glass windows adorning many of the shops. Under the sunlight, the entire street shimmered and sparkled, resembling a celestial palace. The streets bustled with people dressed in clean, tidy cotton garments, their complexions rosy and their spirits high. The sounds of vendors hawking their wares, children laughing, and the jingling of horse-drawn carriages intertwined, forming a symphony of prosperity. This was no place of exile. It was clearly 10 times more prosperous than Guilin, even surpassing certain streets in Nanjing. No, it cannot be. This must be an illusion, Mr. Yun murmured, unable to believe his eyes. Just then, the townsfolk noticed him. Look, that is the spy sent by the king of Jingjiang. It is this pack of scoundrels trying to rob our prince of his iron. They wish to cut off our livelihoods. Someone shouted, and the crowd erupted into a frenzy. Kill him, dog thief, daring to be wild in Qiongzhou. Rotten vegetable leaves, foul eggs, and even stones rained down upon the prison cart like a tempest. A rotten tomato struck Mr. Yun's face with precision, splattering juice everywhere. Almost immediately, a stone collided with his forehead, causing blood to flow freely. Stop! I am a scholar. I am a man of distinction, Mr. Yun exclaimed, desperately shielding his head with his hands and crying out in anguish. You ruffians! You are utterly unreasonable. You disgrace the scholarly spirit. However, the only response he received was a barrage of more intense projectiles and insults. Li Qing, mounted on his horse, walked alongside the prisoner cart, observing the chaos with a cold detachment, showing no inclination to intervene. Do you see? Li Qing remarked casually. This is the will of the people. In Qiongzhou, the prince is akin to heaven. Whoever dares to disturb even a blade of grass or a tree in Qiongzhou becomes the mortal enemy of its 850,000 citizens. Mr. Yun wiped the grime from his face and, glancing at the angry yet confident populace surrounding him, felt the last remnants of his hope shatter completely. He finally understood that King Jingjiang's defeat was not without reason. With such a prosperous city, a populace so loyal, and terrifying weaponry at his disposal, Zhu Yunxi was far from a useless king. He was, in truth, a dragon lurking in the depths. What? Lost your tongue? Li Qing taunted, observing the dazed Mr. Yun. Weren't you just full of bravado? Didn't you call us uncivilized savages? Mr. Yun lifted his gaze, taking in the miraculous city before him, his eyes reflecting a tumult of emotions. Yet, the ingrained arrogance of a scholar prevented him from fully conceding before this martial figure. He retorted, attempting to retain a semblance of dignity. This is nothing significant, merely a display of clever tricks. My Guilin Prefecture, renowned for its picturesque landscapes and thriving literary culture, is incomparable to this place saturated with the stench of copper. He paused, seemingly to regain some measure of pride, and added, moreover, this is merely the scenery surrounding the royal residence. Beyond this street, I am sure there are still countless starving souls and overgrown weeds, right? Zhu Yunxi is merely puffing up his facade, investing all his resources to embellish this one street. Upon hearing this, Li Qing regarded him with the incredulity one reserves for a fool, suddenly pulling on the reins, bringing the prisoner cart to a halt. Li Qing turned to point at the long, straight road extending to the horizon, then gestured towards the port in the distance, replete with towering masts and billowing smoke from workshops. Mr. Yun, you are mistaken, he spoke in a calm, yet piercing tone. This is merely the outer city of Qiongzhou. As for your notion of Guilin Prefecture, he leaned closer, fixing his gaze on Mr. Yun's dirt-ridden face, enunciating each word. That rural place hardly merits comparison with Qiongzhou. Soon, the cart came to a gentle stop, and as Mr. Yun felt a jolt, the humiliation of being paraded through the streets lingered, soon swept away by a fresh wave of astonishment. He raised his head, squinting through his swollen eyes at the magnificent structure ahead. According to the laws of the Ming dynasty, a prince must build a royal residence upon establishing a fief. The royal residence mimics the grandeur of a palace, adorned with red walls, yellow tiles, and intricate carvings reflecting opulence. Yet, the building before him was entirely gray and white, with rigid, straight lines, devoid of flying eaves or glazed tile roofs, yet emanating an overwhelming sense of authority and oppression. Particularly striking were the statues flanking the grand entrance. Instead of traditional stone lions, there stood two colossal metal beasts, glinting coldly in the sunlight. Mr. Yun's gaze shifted upward to a large black plaque inscribed with 3 gilded characters, Qiongzhou County Office. A county office? Mr. Yun was taken aback, his mouth agape, inadvertently aggravating the wound at the corner of his lips, causing him to gasp in pain. He had presumed that Zhu Yunxi, the so-called useless king, would either reside in a shabby hut or have defied regulations in constructing a royal palace. He never fathomed that Zhu Yunxi would actually dwell within a county office. What was even harder for him to comprehend was that this structure was anything but a mere county office. Its scale and grandeur surpassed that of the royal residence in Guilin, especially considering the massive steel door, towering 3 zhang high, which dwarfed the main entrance of the Jingjiang Wangfu by a significant margin. This is Zhu Yunxing's residence? Mr. Yun muttered in disbelief, his eyes wide with incredulity. How could a county office be constructed more magnificently than a royal palace? How much wealth did Qiongzhou possess? What were Zhu Yunxing's intentions? Step down, General Yun. Li Qing dismounted, coldly opening the cart door. Stop staring. It's no longer yours to behold. Mr. Yun stumbled down from the cart, his legs still trembling. He adjusted his tattered attire, inhaling deeply in an attempt to reclaim some dignity as a strategist. Such extravagant excess is the path to ruin, he proclaimed defiantly. What purpose does this grand edifice serve? Without soldiers to guard it, it is merely a garment tailored for another. Li Qing regarded him with the bemusement reserved for the foolish, uninterested in rebuttal, and simply shoved him forward. Enough prattle. The prince awaits you inside. Upon entering the county office, Mr. Yun was again overwhelmed. There were no intimidating officials lined up, nor the menacing sounds of staff striking against the ground. Instead, the walls were adorned with large floor-to-ceiling windows, real glass, pure and transparent, allowing sunlight to flood the interior unreservedly. In the center of the grand hall stood no traditional official's desk or prominently displayed plaques. Instead, there was a vast rectangular conference table, at the head of which sat a young man, clad in loose white attire. He was munching on an unknown fruit with a casual air. Zhu Yunxi. Mr. Yun had seen the likeness of the Prince of Wu in paintings, but seeing him in the flesh left him momentarily dumbfounded. There was none of the imposing authority typically associated with a ruler, no regal bearing of a royal descendant, not even an ounce of pretentiousness. He sat there casually, like a gluttonous neighbor's son, entirely unrecognizable as the man who had commanded the massacre of 500 officials at Haiyan and dared to confront King Jingjiang. Your Highness, I have brought him. Li Qing stepped forward, cupping his fists in salute. Ah, you've arrived? Zhu Yunxi swallowed the fruit pulp, casually tossing the pit into a nearby waste bin. He then pulled out a handkerchief to wipe his hands, looking up with a smile at Mr. Yun. You must be Mr. Yun? How was the scenery during your parade? A surge of indignation rushed to Mr. Yun's head. This was an affront, a blatant humiliation. He inhaled deeply, straightened his back, and assumed a defiant posture, declaring in a stern voice, Your Highness, we are somewhat acquainted. Although we have not met, we have long had a spiritual connection. A spiritual connection? Zhu Yunxi raised an eyebrow. Are you referring to your men choking me while I sent people to seize your goods? Is that what you call a spiritual connection? To the victor belong the spoils. Mr. Yun sneered, his gaze fixed on Zhu Yunxi with intensity. But there is one matter, Your Highness, that I fear you have not fully considered. The unauthorized manufacture of firearms is a capital offense according to the laws of the Ming. Not only have you manufactured them, but you have also used them to slay officials appointed by the court and slaughtered the soldiers of the garrison. If these facts were to reach Nanjing— He paused, his tone laced with a hint of menace. Do you think the Emperor Jianwen would spare you? Li Qing instinctively placed his hand on the hilt of his sword, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. Yet, Zhu Yunxi remained unfazed. Mr. Yun, do you believe I fear death? Zhu Yunxi rose, circling the conference table until he stood before Mr. Yun. The laws of the Ming? Those are merely rules set for the weak. When I possess sufficient firearms, my word will be the law. Mr. Yun felt a mixture of awe and disdain. Such arrogance was beyond comprehension. Yet, he could not deny the unparalleled confidence radiating from this young man. Enough of this idle chatter. Zhu Yunxi waved his hand dismissively, turning back to his seat. I know you are a clever man, and clever men ought to engage in games befitting their intellect. Game? Mr. Yun was taken aback. Yes, a game, Zhu Yunxi replied as he resumed his seat, his fingers intertwined upon the table. Let us engage in a game of questions and answers. The rules are quite simple. I shall pose a question to you, and you must answer truthfully. Then, you shall inquire of me, and I too will respond honestly. Should anyone lie or fail to answer— Zhu Yunxi pointed toward the door. Do you see those 2 bronze lions? I shall have whoever lies stuffed and placed in their mouths. A chill ran through Mr. Yun's heart. This was no mere game. It was a high-stakes gamble, a probing of each other's depths. Yet he found himself with no room to refuse. Man is but a tool, and he a mere prey. Furthermore, he was eager to uncover Zhu Yunxi's secrets, to understand the audacity of this seemingly feudal prince. Mr. Yun gritted his teeth. Very well. Since your highness is so inclined, I shall oblige. However, I have one request. Let me pose the first question. He sought to seize the initiative. If he could unearth Zhu Yunxi's core secrets, even if he were to perish here today, he would find a way to relay the information, thus giving King Jingjiang a chance to turn the tide. Be my guest. Zhu Yunxi gestured nonchalantly, his expression indifferent. You are the guest. You may go first. Li Qing stood nearby, his palms slightly sweating. He understood that this clash, devoid of gunpowder, was far more perilous than the hail of bullets at Baisha Bay. Mr. Yun slowly began. May I inquire, Your Highness, how many elite firearms troops currently reside within Qiongzhou Prefecture, akin to those at Baisha Bay? This was the most crucial question, the one that King Jingjiang feared above all. If Zhu Yunxi commanded only a few hundred men, then King Jingjiang still had hope. But if he commanded thousands, even tens of thousands, the entire Lingnan, indeed all of Ming, would face a cataclysm. Zhu Yunxi gazed into Mr. Yun's eyes, filled with curiosity and tension, a smile deepening at the corners of his mouth. Mr. Yun fixated on Zhu Yunxi, his palms slick with cold sweat. He was wagering that Zhu Yunxi would not dare to speak the truth, or that he would bluff. Either way, he hoped to glean hints from the prince's subtle expressions. Leaning back in his chair, Zhu Yunxi appeared relaxed, as if discussing trivial matters. How many men, you ask? He absent-mindedly scratched his chin, as if recalling, perhaps. Around 100,000? Maybe even 200,000? The expansion has been so rapid lately that I haven't counted closely. There are troops everywhere. Uffed. Li Qing nearly burst into laughter, hastily covering his mouth with a cough. Mr. Yun's face turned a ghastly shade of green. 100,000? 200,000? Did he think creating firearms was akin to molding clay? The entirety of the divine machine camp in Ming combined did not number so many. This was clearly mockery. Mr. Yun trembled with rage, pointing at Zhu Yunxi. Your Highness, a gentleman does not jest. You promised there would be no falsehoods, yet you speak so carelessly. How can we continue this game? I have not lied. Zhu Yunxi feigned innocence, spreading his hands. My militia is indeed an army. With a mere command, the 850,000 citizens of Qiongzhou could rise as soldiers. As for firearms, with time, equipping each person is not a challenge. This was a blatant misrepresentation. Yet to Mr. Yun, it was nothing less than sheer dishonesty. However, he was powerless to retaliate, for Zhu Yunxi's words concealed a harrowing truth, the hearts of the people. Now, it is my turn to question you, Zhu Yunxi stated, his smile fading, his inquiry sharp. How many private soldiers does King Jingjiang, Zhuzani, truly possess? Now it was Mr. Yun who felt the tension. He swallowed hard, his mind racing. To speak the truth was to invite death. To lie, if discovered. 80,000. He barked, his tone fierce. My lord has been amassing troops for years, commanding a formidable force of 80,000. Thousands of capable generals. If your highness possesses wisdom, it would be prudent to release me forthwith. Otherwise, an army shall descend upon you, and Qiongzhou will be reduced to dust. He was betting that Zhu Yunxi would be intimidated by this figure. However, Li Qing scoffed, derision etched on his face as he looked at Mr. Yun. 80,000. Why not claim 800,000? The terrain in Guangxi is mountainous. How could one sustain 80,000 soldiers? Just the cost of provisions would bankrupt Zhuzani. Furthermore, if he truly commanded such a force, he would have already stormed Nanjing and claimed the throne, rather than cowering in Guilin like a turtle. Mr. Yun's complexion fluctuated between green and pale, his neck stiffening. In warfare, one must be cunning. How could you possibly discern the truth of my claims? Enough, Zhu Yunxi interrupted, dismissing the fruitless debate. Let us not treat each other as fools. Your obfuscation is noted, and I have no desire to expose you. Since you refuse to speak plainly, let us forego this game and proceed directly to the matter at hand. Mr. Yin felt a mix of relief and apprehension. What does your highness wish to inquire? What I wish to ask has already been posed. But you, Zhu Yunxi remarked with a knowing smile. Do you not wish to inquire about my intentions behind the production of so many firearms? Mr. Yun was momentarily taken aback before responding. What does your highness intend? Very simple. Zhu Yunxi stood, walking to the large window, turning his back to Mr. Yun as he gazed at the bustling street below. To survive. To survive? Mr. Yun was astonished. The knife of disbandment is poised at your throat. Zhu Yunxi's voice turned somber. Prince Xiang was forced to self-immolate. The Qi and Dai princes were deposed. Who will be next? Perhaps it is the Yin prince, or perhaps it is I. I do not wish to die, nor do I wish to be a pig. Since the court offers no path to survival, I must forge my own. Listening to these words, Mr. Yun felt an inexplicable resonance swell within him. Was King Jingjiang not in a similar plight? Your Highness. Mr. Yun's tone shifted to one of fervor. Since your Highness seeks self-preservation, then you and my lord are indeed kindred spirits. Oh, Zhu Yunxi raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean by kindred spirits? My lord has also suffered greatly from disbandment. Thus, he has been secretly amassing strength. Mr. Yun stepped forward, excitement gleaming in his eyes. Your Highness, since we share a common foe, why not join forces? If your Highness is willing to collaborate with King Jingjiang, the realm could be ours for the taking. And how do you propose we cooperate? Zhu Yunxi asked, maintaining an air of composure. Through trade. Mr. Yun extended his hand, grasping at the air. Your Highness shall cede Qiongzhou to serve as a military stronghold for my lord. Furthermore, all the craftsmen who produce firearms shall be handed over to him. In exchange, Mr. Yun declared grandly, once my lord's grand design is achieved, I am willing to grant your Highness the entirety of Guangdong, perhaps even Fujian. By then, your Highness will still be a prince with lands to govern, even more glorious than now. At this juncture, Mr. Yun spoke with confidence. What you may not know, Your Highness, is that while my lord commands numerous troops, he lacks the means to launch a decisive assault. Should he acquire your craftsmen, combined with his forces, conquering Guangdong would be as easy as reaching into a pocket. Together, we could stand against the court. This was his trump card, the true reason King Jingjiang coveted Qiongzhou, territory, technology, and craftsmen. Zhu Yunxi's expression remained unchanged as he listened, merely gazing at Mr. Yun as one might regard a simpleton. Have you finished? He inquired blandly. I have finished, Mr. Yun stammered, feeling a shiver run down his spine under the prince's scrutiny. Li Qing. Yes. Take him away and feed him to the dogs. Zhu Yunxi turned back to his chair, resuming his earlier demeanor as he picked up a document from the table, as if he had merely ordered the slaughter of a chicken. What? Mr. Yun was utterly dumbfounded. Had they not been conversing amiably just moments ago? Why this sudden decree of death? Your Highness, you cannot do this. As two guards rushed forward to seize him, Mr. Yun was struck with terror, struggling desperately against his captors. In times of war, envoys should not be harmed. I come with sincerity. My lord is none other than the Prince of Jingjiang. If you kill me, you will have irrevocably offended the prince. You will come to regret this. Sincerity? Zhu Yunxi did not lift his head, his voice icy. To barter my life for what belongs to me, is that sincerity? You wish for my craftsmen? Dream on. He smirked contemptuously at the mention of the Prince of Jingjiang. Let him come. I have been longing for a place to test my newly crafted cannons. No, you cannot kill me. I am of great use. I know secrets about the prince. I know. Mr. Yun's desperate cries faded into the distance, ultimately disappearing beyond the door. The hall fell silent once more. Li Qing wiped the sweat from his brow, perplexed. Your Highness, this man may be stubborn, but he surely possesses useful information. Why not employ torture to extract it? What if the Prince of Jingjiang indeed commands an army of 800,000? 800,000? Zhu Yunxi set down the documents, a derisive laugh escaping his lips. If he truly had that many troops, he would not have proposed such a foolish bargain. What do you mean, Your Highness? Consider this. If he had that many soldiers, he would simply march in and seize what he desires, rather than waste time with me, using Guangdong as bait. Zhu Yunxi rose and approached the map, his finger pressing heavily against the location of Guilin. This only indicates one thing. The Prince of Jingjiang is weak. So weak that he dares not confront the court directly, nor even the current Qiongzhou. His so-called 800,000 is nothing but hot air. A glimmer of intelligence shone in Zhu Yunxi's eyes. Based on their recent conversation, he had discerned the essence of his adversary. The Prince of Jingjiang harbored grand ambitions, but possessed limited strength. His hidden forces, at most, numbered between 50 to 80,000. Moreover, Zhu Yunxi's finger moved towards Qiongzhou. The reason he coveted Qiongzhou so much was that Guilin was too close to the court's watchful eyes. He could not conceal his troops there. He required an isolated island to train and gather his forces. He was akin to a toothless tiger, seeking to fatten himself in another's lair. Alas, Zhu Yunxi clenched his fist tightly. He had encountered the wrong opponent. He was not prey, he was the hunter. Li Qing stared in astonishment. Then his expression shifted to one of realization, filled with admiration. Your Highness, how insightful. You have uncovered the enemy's secrets with just a few words. So what shall we do next? Next, Zhu Yunxi gazed northward, a fierce determination igniting in his eyes. Now that he understood his opponent was a mere paper tiger, there was nothing to fear. Send word to accelerate the production of Flintlock firearms. I shall claim the Prince of Jingjiang as my sharpening stone. At that moment, in Guangxi, within the rear garden of the Prince of Jingjiang's residence, Zhu Yunxi was in a frenzy. Useless. All of you are useless. He kicked over a prized orchid bonsai, shards scattering across the ground. His face contorted. Eyes blazing with fury, he paced like a wild beast in the hall. 10 days had passed. Mr. Yin had not returned a single word. Communication with Haiyan had been severed. That was 100 carts of iron materials. Not to mention my 5,000 taels of silver. Zhu Yunxi bellowed, causing the nearby maids and eunuchs to kneel, trembling in fear. At just over 30, he was in the prime of ambition. Since the untimely death of his father, Zhu Shouqian, he had lived in shadow, always suspecting that his father had been secretly harmed by the founding emperor. This hatred gnawed at his heart like a venomous serpent. In these years, he feigned obedience while secretly amassing power. With the Yin Wang Zhudi's uprising and chaos in the realm, he believed his opportunity had come. He set his sights on Qiongzhou, a distant land from the emperor's gaze, envisioning it as his stronghold. Yet unexpectedly, just as his plans began to unfold, he was struck a heavy blow. Chapter 18. Time for expansion, Your Highness. Please calm your anger. An aged yet steady voice suddenly emerged from behind the screen. Zhu Yunxi jolted, instantly suppressing his rage, and waved away those around him. Master. He hurried to the screen, bowing respectfully to an elder seated in a wheelchair. The old man, with hair and beard white as snow, bore a face marred by numerous scars, appearing fearsome. Should the court's elder officials see him, they would surely be terrified, for this man was none other than Hu Weiyong, the former prime minister who had been executed alongside his entire clan 20 years prior on charges of treason. No one knew how he had survived, nor how he had become the Prince of Jingjiang's mentor. The disappearance of Mr. Yun must be suspicious, Hu Weiyong analyzed. I am familiar with Yunji. He is cautious and always leaves himself a way out. If he were to encounter a maritime disaster, he would never fail to send word. What does the master mean? Zhu Yunxi asked eagerly. He has been captured, Hu Weiyong replied, lifting his eyelids, a glint of sharpness flickering in his gaze, and he has been taken alive. By whom? Zhu Yunxi? Zhu Yunxi ground his teeth. That fool dares to seize my people? Hu Weiyong shook his head. No. Zhu Yunxi is merely an exiled youth without troops or power. He lacks the capability. Furthermore, Yunji traveled to Lizhou, a territory of the court. Then who? Lizhou's governor. Ma Bin. Hu Weiyong slowly revealed a name. He appears moderate, yet is inherently greedy. Yunji carried with him a significant amount of silver and iron materials. Like a child clutching gold bricks in a bustling market, it would be unnatural for Ma Bin not to be tempted. Such is the peril of habitual thinking. In Hu Weiyong's perception, Zhu Yunxi remained the inept prince. He could not fathom the drastic changes that had unfolded in Qiongzhou, thus naturally fixating his suspicions on the governor of Lizhou. Ma Bin. Zhu Yunxi slammed his fist against a pillar. What a scoundrel! How dare he rob from me? Do not act rashly. Hu Weiyong raised his hand to halt him. Although the court is preoccupied with dealing with the Yin Wang, it maintains strict surveillance over the feudal lords. If you recklessly mobilize troops to Lizhou, it would be tantamount to open rebellion, inviting immediate military retaliation from the court. What then? Shall we simply let it go? Zhu Yunxi roared in frustration. Mr. Yun holds all our secrets. What if he? Fear not. Hu Weiyong's eyes glimmered with confidence. Yunji is a product of my careful cultivation. His resolve is stronger than iron. I guarantee that even if he were to be tortured 1,000 times, he would not divulge a single word. Hearing this, Zhu Yunxi felt a measure of reassurance. He held an unreasoning trust in this resurrected mentor. However, the man still needed rescuing. After a moment of contemplation, Hu Weiyong proposed a strategy. Your Highness, you must personally travel to Lizhou. Me? Personally? Yes. Bring along generous gifts and make a grand appearance. Hu Weiyong smiled with a cunning glint. Simply state that you are visiting Governor Lin, while casually inquiring about the merchant convoy's whereabouts. Ma Bin, having acted in such a manner, is surely feeling guilty. If you adopt a stance of only wanting the person, not the goods, and offer substantial benefits, he may very well release him to appease you. This is the principle of first courtesy, then force, should he be uncooperative. Hu Weiyong's hand paused abruptly on a walnut. Then let it be known that we can be ruthless. After all, Did they not have their own hidden agents in Lizhou? Upon hearing this, a fierce glint flickered in Zhu Yunxi's eyes. Very well. I shall follow the master's plan. I will go to Lizhou. If that Ma Bin dares not release him, I will make him understand that the blade of the Prince of Jingjiang can also take life. In Qiongzhou, at the Beishan mining district, colossal furnaces towered at the foot of the mountain, torrents of red-hot molten iron pouring from their mouths, flowing through channels made of fire-resistant bricks into molds. Sizzle. White smoke billowed, the heat overwhelming. Your Highness, it is done. Another furnace has been completed. The foreman of the workshop, with a face smeared in soot and grime, could hardly conceal the ecstasy gleaming in his eyes. Clutching a freshly cooled ingot of iron, he stumbled towards Zhu Yunxi, exclaiming, "Your newly imparted smelting technique is nothing short of miraculous. The speed at which we produce iron has more than quintupled. And look at the quality." He raised the ingot high, striking it vigorously with a hammer. The sound rang out, crisp and melodious, echoing for a long while, leaving only a faint white mark on its surface, with no signs of fracturing whatsoever. The carbon content was just right, with minimal impurities. Zhu Yunxi reached out to take the still warm ingot, feeling its substantial weight, and smiled with satisfaction. With this batch of fine iron, the rate of barrel explosions in our firearms could fall below 10%. Coupled with the two newly discovered rich iron ore veins by the exploration team, our position in Qiongzhou has become considerably more formidable. The surrounding craftsmen erupted in cheers. In these tumultuous times, iron is akin to bone, iron is life. With iron, we can forge guns, cannons, and armor. However, the smile on Zhu Yunxi's face was short-lived as Xiao Ding hurried through the crowd, his expression grave. Your Highness, there has been a mishap at the Armaments Bureau. What happened? Zhu Yunxi frowned, tossing the ingot back into the foreman's arms as he walked back, inquiring, "Is it a shortage of craftsmen, or a problem with the molds?" "Neither," Xiao Ding replied in a hushed tone, anxiety lacing his words. "It's the gunpowder. Our sulfur has run out." Zhu Yunxi halted abruptly, turning to fix a piercing gaze on Xiao Ding. "Run out? We still have 3,000 pounds in storage, do we not?" "That was the count from half a month ago," Xiao Ding explained with a grimace. "Your Highness, you ordered the rapid production of flintlock guns and real ammunition training for the new recruits. The 10,000 new soldiers consume hundreds of pounds of gunpowder just for sound training each day. Plus, we need to stockpile ammunition for wartime. The Armaments Bureau has just reported that there is only 1,000 pounds of sulfur left in the storehouse. At this rate, we will last no more than 3 days before the musket regiment resorts to using gunstocks as bludgeons." Sulfur was indeed a critical issue. 1 sulfur, 2 nitrate, 3 charcoal. Nitrate can be scraped from toilets and corners. Charcoal is abundant in the mountains, but sulfur must be mined. Although Qiongzhou is a treasure island, it is only developed in later years. Currently, Qiongzhou consists of primeval forests and barren beaches. While there are known extinct volcanoes, they do not produce sulfur. Damn it, Zhu Yunxi muttered under his breath. He had been so preoccupied with resolving the iron issue that he had completely overlooked this aspect. With the ongoing Jingnan campaign raging fiercely, sulfur from the mainland is a strategic resource, heavily controlled, and nearly impossible to procure. Your Highness, perhaps, we should suspend the live fire training? Xiao Ding tentatively suggested. Suspend. Zhu Yunxi decisively commanded without hesitation, issuing orders that effective immediately, all musketeers cease live fire training. Transition to musket stabilization training and physical conditioning. Anyone caught wasting even a bit of gunpowder will be sent to mine coal. Yes. Moreover, Zhu Yunxi paced a few steps, his mind racing. Send someone to the mainland. Regardless of whether it's the black market or the legitimate market, procure sulfur at any price. I will pay 10 times the amount if it can be delivered. Additionally, organize several exploration teams with guides to search the deep mountains of central Qiongzhou. I refuse to believe that on such a large island, we cannot find a single smoking volcano. I shall attend to it at once. Xiao Ding replied, prepared to depart. Wait. Zhu Yunxi called him back, casting his gaze toward the distant sea. Those 20,000 guards who went out hunting should be returning in 3 days, right? Calculating the days, it should be about right. Xiao Ding nodded. They ventured to the islands of Nanyang and should return with considerable treasures. I hope they bring back enough manpower and resources. Zhu Yunxi sighed, rubbing his temples. Qiongzhou is still too small. Limited territory, scarce resources, and the population has reached a bottleneck. Relying solely on our own reproduction, We could never amass the capital needed to contend for supremacy across the world. When this batch returns, we must carefully plan for expansion. Expansion? Shouting exclaimed, surprised by His Highness's implication. Sleep does not come easily by the side of the bed, nor can we allow others to rest undisturbed. Zhu Yunxi chuckled coldly, casting his gaze toward the northern strait. Lizhou, Lianzhou, Gaozhou, those places shall inevitably bear the name of Zhu. But not Zhu Yunxi's Zhu, rather. It shall be Zhu Yunxi's Zhu. Chapter 19. Caught between two ferocious beasts. Meanwhile, across the strait, at Baisha Bay, 10 miles outside Haiyan County in Lizhou Prefecture. The sea wind howled, stirring up clouds of dust. Although several days had passed since the battle, a faint trace of blood still lingered in the air. Two swift horses galloped forth, halting at the edge of the beach. From the saddle dismounted a middle-aged man clad in a blue official robe. He was gaunt, with a sharp visage, sporting 3 wisps of beard beneath his chin, and his eyes bore a gloomy yet piercing gaze. This man was none other than Ma Bin, the prefect of Lizhou. Following closely behind him was Zhao Yang, the county magistrate of Haiyan, who was now trembling in fear, resembling a mere lackey. My lord, it is right here. Zhao Yang shrank his neck, pointing at the disordered beach ahead, his voice still quivering. That day it happened right here. Those Qiongzhou soldiers were like phantoms, crouched behind those boxes, firing their short guns with a cacophony of bang, bang, bang. And our brothers fell like leaves. Ma Bin remained silent, his face dark as he stepped into this former battleground. The bodies had long been cleared away. Yet the dark red stains on the sand remained a shocking sight. He crouched down, discovering a finger-sized round hole in a rock. It was a mark left by a lead bullet striking the stone, deep and unfathomable, with crumbling edges. Ma Bin extended his finger to gently trace the bullet hole. Having been on the battlefield before, he had once accompanied Lan Yu on a northern expedition and had witnessed the fire guns of the divine mechanism camp. Those weapons would leave a hole in a body and merely a white mark on stone. But this bullet hole, penetrating 3 inches into the rock, was astonishingly powerful. This is what you call a shotgun. Ma Bin raised his head, fixing a fierce gaze on Zhao Yang. Yes indeed, Zhao Yang gulped, my lord. I swear I am not lying. That is a firearm. And it doesn't require a match cord. Just pulling the trigger ignites it. The range is particularly far. It can break a horse's leg from 300 paces. Ma Bin stood up, brushing the stone dust from his hands, his expression grave. He was a meritorious official of the court, yet due to his candid advice in the court, he had offended the powerful and was exiled to Lizhou as prefect. Although he held the title of prefect, this southern region was far removed from the center, humid and unbearable, effectively serving as a form of banishment. He harbored resentment towards the court, loathing Zhu Yunxi for believing in slander and detesting the conspiracies of the officials. He had always felt that his talents were wasted, confined to this shallow sandbank. It seems our neighbor is no simple character, Ma Bin mused as he gazed at the indistinct outline of land across the strait. He had previously regarded Zhu Yunxi as a disgraced king, but to his surprise, he had nurtured a man-eating tiger right under their noses. My lord, what shall we do? Zhao Yang asked anxiously. The king of Jingjiang is pressing for us to surrender Mr. Yun. But Mr. Yun is most likely captured by Qiongzhou. Ma Bin scoffed, pointing at a nearby patch of dried, darkened blood. Is there still need for guessing? There are hoofprints, signs of struggle, in this pool of blood. Just like a seasoned tracker, Ma Bin analyzed, that old fox, Mr. Yun, must have been here watching the show and ended up caught himself. To capture Yunji alive and annihilate your 500 men, aside from Zhu Yunxi of Qiongzhou, no one in this southern region possesses such capability. At this moment, a wave of inexplicable pleasure surged within Ma Bin. The king of Jingjiang, Zhu Zani, had long wished to extend his influence into Lizhou, treating it as a pawn to manipulate at will. Now that Zhu Zani's strategist had been captured, it was undoubtedly a severe blow to him. My lord, quickly look. At that moment, a retainer galloped in on horseback, brandishing a letter high in hand. Governor, an urgent message from Prince Jingjiang. Ma Bin took the letter, tore open the wax seal, and swiftly skimmed through its lengthy content, which was filled with hundreds of words. On the surface, it appeared to beseech Ma Bin to locate the missing caravan and Mr. Yun, with earnest language and even promises of substantial rewards. However, the condescending undertone and veiled threats embedded within the words left Ma Bin feeling a wave of revulsion. Humph, the old fox, he muttered, crumpling the letter into a ball. This is merely a test of my stance. He suspects I have turned against him. seizing both his goods and his people. And how shall we respond? Zhao Yang cautiously inquired. Ma Bin paused for a moment, his gaze shifting between the letter and the strait. On one side stood the formidable Zhu Yunxi of Qiongzhou, who wielded terrifying firearms. On the other, the ambitious yet hollow prince Zhu Yunxi of Jingjiang. Caught between these two ferocious beasts, the slightest misstep could lead to annihilation. Zhu Yunxi's ability to manufacture such weaponry indicated grand designs, while Zhu Yunxi's intent to eliminate Qiongzhou using his hands was merely a fantasy. With resolute determination, Ma Bin thought, since the court has no use for me and the prince wishes to exploit me, why should I not carve a new path for myself? He mounted his horse. Return to Lizhou. My lord, do we not need to retrieve the people from Qiongzhou? Zhao Yang asked, his tone laced with concern. Ma Bin's smile turned enigmatic. Retrieve them? Not yet. First, let us pay a visit to His Highness, the Prince of Jingjiang. I am eager to see if he can still smile when he learns of this deadly weapon in Qiongzhou. With a command, he urged the horse forward, kicking up a cloud of dust. In Lizhou's capital, at the Wanghai Tower, the most opulent tavern in the city frequented by nobility, the entire establishment had been reserved. Inside and out, a throng of robust men clad in casual attire, concealing sharp blades, stood vigilant. On the third floor, in a private room by the window, as Ma Bin stepped in, he was enveloped by a rich aroma of wine. Ah, Governor Lin, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. A young man, dressed in brocade and exuding warmth, stood to greet him. It was none other than the incognito Prince Zhu Yunxi. Your humble servant, Ma Bin. Pays his respects to your highness, Ma Bin replied with a courteous bow. No need for formalities. Today, there is no prince, only a friend. Zhu Yunxi clasped Ma Bin's hand, pulling him into a seat as if they were long-lost brothers. I have come to Lizhou for two reasons, to savor the local seafood, and, naturally, to discuss matters regarding Mr. Yun. Let us speak plainly, my good sir. Where is Mr. Yun? As the wine flowed and the dishes were served, Zhu Yunxi finally shed his pretense. He lightly tapped his glass against the table, producing a sharp sound, and his gaze pierced through Ma Bin like a blade. Setting down his chopsticks and wiping his mouth, Ma Bin remained composed. Your Highness, if I were to say that I did not capture him, would you believe me? Oh, Zhu Yunxi responded, a smirk playing on his lips. Then who did? Is it possible Mr. Yun sprouted wings and flew away? Qiongzhou, Ma Bin replied, fixing his gaze unwaveringly on Zhu Yunxi. I have surveyed Baisha Bay. There are clear signs of battle, and bullet holes left by firearms. Mr. Yun was seized by the men of King Wu of Qiongzhou. Chapter 20. Zhu Yunxi's naivety. Qiongzhou? Zhu Yunxi froze momentarily, then erupted into laughter as if he had heard the most ridiculous joke. Ha! Governor Ma, your excuse is remarkably feeble. That exiled wastrel Zhu Yunxi? What could he possibly want with Mr. Yun? To return to teaching? And a fierce battle? Firearms. A trace of scorn crept across his face. Governor Ma, do you take me for a fool? That impoverished land of Qiongzhou cannot even forge an iron pot, let alone firearms. Are you suggesting that Zhu Yunxi, armed with mere sticks, could have captured my strategist? Watching Zhu Yunxi's self-satisfied, lofty demeanor, Ma Bin felt a surge of disdain. This was the princely house of Ming, myopic and arrogant. My lord, Ma Bin suppressed his rising anger, speaking in a low tone. I have seen it with my own eyes. The bullets penetrated 3 inches into stone, far beyond what an ordinary firearm could achieve. Moreover, according to surviving soldiers from Haiyan, a contingent of dozens from Qiongzhou arrived, each armed with a hand cannon that required no ignition and had an incredibly rapid firing rate. 500 soldiers were utterly defeated before they could even touch the hem of their garments. Dozens? No ignition? Zhu Yunxi nearly wept with laughter. Slapping the table and addressing his attendants, listen to this. Listen, what a storyteller our Governor Ma is. It would be a shame if he didn't right plays. Where in the world are there firearms that require no ignition? That must be sorcery. The attendants joined in boisterous laughter, their gazes towards Ma Bin filled with derision. Ma Bin, Zhu Yunxi ceased his laughter, leaning forward, his tone chilling. I know you are greedy. That batch of iron and silver you consumed, I will overlook. But Mr. Yin knows too many of my secrets. You must hand him over. If you do, not only will I let the past be past, but I will also ensure your promotion and wealth. What say you? He was convinced that Ma Bin had turned against him, and the so-called firearms of Qiongzhou were merely a fabricated excuse to deflect blame. Gazing at the avaricious and foolish face before him, any lingering hesitation within Ma Bin evaporated. He had once considered that if Prince Jingjiang possessed talent, he could perhaps leverage his influence. But it now appeared that he was merely a foolish pig, and following such a fool would inevitably lead to the slaughterhouse. My lord, Ma Bin slowly rose, adjusting his official robe, an air of scholarly pride emerging upon his countenance. Though I have been demoted, I am still a man nurtured by the teachings of sages. I would not stoop to engage in base acts such as seizing wealth and abducting strategists. You, Zhu Zani's expression darkened. Do you dare speak to me in such a manner? Why should I not? Ma Bin retorted with a cold smile, his voice rising sharply. Your Highness, as a prince, should be devoted to the court rather than meddling in Lizhou's affairs without authority. With great enemies at our doorstep, you squander time here, quibbling over trifles. Do you think Qiongzhou remains that desolate isle? Do you believe Zhu Yunxi is still that useless king? Pointing towards the southern sky beyond the window, he declared vehemently, they are sharpening their blades and forging weapons. And you? You are lost in a dream, unaware of the very knives your opponents wield. Do you really think you can contend for the world? It is utterly absurd. Impudent. Zhu Zani erupted in fury, kicking over the table and spilling food and wine across the floor. Ma Bin, you seek death. Seize him. Who dares? Ma Bin shouted, producing a token from within his robes, the official seal of the Lizhou governor. This is Lizhou. I am an official of the court. Whoever dares to lay a hand on me is committing treason. The surrounding attendants, cowed by his commanding presence, hesitated to advance. After all, this was Lizhou. If they truly harmed the governor, none of them would escape alive. Zhu Zani trembled with rage, his finger quivering as he pointed at Ma Bin. Very well, Ma Bin. Since you refuse my kindness, we shall see who prevails. I shall observe whether your so-called strong neighbor of Qiongzhou can preserve your wretched life. With that, Zhu Zani flung his sleeve and stormed out in a fit of rage. As he watched Zhu Zani depart in disarray, Ma Bin exhaled a long, deep breath, feeling as though he had released years of pent-up frustration. My lord, you have surely made an enemy of him now. Zhao Yang, who had been lurking outside, slipped in, his face pale with fear. It is over. The prince will undoubtedly seek revenge against us. Revenge? Ma Bin turned, his eyes shimmering with an unprecedented brilliance. He has lost that opportunity. Prepare the horse, Ma Bin commanded in a deep voice. Where to? Back to the government office to avoid the storm? No. Ma Bin approached the window, gazing at the vast expanse of the southern sea, a fervent smile curling at the corners of his mouth. To Qiongzhou. I wish to meet that Zhu Yunxi. Since the realm of the Great Ming has become utterly rotten and the so-called princes are nothing but fools, I shall see for myself whether that wasteful king, who can produce demonic firearms, is indeed a true dragon. If he truly possesses such capability. Ma Bin clenched his fists, his nails digging deeply into his palms. Then what is it to sell my worthless life to him? In the study of the Jianwen Mansion, beneath a massive floor-to-ceiling window, sunlight spilled across a colossal map hanging on the wall. This was not the commonly seen map of the unified Great Ming, but a world sea chart meticulously marked with coordinates, ocean currents, and detailed topography of various islands. Zhu Yunxi held a charcoal pencil, his gaze drifting over the azure waters. He lightly tapped several points on the map's lower right corner: Ryukyu, Luzon, and Old Port. These were the sea routes paved by the naval exploration team over the past 3 years, forged with blood and sweat, also serving as Qiongzhou's future lifelines. However, his gaze soon shifted to the opposite shore of the Qiongzhou Strait, the peninsula of Lizhou, which jutted into the South China Sea like a dagger. Too small. Zhu Yunxi furrowed his brow, drawing a heavy circle over Lizhou's location with his pencil, so forcefully that it tore through the paper. Though Qiongzhou was a treasure, it remained isolated overseas. With a population of 850,000, it was already at the island's capacity limit. To catch up with Zhu Di's pace of development and to possess a voice in the impending turmoil of the Jingnan campaign, relying solely on Qiongzhou was far from sufficient. He needed Lizhou. Lizhou was not only a stepping stone to the inland, but also a strategic stronghold with vast arable land and a significant population. Securing Lizhou would mean opening the vital channels for Qiongzhou, allowing a continuous influx of migrants and resources to support his grand industrial plans. However, this was also a perilous dilemma. Zhu Yunxi set down his charcoal pencil and began to pace the study with his hands clasped behind his back. If a sudden strike were to seize Lizhou now, Qiongzhou's strength would be entirely exposed. He mentally rehearsed the situation. Once the court learned of his military buildup in Qiongzhou, and that he possessed the capability to conquer and seize land. Zhu Yunxi's suspicious nature would undoubtedly lead him to muster a massive army to march south and suppress him. At that point, he would face not only the pressure from the court, but also inadvertently assist Zhu Di by alleviating some of the military pressure. Yet if he did not expand. Chapter 21. A show of strength to Ma Bin. Zhu Yunxi halted his steps, his expression darkening. To quietly amass wealth in Qiongzhou? That would be slow suicide. By the time Zhu Di marched into Nanjing, secured his throne, and swept south with the momentum, what would I have to counter him with? A few hundred flintlock guns? Advance, and it is a perilous gamble. Retreat, and it is certain death. Since both paths lead to doom, then I shall carve out a bloody path. Zhu Yunxi abruptly raised his head, a flicker of resolute ferocity in his eyes. If Zhu Di dared to raise his banner in Beiping, why should I not dare to claim supremacy in Lingnan? In this realm of the Great Ming, those with virtue may reside, but the powerful may also claim their place. He made his decision to dispatch troops to Lizhou. Just as Zhu Yunxi's murderous intent was ignited and he prepared to summon his generals to discuss battle plans, a gentle knock sounded at the study door. Enter. Xiao Ding stepped in, holding a large crimson invitation. Your Highness, fresh news has arrived. He hurried to the desk and presented the invitation with both hands. The governor of Lizhou, Ma Bin, has sent this invitation, expressing admiration for your Highness's grandeur. He will arrive at Qiongzhou tomorrow to pay his respects. Ma Bin. Zhu Yunxi paused slightly, then took the invitation, glancing at the vigorous handwriting. Interesting. Zhu Yunxi tossed the invitation onto the table with a light chuckle. I was troubled by how to find an excuse to act against Lizhou, and here Ma Bin comes to my doorstep. What do they call this? A pillow delivered to a sleepy head. Xiao Ding, somewhat worried, said, Your Highness, Ma Bin is a court official and the head of Lizhou. His sudden visit must be to investigate our true strength. After all, the battle at Baisha Bay was too loud, while ordinary people may be deceived. Such high-ranking officials cannot be. Should we put on some disguise? Zhu Yunxi walked to the window, opening it to let the sea breeze sweep into the stuffy room. Disguise? Why should we disguise? He turned, his eyes sparkling with fierce confidence. Let him see. Let him see it all. Send the orders down. The port need not be on lockdown. The workshops need not stop production, aside from the core areas of the armory. Everything else shall remain as usual. Your Highness, this. Xiao Ding exclaimed in shock. If he sees our strength and reports it back to the court, he will not have the chance. Zhu Yunxi sneered. When an ant sees a dragon's treasure, its first thought is certainly not to report back to the Ant Queen, but rather to submit. Properly showcasing strength is not a bad thing. I wish to make him understand that Lizhou is but an insignificant place before Qiongzhou. Go arrange it. Tomorrow, I shall put on a grand performance for this Lord Ma. Yes. Xiao Ding, captivated by Zhu Yunxi's imposing demeanor, ceased further protest and took his leave. The following morning, at Haikao, Baisha Port, a thick fog hung over the sea, and a government ship bearing the Lizhou flag cut through the waves, slowly entering the harbor. Ma Bin stood at the bow, gripping the railing, his expression complex as he gazed at the vaguely visible land ahead. Behind him, dozens of guards rested their hands on their blades, their expressions tense, as if about to step into a den of dragons and tigers. One of his trusted aides leaned in, whispering, My lord, ahead is Haikao. I've heard this place used to be nothing but a muddy swamp with only a few fishing families. Is our visit too reckless? What if Zhu Yunxi turns against us? Without entering the tiger's den, how can one catch the tiger cub? Ma Bin took a deep breath, suppressing his unease. The battle at Baisha Bay taught me a lesson. This world has changed. If I cling to the meager remnants of Lizhou, I will surely meet my end. I wish to see what magic Qiongzhou possesses to nurture such a formidable army. As they spoke, the government ship broke through the fog. The next moment, the sight before Ma Bin shattered all his psychological defenses. Before him lay a vast deep-water harbor, filled with countless ships of all sizes, their masts towering like trees, blocking out the sun. Among them, the most striking were over a dozen colossal treasure ships anchored in the deep water, ships that had not been constructed by the Ming dynasty for many years. Each treasure ship resembled a moving fortress, towering high, adorned with fierce dragon designs, and their dark cannon mouths gleamed with a cold, murderous glint in the sunlight. On the dock, a throng of people bustled about. Countless massive cranes were busy lifting heavy wooden crates from the ships, carefully placing them onto waiting four-wheeled carts. Workers toiled bare-chested, shouting commands, their sweat glistening in the sunlight. Their faces bore no signs of malnourishment. Instead, they radiated vitality and vigor. In the distance, rows of neatly arranged warehouses stretched for miles. Various shops lined the streets, and banners fluttered in the breeze. The cacophony of street vendors, shouts, and rolling wheels converged into a tremendous roar, soaring into the sky. What poor backwater is this? This is clearly 10 times more prosperous than the city of Lijiao. Even the port of Qiongzhou cannot compare. My lord. The confidant responsible for intelligence was now paralyzed with fear on the deck, his face ashen, trembling, all over. My subordinates. Curse them. They actually overlooked such a critical situation. I always believed Qiongzhou was merely a desolate island. Ma Bin paid no heed to his subordinates' apologies. He was engulfed in profound shock. He had initially thought that Zhu Yunxi's strength stemmed solely from his illicit firearms, believing that Qiongzhou's foundation must be weak and its populace impoverished. However, the scene before him struck him like a resounding slap. This opulence, this throughput, this velocity of material exchange, such feats could not be achieved in a mere moment. It signified that Qiongzhou was not only militarily formidable, but also financially wealthy enough to rival nations. I am the frog at the bottom of the well, Ma Bin murmured, as the last vestige of superiority as a court official evaporated in that instant. At that moment, the sound of synchronized footsteps approached from the wharf. Thud, thud, thud. A troop clad in dark iron armor, wielding finely crafted steel spears, marched with uniform precision, parting the crowd as they strode forward. Leading them was a figure draped in a crimson cloak, a battle saber at his side, none other than Du Yu, the captain of the Qiong Royal Guard. Where's Lord Ma from Lijiao? Du Yu's voice boomed as he reached the gangplank. Ma Bin took a deep breath, adjusted his official robes, and steeled himself as he descended from the official vessel. I am Ma Bin. Du Yu offered a slight bow, executing a military salute with an expression of calmness. On the orders of His Highness Prince Wu, I have come to welcome Lord Ma. A modest feast awaits you at the Qiongzhou government. Thank you, Captain Du. Ma Bin replied with a courteous nod, but his gaze could not help but linger on the soldier's armor. It was a uniform of exquisite steel, glimmering under the sun. Such armor was reserved for commanders of over 1,000 men in Lijiao, yet here in Qiongzhou, it was merely standard issue for the common guards. How wealthy is Zhu Yunxi? Ma Bin pondered, filled with questions and astonishment as he boarded the four-wheeled carriage specially prepared by the Qiong Royal Palace. Chapter 22. Is this really Qiongzhou? The convoy slowly departed the port, traversing the concrete road leading to the Qiongzhou government. Ma Bin lifted the carriage curtain, gazing at the swiftly receding scenery, his heart overwhelmed by waves of shock, relentless like crashing tides. It was now late autumn. The roadsides were adorned with boundless rice fields. Golden waves of rice rolled in the wind, heavy grains bending the stalks. Countless peasants toiled in the fields, their faces radiant with the joy of a bountiful harvest. This rice. Ma Bin's eyes widened, unable to restrain himself as he called for the carriage to halt. He leaped out and rushed to the edge of the field, plucking a handful of rice ears, trembling as he counted the grains. This ear has 200 or 300 grains, and every grain is plump, not a single shriveled one. Ma Bin understood agriculture well. He knew precisely what this implied. In the Ming dynasty, ordinary rice varieties yielded about 100 grains per ear, yet the rice in Qiongzhou boasted a yield at least double that of the mainland. What miraculous seed is this? Ma Bin turned to Du Yu, his voice trembling. Du Yu, seated on his horse, glanced at the rice field with pride and explained. Replying to Lord Ma, this is the hybrid rice bestowed by His Highness. This year marks the third harvest season, yielding approximately 800 pounds per mu. Nothing extraordinary. How? How much? Ma Bin nearly bit his tongue in disbelief. 800 pounds per mu. And a third harvest season? You mean this rice can ripen 3 times a year? In Qiongzhou, due to the warm climate, it naturally yields 3 harvests a year, Du Yu replied matter-of-factly. Ma Bin felt as though his head was spinning. 3 harvests a year, yielding 800 pounds per mu. Does that not imply that Qiongzhou's annual yield per mu could reach 2,400 pounds? This was not merely farming. It was akin to cultivating gold. No wonder the people of Qiongzhou appeared so robust. No wonder Zhu Yunxi could afford to sustain such a vast army. With such miraculous seeds, even 1,000,000 troops could be easily supported. Dazed, Ma Bin returned to the carriage, feeling somewhat disoriented. He realized that the scholarly pursuits and governance he had engaged in for most of his life seemed like a mere jest. Yet, the astonishment did not cease. The carriage continued onward, passing through various villages. Ma Bin had anticipated seeing lowly thatched cottages or dilapidated clay houses. Yet what greeted his eyes were rows of small buildings with red walls and green tiles. Most of these structures were 3 stories high, constructed of red bricks with glazed roofs, their windows broad and bright. Every household had its yard filled with chickens and ducks, hanging cured meats, and many even had ox carts parked at their doors. Ma Bin pointed at the small buildings, swallowing hard. Captain Du, could this perhaps be the affluent district of Qiongzhou, or the residences of retired officials? In his view, only the wealthy or noble could reside in such 3-story buildings. Even the affluent merchants in Lijiao were not so fortunate. Du followed his gaze, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. Lord Ma is mistaken. These are the homes of ordinary citizens. His Highness has decreed that every resident deserves a home. This is the most basic requirement. Over the past 3 years, His Highness has promoted red brick and cement, encouraging the populace to build homes. Such small buildings are commonplace in Qiongzhou and are of no significance. Ordinary citizens? Ma Bin was utterly petrified. He observed the farmers coming in and out of the small buildings, watching them hang clothes on balconies, and children frolicking in spacious courtyards. These are called ordinary citizens? What of those in Lijiao, living in drafty thatched huts and subsisting on meager rations? Were they not considered refugees? Exhausted, Ma Bin leaned against the carriage wall, closing his eyes. He finally understood why, during the battle at Baisha Bay, the Qiongzhou soldiers fought so fiercely, why that Mr. Yun, who had been paraded through the streets, was pelted with stones by the people. Zhu Yunxi offered not merely sustenance, but dignity, hope, and a life akin to that of deities. Whoever dared to disrupt such a life would be the sworn enemy of the 850,000 people of Qiongzhou. Zhu Yunxi, truly a dragon among men. Ma Bin sighed deeply within. At that moment, he felt an unprecedented anticipation and reverence for the impending meeting. He knew that his choice had been the right one. Meanwhile, 1,000 miles away in Guangxi, Guilin Prefecture, at the Jingjiang Prince's residence. Crash! A precious blue and white porcelain vase was violently smashed upon the floor, shards scattering. Jingjiang Prince Zhu Yunxi's face contorted with rage as he stormed about the main hall, cursing at the direction of Lijiao. Rebellion! Rebellion! They have all rebelled. That wretched Ma Bin dared to humiliate me in person. He even had the audacity to expel me from Lijiao. What is he? Merely a dog of the court. How dare he bark at his master? Zhu Yunxi's chest heaved violently, the fire in his eyes threatening to reduce the entire prince's residence to ashes. He had endured a barrage of insults in Lijiao, believing Ma Bin would meekly surrender Mr. Yun. To his astonishment, not only did he fail to retrieve the man, but he was also scolded by Ma Bin, ultimately being driven out in disgrace. How could he swallow this anger? Your Highness, please calm down. From behind a screen, the sound of a wheelchair rolling forward was heard as Hu Weiyong slowly emerged. Master. Upon seeing Hu Weiyong, Zhu Yunxi resembled a child wronged, eagerly exclaiming, "That Ma Bin is too much. He has undoubtedly allied himself with Zhu Yunxi. We must send troops. I shall annihilate Lijiao. I will have Ma Bin's body torn to pieces." Hu Weiyong inquired, "Annihilate Lijiao? And then what? Wait for the court's army to destroy you instead? Then we just endure this?" Zhu Yunxi retorted indignantly, "Mr. Yun is still in their hands. That is our lifeline. Endure? Of course not." A glint of malice flashed in Hu Weiyong's eyes. The reason Ma Bin dares to act so arrogantly is that he believes we are merely paper tigers, too afraid to make a move against him. If that is the case, let us show him what true tigers look like. What you mean is, Zhu Di waged fierce battles in the north, drawing the court's military forces to Jiangbei. The south, now vulnerable, presented a fortuitous opportunity. Hu Weiyong raised his emaciated finger, pointing toward the north, urging, "Your Highness, do not fixate on the insignificant Lijiao. One must think on a grander scale." The court's reduction of fiefs signals a desperate situation. With the death of the Prince of Xiang and the deposition of the Prince of Qi, you are next. Rather than waiting for your demise, emulate the Prince of Yan. Hu Weiyong slammed his hand on the armrest of his wheelchair, his voice rising sharply, proclaiming the banner of restoring the king. He claimed that treacherous ministers had deceived the emperor, calling for the mobilization to cleanse the court. Swiftly seizing Guangxi, consolidating troops and supplies, then advancing northward into Hunan. In the ensuing chaos, who would concern themselves with a mere Lijiao? Once the prince commanded hundreds of thousands of troops, exterminating Ma Bin and Zhu Yunxi would be effortless. Zhu Yunxi felt a surge of fervor, his initial rage transforming into the flames of ambition. Chapter 23. A mere wall, not worth mentioning. Master, is this truly feasible? Zhu Yunxi clutched the tiger talisman, a symbol of military authority, tightly in his hand. Our privately raised forces number merely 80,000, with provisions sufficient for only 3 months. And half of our weapons and armor remain unprepared. Should we rise now, if the court's army descends upon us? He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. It would spell our utter ruin. Hu Weiyong, seated in his wheelchair, opened his eyes. Your Highness, are you afraid? To delay action is to invite calamity. With Zhu Di restraining the court's main forces in the north, this is an unparalleled opportunity. If you wait for Zhu Di's downfall or for the court to regain its footing, the next to be purged will be the Jingjiang prince's residence. But, Zhu Yunxi hesitated. There is no but. Hu Weiyong halted his actions, his gaze filled with deep resentment. Years ago, the founding emperor annihilated my clan. I have endured this blood debt for 20 years. The realm of the Ming should indeed descend into chaos. The more tumultuous, the better. He extended his frail hand, gripping Zhu Yunxi's sleeve tightly, and declared fiercely, Your Highness, what does it matter if we only have 80,000 troops? By raising the banner of cleansing the court and rallying the vassal princes who are frightened by the court's purges, we will surely grow in strength. In due course, we shall govern by the river, and you shall be the Emperor of the South. Emperor of the South? These words struck Zhu Yunxi like a spell, piercing through his mental defenses, and the fear in his eyes gradually waned. Very well. Zhu Yunxi sprang to his feet, slamming the tiger talisman down on the table. Since the court offers no path to survival, I shall rebel against it. He ordered the mobilization of troops for war, ready to act as soon as the opportunity arose. Hu Weiyong gazed at the puppet consumed by desire, a sinister smile creeping across his face. Let it descend into chaos. Let it be thoroughly chaotic. Only when the Ming dynasty crumbles will my vengeance be truly fulfilled. Days later, outside Qiongzhou Prefecture, the sea breeze howled, stirring up clouds of dust. A convoy, escorted by thousands of elite cavalrymen, gradually halted 3 miles from the city gates. Ma Bin lifted the carriage curtain and stepped down. Despite having witnessed the might of Qiongzhou's firearms at Baisha Bay and the bustling harbor at Haikao, the moment he stood before Qiongzhou Prefecture's walls, he froze in disbelief. What? Is this a city wall? Ma Bin tilted his head back, his neck cracking audibly, eyes wide with astonishment, nearly bulging from their sockets. Before him loomed a colossal, grayish-white barrier, towering into the clouds, blocking out the sun. It appeared to be at least 50 meters high. What kind of concept was this? The most magnificent walls of Nanjing stood only 12 or 13 meters tall. This wall was 4 times that height. It was constructed entirely of a miraculous substance known as cement, without a single gap. Lord Ma, what troubles you? Do you, the guide, perched on his horse, observed Ma Bin's ghostly expression with a mocking grin. It is merely a wall, meant to deter pirates and bandits, nothing of consequence. And nothing of consequence? Ma Bin pointed at the towering wall, his finger trembling violently. Do Commander, you call this a defense against pirates? If this wall were in the Central Plains, even 100,000 soldiers might take 10 years to breach it. As a magistrate, he understood the principles of offense and defense all too well. 50 meters in height meant ladders could not reach it, and stones from catapults would not strike it. This was not merely a city wall. It was an insurmountable barrier separating the mortal realm from the celestial. However, what truly sent chills down Ma Bin's spine were the dark shooting holes above the wall. Especially in the center of the gate tower, dozens of imposing cannon emplacements lined up in a row. Even from a distance, he could discern the menacing outlines of the cannon tubes. Red-clad cannons. Ma Bin gasped in disbelief, his voice trembling in pitch. How could there be so many? 1, 2, 3, heavens. At least 50. He had seen descriptions of the red-clad cannons in the military reports. They were national treasures, costly and difficult to forge. The entire Ming frontier army likely had only a handful. Yet here, atop a mere Qiongzhou city wall, there were more than 50. If these 50 cannons fired simultaneously, a vivid image flashed in Ma Bin's mind. The heavens collapsing, a sea of fire raging. Any army daring to approach this wall would instantly be reduced to ash. Gulp. Ma Bin felt his legs weaken, cold sweat soaking through his official robes. He had thought he had overestimated Qiongzhou's strength, but it appeared he was still that frog at the bottom of the well. Attack! Suddenly, a deafening battle cry erupted from the west side of the wall, resonating like thunder, mingling with the clash of metal, as if thousands of troops were engaged in a life-and-death struggle. An ambush! Ma Bin, already a frightened bird, felt a jolt of terror at the sound, instinctively diving beneath the carriage. "Du Commander, what is happening? Is the Jingjiang prince attacking? Or are you planning to silence me?" His attendants, pale-faced, unsheathed their sabers, forming a protective circle, their eyes wide with fear. "Lord Ma, remain calm." Du Yu looked at Ma Bin's disheveled state, shaking his head in exasperation. "This is merely our routine drill." His Highness said, "Sweat more in peace, so we bleed less in war. This commotion is nothing to worry about." "Drill?" Ma Bin poked his head cautiously out from behind the carriage wheel, still shaken. "Is this truly just a drill, to create such a spectacle? How many people are involved?" Du Yu reined in his horse, gazing toward the distant training ground with pride. "Not many." He held up one finger, calmly stating, "Today, the main force training at the West Training Ground is the Qiongzhou Guard, approximately 100,000 strong." 100,000. Just as Ma Bin attempted to stand, the number sent him collapsing back to his knees. 100,000. His voice became high-pitched, akin to a eunuch's. "You mean, just the regular troops number 100,000? Then, what about the others?" Du Yu clearly relished Ma Bin's astonished reaction. He ticked off on his fingers, recounting with enthusiasm, "The Qiongzhou Guard has 100,000, that's the main force. The royal household's private army, which includes His Highness's personal guards, has been expanded to 50,000. The naval forces, including newly recruited sailors and marines, number around 30,000. At this point, Du Yu lowered his hand, flashing a grin at the already dumbfounded Ma Bin. "Thus, our current total military strength in Qiongzhou is approximately 180,000. 180,000. This figure echoed wildly in Ma Bin's mind, overwhelming him, his vision flashing with stars. He recalled the imposing treasure ships of Haikao, and the terrifying feat of the 100 musketeers at Baisha Bay, who had instantaneously routed 500 foes. An army of 180,000, equipped with flintlock rifles, red cannons, and ironclad warships. In the face of such might, the few thousand old soldiers of Lizhou, armed with rusted spears, were utterly insignificant. 180,000. 180,000. Ma Bin sat on the ground, murmuring to himself, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. Chapter 24. Is this truly the harmonious world described in the sacred texts? A wave of intense apprehension washed over him. If he had heeded the words of King Jingjiang and taken action against Qiongzhou, or had entertained greedy thoughts at Baisha Bay, it was likely that Lizhou would have been razed to the ground, leaving not a trace behind. "Master Ma? Master Ma?" Du Yu's voice pulled him back to reality. It was getting late, and His Highness was still waiting in the mansion. "Shall we head into the city?" Ma Bin trembled all over, hastily scrambling to his feet, neglecting to dust off his clothes as he bowed repeatedly to Du Yu. "Yes, yes. Into the city. Into the city." At this moment, the pride he once felt in assessing Qiongzhou's strength had evaporated completely, replaced by profound reverence and an overwhelming impulse to prostrate himself before Zhu Yunxi and sing his praises. This thigh must be clung to tightly, even to the death. Following Du Yu, Ma Bin entered the fabled Qiongzhou city with a trepidation akin to that of Lu Laolao entering the Grand View Garden. He had initially thought that the shock of the 50-meter-high city walls and the army of 180,000 was the pinnacle of awe. Yet, when he found himself amidst the streets of the city, he realized how utterly impoverished his imagination had been. "Is this a realm of mortals?" Ma Bin rubbed his eyes, unable to believe the scene before him. Beneath his feet lay a wide, smooth concrete boulevard, ample enough for 8 horse-drawn carriages to pass side by side. Flanking the road stood iron poles every 10 steps, each topped with a glass lamp, an illumination device he had never encountered before. On either side of the street rose buildings 5, even 6 stories high. The ground floors were filled with shops, silk stores, taverns, tea houses, bookstores, a dazzling array, everything one could desire. Come and see. Freshly steamed buns, thin-skinned and generously filled. Premium Qiongzhou snowflake candy, sweeter than first love. Glass mirrors, reflecting every detail. The cries of vendors echoed, and the streets bustled with traffic, pedestrians weaving through like threads in a vibrant tapestry. Ma Bin observed that the people here, be they wealthy merchants riding in sedan chairs or peddlers pushing carts, all donned unpatched cotton garments. Their faces were devoid of pallor or sorrow, each person radiating an authentic smile, one brimming with hope for life and confidence in the future. Commander Du. Ma Bin pointed to a child by the roadside gnawing on a chicken leg, his voice somewhat hoarse. Why are there no beggars in Qiongzhou City? Even in the well-governed Liezhou, ragged beggars and vagrants were a common sight. Yet, throughout his journey, he had not seen a single beggar. Beggars? Du glanced back and replied matter-of-factly, in Qiongzhou. As long as one is willing to work, even if it is sweeping the streets or collecting night soil, the wages provided by His Highness are sufficient for a family to eat their fill. If one can eat their fill, who would choose to beg? But, what if someone is disabled and cannot work? Ma Bin pressed. They are sent to the welfare home. Du pointed to a building in the distance adorned with a Red Cross flag. His Highness established this home specifically to care for the elderly and disabled, funded by the royal treasury. As for children, by the age of 6, they must be sent to school, with tuition fully waived and even a lunch provided. What? Ma Bin's eyes widened. Fully waived? And they provide lunch? How much silver must that cost? His Highness said that no matter how poor one is, education should never be compromised, and no child should endure suffering. Du Yu's tone carried a hint of admiration. His Highness has also set a rule. Qiongzhou does not support idlers. Those who are able-bodied yet seek to gain without working are expelled. Thus, in Qiongzhou City, as long as one is not lazy, life is akin to that of a deity. Ma Bin was profoundly shaken. The elderly are cared for, the strong are employed, the young are nurtured, and the lonely, disabled, and destitute are all provided for. Is this not the harmonious world depicted in the works of sages? Ma Bin had devoted his life to studying the teachings of the wise, dreaming of creating such a place, yet he had always considered it an unattainable fantasy. Yet now, this fantasy had transformed into a vivid reality under the auspices of an exiled prince. Zhu Yunxi, truly a saintly ruler. Ma Bin's eyes glistened with unshed tears, the desire to serve him solidifying in his heart, like granite. After traversing the bustling commercial district, the entourage finally halted before a grand residence. Master Ma, we have arrived. Ma Bin straightened his attire and looked up. 2 imposing stone lions, exquisitely carved and lifelike, guarded the entrance. The grand door was crafted from fragrant golden silk nanmu, exuding a subtle aroma, while the stone steps leading up to it conveyed an air of solemnity and grandeur. What a majestic royal palace! Ma Bin silently praised, recognizing that it befit a prince with an army of 180,000 and wealth-rivaling nations. However, upon crossing the threshold into the interior of the palace, he was left utterly astounded. There were no ornate pavilions or flowing streams, nor throngs of attendants clad in vibrant attire. Instead, what greeted him was an expansive vegetable garden. Indeed, a vegetable garden. The front yard of the palace was lush with verdant greens, leeks, and even a few cucumber vines. Several elderly servants, resembling farmers, were watering and fertilizing the crops, while a few hens leisurely scratched at the ground by the wall. Were it not for the towering walls, Ma Bin would have thought he had stumbled into a prosperous farmer's courtyard. Ma Bin pointed at the leeks scattered across the ground, his expression twitching. Commander Du, is this truly the royal palace? Du shrugged. Indeed, His Highness despises extravagant displays, deeming them a waste of land. Growing vegetables is far more practical. When he wishes to eat, he can simply pick them fresh, ensuring both health and quality. Ma Bin was utterly speechless. Possessing mountains of gold and silver, yet living a farmer's life, what manner of person was this Prince of Qiong? Not only did he eschew indulgence, but he also directed vast sums of money toward the welfare of the people, the military, and education. This extreme pragmatism and restraint filled Ma Bin with deep reverence. This is what it means to be a person of great deeds. Master Ma, His Highness is awaiting you in the study. Du gestured invitingly. From here on, you must proceed on your own. His Highness has commanded that you be seen alone. Thank you. Ma Bin dismissed his trusted aides, adjusted his slightly disheveled official garb, and with a heart both anxious and exhilarated, made his way toward the rear courtyard. He knew that he was about to meet not merely a prince, but a figure capable of altering the fortunes of the Ming dynasty. Passing through a tranquil corridor, Ma Bin arrived at a simple study, the door slightly ajar. He gently knocked. Enter, a youthful and gentle voice called from within. Ma Bin pushed the door open. The study was sparsely furnished, featuring several rows of bookshelves, a massive writing desk, and a large world map adorning the wall. Behind the desk sat a young man clad in loose white robes, diligently writing. He wore no crown and no dragon robe. His hair was casually tied back, resembling an ordinary scholar. Upon hearing the footsteps, the young man looked up, revealing a handsome yet resolute face, adorned with a smile as warm as a spring breeze. Ma Bin, governor of Lizhou, pays his respects to His Highness, the King of Wu. Ma Bin, not daring to be remiss, immediately knelt and performed a formal bow. Master Ma, please rise promptly. Zhu Yunxi laid down the charcoal pencil in his hand, swiftly circumnavigating the desk to personally assist Ma Bin to his feet. This Qiongzhou was a realm beyond the ordinary, devoid of superficial formalities. Master Ma, you must be weary from your arduous journey. Not at all, not at all. Ma Bin replied, taken aback as he gazed closely at the young prince, feeling as if the depth of Zhu's gaze could penetrate the very essence of one's soul. Come, take a seat. Zhu Yunxi guided Ma Bin to a nearby tea table that was already adorned with an array of dishes. While there were no extravagant delicacies, the table offered a selection of refined dishes, a plate of poached chicken, a platter of braised pork, a dish of stir-fried seasonal vegetables, accompanied by a pot of fragrant rice wine. Zhu understood that Master Ma was a man of integrity, accustomed to a modest diet. These are all vegetables grown in the royal estate and chickens raised by us. They are quite flavorful. Please, do have a taste. Zhu Yunxi personally poured a cup of wine for Ma Bin, who, upon observing the simplicity of the fare and the unpretentious demeanor of the prince, felt his eyes moisten with emotion. After years of navigating the treacherous waters of officialdom, he had grown weary of the insincerity that often accompanied such encounters. Yet today, before this prince wielding immense power, he felt an unfamiliar sense of sincerity and respect. Thank you, Your Highness, for the wine. Ma Bin accepted the cup with both hands and drank it down in one gulp. As the wine flowed and the dishes were savored, the atmosphere in the study grew increasingly warm. Zhu Yunxi did not hasten to discuss official matters, but rather engaged Ma Bin in conversation about the customs and culture of Lizhou, as well as agricultural and water management practices. To Ma Bin's astonishment, the prince displayed a deeper understanding of matters concerning the populace than he, the governor, possessed. Eventually, Zhu Yunxi set down his cup, allowing his smile to fade, his gaze sharpening as he locked eyes with Ma Bin. Master Ma, what are your impressions of Qiongzhou after this journey? Within the study, the aroma of wine filled the air, yet there was an undercurrent of tension. Ma Bin placed his cup down, his eyes lingering on the large world map adorning the wall, momentarily lost in thought. The sights he had witnessed along the way, from the bustling port filled with sails to the imposing cement city walls, and the prosperity and contentment of the citizens, each scene struck him like a hammer, shattering his previous perceptions. Your Highness. Ma Bin took a deep breath, turning to Zhu Yunxi and bowing deeply, his voice laden with emotion. In my 3 years as governor of Lizhou, I have endeavored diligently, fearing any hint of negligence. But now, having seen Qiongzhou, I realize what true governance entails. Compared to Qiongzhou, Lizhou is merely an uncivilized wasteland. His words were heartfelt. Although Lizhou sat at a strategic juncture, its people still struggled on the brink of subsistence, and the soldiers lacked proper provisions, their morale at an all-time low. In contrast, Qiongzhou thrived in prosperity and abundance. Zhu Yunxi leaned back in his chair, taking a sip of rice wine. You flatter me, Master Ma. The achievements of Qiongzhou are not solely my doing, but a result of favorable circumstances and the unity of the people. However, he continued, Qiongzhou is an island, small in territory and limited in resources. Our development has reached an impasse. Advancing further is akin to scaling the heavens. A flicker of realization crossed Ma Bin's mind, and he tentatively inquired, Your Highness, do you mean? I desire Lizhou. Zhu Yunxi set down his cup. The words sent a chill through Ma Bin, his body tensing. Though he had sensed Zhu Yunxin's ambition, he had not anticipated such boldness, so stark it felt nearly naked. Ma Bin sprang to his feet, his complexion drained of color. Your Highness, such words should not be spoken lightly. Lizhou belongs to the court, and I am a servant of the court. If you covet Lizhou, then it would be tantamount to rebellion. Rebellion? Zhu Yunxi scoffed, unfazed by Ma Bin's agitation. He stepped closer, the weight of his presence palpable. Master Ma, let us speak plainly. You fear rebellion? Then tell me, Why does your Lizhou garrison officially list only 5,000 soldiers? Yet in reality, you have secretly expanded the ranks to 56,000? Crash. The chair behind Ma Bin toppled over with a loud clatter as he stumbled back. Terror in his eyes. How? How do you know? This was his greatest secret. Ever since his demotion to Lizhou, he had harbored a burning desire for redemption, to safeguard himself and one day return to the center of power. He had exploited Lizhou's remoteness to intercept taxes and recruit soldiers. These 56,000 men were his ultimate trump card and a potential death sentence, if exposed. How I know is inconsequential. Zhu Yunxi pressed on. What matters is, Master Ma, you have amassed such a private army, surely not to save the court's rations. Or do you aspire to seize wealth and power in this chaotic era? Ma Bin's forehead glistened with sweat, his lips quivering. Unable to form a coherent response. Lan Yuan, you were implicated and demoted. Do you feel no resentment? Zhu Yunxi dropped another bombshell. You were once a pillar of the court, endowed with the talent to shape the world, yet here you are, relegated to a minor official in Lizhou, enduring the foolishness of the Jingjiang Wang. Master Ma, are you truly content with this? Every word pierced Ma Bin's heart like a sharp blade, striking at the most concealed of wounds. Content. How could he be? He, Ma Bin, proud of his intellect, should have been guiding the nation from the court. Yet here he was, exiled to the frontier. His hatred for the feeble court and the suspicious emperor ran deep. Your Highness. Ma Bin slumped to the ground, despair evident in his demeanor. Even so, rebellion would lead to ruin. Though the court was in disarray, its foundations still stood strong. And while the prince was powerful, he was but a ruler of a small domain. Who said I wished to rebel? Zhu Yunxi suddenly laughed. I am Zhu, a direct descendant of the Taizu, the Prince of Wu in this Great Ming dynasty. Should I raise my banners, it would be to restore the emperor, to safeguard the realm, to uphold the state. How can that be called rebellion? He crouched down, meeting Ma Bin's gaze directly. Master Ma, you are an intelligent man. I possess Qiongzhou as my foundation, with 180,000 elite troops, abundant resources, and the legitimacy of royal blood. In comparison to that emperor who only knows how to weaken his vassals and drive his own uncle to death, who do you think embodies the true sovereign? Ma Bin lifted his head, gazing at the young and commanding prince before him, the long-dormant ambitions within him ignited. Your Highness, what do you propose? He asked. Trembling. Cooperation. Zhu Yunxi extended a hand. I seek the administrative authority over Lizhou. All taxes, populace, and land will be allocated under the unified management of Qiongzhou. I will replicate Qiongzhou's model in Lizhou, ensuring the people there also live prosperous lives, transforming Lizhou into a logistical base for Qiongzhou. And the military? Ma Bin's eyes were fixed intently on Zhu Yunxi. That was his lifeline. The military remains under your command. Zhu Yunxi offered an unexpected answer. The 56,000 troops of the Lizhou garrison will still be led by you. Not only will I not interfere with your military authority, but I will also provide you with the finest equipment and supplies, transforming them into true elite forces. What? Ma Bin's eyes widened in disbelief, hardly able to grasp the words. Your Highness, you are not afraid that I. Trust is paramount. Suspicion leads to ruin. Zhu Yunxi rose, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Of course, to solidify our cooperation, I have a small request. Please, Your Highness, state your terms. I ask that Master Ma's family relocate to Qiongzhou. Zhu Yunxi turned to gaze out at the bustling city of Qiongzhou. I will arrange for them the finest residences, the best schools, and the most comfortable lives. What say you, Master Ma? Ma Bin fell silent. This was a form of hostage. But did he have a choice? If he refused, given Qiongzhou's current strength, Zhu Yunxi could easily march north and launch an assault on Lizhou at any moment. At that moment, Ma Bin faced not only the loss of his official position, but potentially his very life. However, should he agree, he could not only safeguard his life and military authority, but also embark upon the swift vessel of Qiongzhou, possibly rising to become a favored minister in the future. Chapter 26. In the vast expanse of the Ming dynasty, is there truly no one worthy of trust? Your Highness. Ma Bin took a deep breath, slowly rising from the ground and adjusting his attire. Then, he knelt down like a golden mountain collapsing upon a jade pillar, his forehead striking the ground heavily. I, the guilty Minister Ma Bin, am willing to serve Your Highness with utmost loyalty. The entire Lizhou prefecture looks to Your Highness for guidance. Zhu Yunxi smiled with satisfaction, stepping forward to assist Ma Bin to his feet. Good. Master Ma, rise. From this day forth, we are comrades in the same boat. I assure you, you shall never regret this choice." Half an hour later, Ma Bin departed the Yingtian Mansion, his face aglow with excitement and dreams for the future. In the study, Xiao Ding emerged from behind the screen, observing Ma Bin's retreating figure with a look of confusion. Unable to restrain himself, he inquired, "Your Highness, Ma Bin is, after all, an official of the court and commands a significant military force. Are you not concerned about him potentially turning against us in the future? This is no small army of over 50,000 troops. What if we simply took it? Take it?" Zhu Yunxi resumed his seat, sipping his tea and shaking his head. "Xiao Ding, you are still too young. Those 50,000 Lizhou troops are Ma Bin's private soldiers, all filled with his trusted confidants and allies. If I were to forcibly seize power, it would only incite rebellion, resulting in more trouble than it is worth. But, no buts." Zhu Yunxi's gaze was sharp. Ma Bin is a clever man, one who values his life. He has witnessed the might of Qiongzhou and the chaos of the Ming. He knows who will provide him with sustenance. As long as I remain strong, he will not dare to have ulterior motives. Moreover, Zhu Yunxi let out a cold laugh. His family resides in Qiongzhou. His rations depend on Qiongzhou, and his equipment relies on Qiongzhou. Once I take over the governance of Lizhou and win the people's hearts, his so-called Lizhou troops will inevitably become my Qiongzhou Second Army. This is akin to boiling a frog in warm water. Binding them with interests and pressuring them with prevailing circumstances is far more astute than resorting to force. Dispatch orders. Zhu Yunxi set down his teacup, his expression turning serious. Have the Ministry of Civil Affairs prepare the necessary officials, and the Ministry of Works ready the craftsmen. As soon as Ma Bin's family enters the city, they shall immediately settle in Lizhou. I intend to transform Lizhou into our impregnable fortress within a month. Yes. Xiao Ding responded with a solemn expression, accepting the command. As this momentous transaction unfolded in the shadows between Qiongzhou and Lizhou, the northern lands were engulfed in flames of war. North of Beiping, the Yan King Zhu Di donned his black heavy armor, riding upon a magnificent steed. His whip pointed toward the horizon. Behind him, tens of thousands of Yan troops surged forward with fervent momentum, their banners obscuring the sky. Report. A scout galloped in, dismounting in haste, exclaiming with excitement, "Your Highness, General Wang Yuan has successfully captured Kaiping. Yongping Prefecture is now in our hands. The garrison at Songting Pass fell for our trap and engaged in infighting. The pass has been breached." "Excellent." Zhu Di laughed heartily, a long-suppressed exuberance echoing in his voice. "Heaven is aiding me. With no threats surrounding Beiping, we can finally focus on confronting that little brat in Nanjing." In a mere fortnight, Zhu Di, with a thunderous momentum, cleared all court strongholds around Beiping. He subdued renowned generals and seized key towns, his forces swelling like a rolling snowball to tens of thousands. The once dormant tiger, after years of waiting, finally revealed its sharpest fangs. In stark contrast to Zhu Di's unstoppable advance, the court's response was laughably inadequate. Xuanfu, as one of the pivotal strongholds of the Nine Borders, should have been the first line of defense against the Yan army's southward advance. Yet, at that moment, the gates of Xuanfu stood wide open. The Duke of Gu, Zhu Zhao, a prince with a significant military force, upon hearing news of the Yan army's victories, hastily gathered his belongings overnight. Rather than marching forth to defend the realm, he executed his own chief of staff and fled the city with 3,000 guards. Like a dog without a master, racing back to Nanjing, the news spread, causing an uproar across the land. In Nanjing, at the Yingtian Palace, the atmosphere was stifling and suffocating. Absurd. Absurd. The Jianwen Emperor Zhu Yunxi hurled the battle report to the ground with fury. He paced back and forth on the throne, pointing at the civil and military officials, his roars reverberating through the hall. "The Duke of Gu, I entrusted him with the defense of Xuanfu, and he dares to flee without a fight. He has handed my empire over to the enemy. And that Yongzong, that Zhongbing, they boast of loyalty and patriotism. Yet when it comes to battle, they either surrender or perish. I support this entire court. And are they all merely useless eaters?" Beneath the throne, hundreds of officials knelt, their heads bowed, not daring to make a sound. No one had anticipated that the man they regarded as a madman, the Yan King, could actually fight, and so fiercely and swiftly. "Your Majesty, calm your anger." The Minister of War Chi Tai stepped forward with trepidation, kneeling to speak. Though the Yan rebels are rampant, their forces are still limited. While the Duke of Gu has fled, the Prince of Liao and the Prince of Ning remain. I suggest we immediately issue a decree to summon the Prince of Liao and the Prince of Ning to prevent them from falling into the hands of the Yin rebels. Summon them back? What use is that now? Zhu Yunwen's fury reached new heights. The most pressing matter is to send troops. Send a general to eradicate the Yin rebels. Who can take command? Who can relieve me of this burden? He scanned the officials. Yet as his gaze met the martial officials, they all averted their eyes. At this moment, the Ming court finally tasted the bitter fruit of its actions. During the Hongwu era, the founding emperor Zhu Yuanzhang had ruthlessly purged loyal ministers and seasoned generals to pave the way for his grandson, Lan Yu, Feng Sheng, Fu Yud. Those capable warriors had been nearly exterminated. Now, those standing in the court were either inept civilian officials who could only strategize on paper or inexperienced new generals who had never faced a grand battle. While they might manage against bandits, sending them to confront the battle-hardened Qiongzhou, that would be tantamount to sending them to their doom. Zhu Yunwen, in desperation, stamped his feet. Speak up. You were all so eloquent before. Why are you all mute now? Is it truly the case that in the vast expanse of the Ming dynasty, there is not a single person worthy of trust? In the ensuing silence, Qitai clenched his teeth, seemingly resolved. Your Majesty, he spoke solemnly, at present, there are no great generals in court. But there is one individual who may shoulder this heavy responsibility. Who? Speak quickly. Zhu Yunwen grasped at this lifeline. The Marquis of Chongqing, Gung Bingwen. At this declaration, the entire court was taken aback. Zhu Yunwen too was momentarily stunned, followed by a look of disbelief. Gung the old general? But he is already over 70. Zhu Yunwen stammered. And he is more adept at defense than offense. To have him lead an expedition. Can that truly be feasible? Gung Bingwen, one of the few remaining founding heroes of the Ming dynasty. Yet he was too old, so much so that he required assistance to walk and had not donned armor in many years. Your Majesty, Qitai bowed deeply, his voice laden with sorrow. Now that the court's prestige has dwindled, only General Gung possesses the necessary experience to stabilize the military morale. Besides him, who in this court dares to claim they can stand against the Yin King? Who is qualified to command 300,000 troops? Zhu Yunwen slumped into the dragon throne, his eyes filled with despair and helplessness. Indeed, there was no one left, truly no one. The once brilliant Ming dynasty, which had swept across the northern wilderness, had now fallen to the point of relying on a 70-year-old man to salvage the situation. Proclaim. Zhu Yunwen weakly waved his hand, summoned Marquis Chongqing Gung Bingwen to ascend the throne and take command. Chapter 27. The 75-year-old Gung Bingwen has taken command. Soon, footsteps echoed from outside the hall. Tap, tap, tap. The crowd turned to the sound, witnessing an elderly man with white hair and a frail figure, leaning on a cane as he slowly emerged. The Marquis of Chongqing, Gung Bingwen. Zhu Yunwen opened his mouth, unsure of where to begin. At that moment, Gung Bingwen spoke up. Your Majesty, I am aware of your thoughts. As an old minister, I am willing to go. The aged voice resonated within the grand hall. Zhu Yunwen raised his head, his eyes flickering with a glimmer of light, only to dim once more. The venerable general. Zhu Yunwen gazed at Gung Bingwen, whose head was crowned with white hair and whose body was bent with age, and asked with a wry smile, How old are you this year? I have lived for 75 years, Gung Bingwen replied, bowing respectfully. 75, indeed. Zhu Yunwen sighed. Your loyalty is commendable, and it brings me great comfort. However, the formidable Zhu Di is in the prime of his life, unmatched in valor. Given your advanced age, I fear you may not withstand the rigors of military campaigns. The officials below exchanged furtive whispers. Indeed, this is rather too old. Can he even walk, let alone ride into battle? Is that not a path to death? Hearing the murmurs around him, Gung Bingwen's dim eyes suddenly widened. Ha ha! The sound of his desolate yet bold laughter echoed through the hall. Your Majesty, esteemed colleagues. Gung Bingwen cast aside his cane and straightened his back. Though I am old, my bones are not yet brittle. He strode to the center of the hall, rolling up his sleeves. If your Majesty does not believe me, grant me a large pork knuckle and 3 bowls of mutton soup. Zhu Yunwen paused for a moment before waving his hand. Grant it. Moments later, the imperial kitchen presented a steaming 3-pound pork knuckle alongside 3 large bowls of fragrant mutton soup. Under the watchful eyes of the court, Gung Bingwen seized the greasy knuckle and began to devour it with fervor. Smack, smack. He ate rapidly and with great relish. The fatty juices dripped down his white beard. Yet he paid no heed, chewing heartily, his throat bobbing as he swallowed the substantial morsel, skin and tendons alike. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the massive knuckle was reduced to nothing but a slick bone. He then lifted a bowl, tilting his head back to gulp it down. Gulp, gulp. 3 bowls of scalding mutton soup disappeared into him without a change in his expression. He let out a resounding belch, his face flushed, a fine sheen of sweat appearing on his forehead. Delightful. Gung Bingwen wiped the grease from his mouth and surveyed the room. The youthful military officials who had previously doubted him now wore expressions of astonishment, their throats moving in disbelief. Such an appetite and digestive prowess would rival even the strongest of young men. Gung Bingwen knelt down. Your Majesty, I can eat and drink, and my health is robust. Though there are no capable generals in the court, this old body can still weather several storms for your Majesty. Though Zhu Di is brave, he possesses nothing but brute strength. Leading troops into battle relies on intellect and strategy, not mere courage. In my lifetime, I have excelled in defense. Back in Chongqing City, I withstood the onslaught of Zhang Shurqing's 100,000 troops with merely 7,000 soldiers for a decade. If I were to take command now, I would ensure that the rebel Zhu Di makes no progress. Zhu Yunxi gazed at the spirited old general before him, his eyes moistening. He had no other choice. Among the entire court, it was only this old minister who dared to stand forth. Good, 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 Zhu Yunxi exclaimed thrice, rising from the dragon throne to personally assist Gung Bingwen to his feet. You are indeed the pillar of the nation. I shall entrust the fate of the Ming dynasty to you. Proclaim my decree. Appoint Marquis Chongqing Gung Bingwen as the Grand General of the Expeditionary Forces. Bestow upon him the treasured sword of authority to command the armies of the realm. Appoint Duke Li Jian as the Deputy General to assist and support. Mobilize a total of 130,000 troops, claiming to be 300,000, and commence the northern expedition immediately to eradicate the rebel. I, Your Majesty, accept the decree with gratitude. Gung Bingwen bowed deeply, his gaze resolute, knowing this was to be his final battle. If he was to fight, he would fight with fervor. That very night, outside Nanjing, by the shores of Xuanwu Lake, the grand army of 130,000 assembled, banners obscuring the sky, swords and spears standing like a forest. Clad in armor, Gung Bingwen, despite his white hair, appeared imposing upon his war steed. Send the order. Gung Bingwen drew his sword, pointing north, and commanded in a stern voice, the army shall advance in 3 routes, forming a pincer. Dispatch notices to Shandong, Hunan, and Shaanxi provinces to immediately gather provisions to supply the troops. Inform the soldiers that this battle is to quell rebellion and to rid the nation of treachery. Those who bring back the head of the rebel will be granted the rank of a marquis. Kill, kill, kill. The soldiers roared in unison, their voices shattering the clouds above. In the first month of the Jianwen era, at the end of July, in the Laizhou prefecture, within the governor's residence, Ma Bin had secluded himself in his study for an entire day and night since returning from Qiongzhou. The tea on his desk had gone cold and was replaced time and again. He paced before the map, lost in thought, unsure how many times he had walked back and forth. Sir, the lady and the young masters and misses are waiting outside, asking when we shall depart for the family visit. The old steward knocked softly and inquired. The so-called family visit was merely a pretext. Ma Bin halted, caught in hesitation and struggle. As the governor of Laizhou, sending his family to Qiongzhou would mean irrevocably aligning with Zhu Yunxi, with no turning back. Should the court later seek retribution, it would be a capital offense leading to the extermination of his entire family. Yet if he did not send them, the towering 50-meter concrete walls of Qiongzhou and the 18,000 well-equipped, bloodthirsty troops loomed in his mind. Qiongzhou, that was truly a den of dragons and tigers. Ma Bin murmured to himself, fear etched on his face. He understood Zhu Yunxi's methods all too well. It was a matter of first offering kindness before resorting to force. Now, it was an invitation to enjoy a life of luxury. Should he refuse the wine, the next visit might well bring cannon fire. Moreover, with the northern front engulfed in flames of war, Gung Bingwen leading 300,000 troops northward, the court's focus was solely on the Prince of Yan. The south lay exposed, a time ripe for chaos to reign. Without the shelter of Qiongzhou, with his meager resources in Laizhou, he would barely stir a ripple in this tumultuous era. Enough, enough. Ma Bin abruptly turned, a resolute expression on his face. For the sake of the Ma family's lineage and the prosperity of future generations, he would accept this unspoken pact. Send the order. Immediately arrange for carriages and horses to escort the lady and the young masters and Mrs. Dehan to board a ship to Qiongzhou. Inform the lady that once we arrive, we shall follow the arrangements of His Highness, the Prince of Wu. That is our Ma family's lifeline, our sole path to survival. Yes, the old steward acknowledged and departed. Watching the steward's retreating figure, Ma Bin sank into the armchair, a sense of inexplicable relief washing over him. He had gambled. He bet that Zhu Yunxi was indeed the true dragon of the heavens. However, just as Ma Bin made his decision, an even greater storm was brewing in Guangxi. In Guilin, at the Jingjiang Wangfu, Prince Zhu Yunxi donned golden armor, hand resting on his sword, standing in the center of the great hall. He gazed at the throngs of armored soldiers gathering outside, listening to the thunderous sound of drums, his ambitions burning with the fervor of a wildfire. Chapter 28. Prepare to welcome the first battle of Qiongzhou. Teacher, are we truly to rebel? As the moment approached, Zhu Yunxi's grip on the sword became slick with perspiration. It is not rebellion. It is a call to restore the monarchy. Hu Weiyong corrected him. The Prince of Yin is occupying the northern front, drawing the court's main forces. Now that the old man Gung Bingwen is leading 30,000 troops northward, Nanjing is as vulnerable as a bear maiden. If we do not seize this opportunity, when will we? Your Highness, while you command only 80,000 men, we can declare ourselves 300,000. This southern land has long suffered under the Qin. Once the banner is raised, followers will gather like clouds. Zhu Yunxi's chest heaved, his doubts dispelled, leaving only greed. Good. Then let us proceed. Proclaim my military order. We shall rise immediately, clear the court, restore the nation. On the first day of the 8th month of the Jianwen era, just as Gung Bingwen's grand army crossed the Yangtze River, a deafening thunder echoed from the southern borders of the Ming dynasty. Prince Zhu Yunxi, in Guilin, swore allegiance to the call of rebellion, responding to the Prince of Yin Zhu Di's rallying cries. He appointed Hu Weiyong as prime minister, claiming an army of 300,000, dividing forces into 3 routes, surging forth from Guilin like a roaring flood. In just a few short days, Linchuan fell. The county magistrate perished with the city. Yongfu surrendered. Yining, Xing'an, and Qiongzhou successively fell into enemy hands. The Jingjiang army advanced like a raging storm, burning, killing, and plundering. Sweeping along the fleeing populace, their military might aim directly at the vital routes of Huguang. Especially after seizing Qiongzhou, Hu Weiyong personally took command, dispatching heavy troops to guard the Xianggui corridor, severing the lifeline for the court's retreat southward. Soon after, Zhu Yunxi led the main force southward, charging straight for Liuzhou Prefecture. The news spread, shaking the world. What was initially perceived as a localized rebellion in the north plunged the court into a panic of being besieged from both north and south. In Liuzhou Prefecture, within the governor's office, report. A scout stumbled into the hall, his face pale with terror. Sir, a calamity has befallen us. The king of Jingjiang has rebelled. Guilin and Qiongzhou have already fallen, and the rebel army claims to be 300,000 strong, advancing towards Liuzhou. We in Liuzhou cannot escape being affected. What? Ma Bin, who had been sipping tea, trembled, shattering his cup. He rose abruptly, his face ashen. That fool Zhu Yunxi, he really has rebelled? And claims to have 300,000? Although he was aware of the king of Jingjiang's ambitions, he had not anticipated such swift and ruthless action. 300,000. 300,000. Ma Bin paced the hall, beads of cold sweat rolling down his forehead. Had this news reached him in the past, he would have surely fled the city in fear. After all, Liuzhou was right on the border of Guangxi. If the king of Jingjiang advanced southward, Liuzhou would be the first to bear the brunt. But in the next moment, a thought struck him, and he halted. Wait. Wiping the sweat from his brow, a sense of relief washed over him. Thankfully I acted swiftly, sending my wife and children to Qiongzhou yesterday. With the 18,000 fierce troops in Qiongzhou and the 50-meter-high concrete wall, even if Zhu Yunxi truly possesses 300,000 soldiers, they shall not touch a hair on Liuzhou. With this thought, Ma Bin plopped back into his chair, lifting the fresh tea beside him and savoring a sip. Zhu Yunxi, you think you are the cunning bird? Heh. You have no idea that there lurks a man-eating tiger in the south. Someone, prepare the horses. I shall personally go to Haiyan to welcome the instructors sent from Qiongzhou. In the study of the Qiong King's residence, before a massive world map. Zhu Yunxi held a recently delivered confidential report. Hu Weiyong? Zhu Yunxi gazed at the name on the report, surprised that the old man had not perished and was now serving as chancellor in Guilin. Quite intriguing. As a time traveler, he was well aware of the far-reaching implications of the Hu Weiyong incident in history. The man had been skinned alive by the founding emperor. Now, this individual had seemingly returned from the dead, becoming an advisor to the king of Xinjiang. It appeared that the history of the Ming dynasty held many secrets yet to be uncovered. Zhu Yunxi tossed the report onto the table, not exhibiting panic, but rather excitement. Let chaos reign. The more tumultuous, the better. Only in murky waters can this hidden dragon freely devour fish and shrimp, thereby strengthening itself. Your Highness. Xiaoding stood nearby, his expression grave. The king of Xinjiang had risen in rebellion, with considerable momentum, although the claim of 300,000 might be exaggerated. With 80,000 elite soldiers plus the fleeing populace, there would certainly be over 100,000. Now that he controlled Qiongzhou, blocking the key routes to Huguang, our northern trade routes are likely to be severed. If they are severed, so be it. Zhu Yunxi approached the window, observing the bustling streets outside. Trade routes can be reopened, but the hearts of the people in these chaotic times are invaluable. With Zhu Zani's rebellion, Guangxi will surely descend into chaos. The populace will be displaced, and this is our opportunity. Xiaoding, at your service. Convey my orders. First, send people to Guangxi, especially to the areas of Liuzhou and Wuzhou. Bring ample provisions and make a grand effort to attract the fleeing populace. Inform them that Qiongzhou has land, grain, and shelter. As long as they are willing to come, I shall provide for them. What Qiongzhou lacks most now is people. While Zhu Zani is preoccupied with murder and arson in front, we shall win the hearts of the people from behind. I aim to double the population of 850,000 within a year. Yes, I shall arrange for the fleet at once. Xiaoding's eyes sparkled. This strategy of cutting off the enemy's supplies was brilliant. Secondly, Zhu Yunxi moved to the map, pointing to the location of Liuzhou. You shall personally visit Liuzhou and meet with Ma Bin. Tell him I know he is terrified right now. Ask him if he requires support. Xiaoding was taken aback. Your Highness intends to send troops to assist him against the king of Xinjiang? No. Zhu Yunxi shook his head, his gaze sharp. If he does not require assistance, then so be it. Let him tremble with his 56,000 men. But if he does call for aid, Zhu Yunxuan's smile became cunning. Then tell him I can send 50,000 new troops to Liuzhou to help him defend the vital routes and assist against the king of Xinjiang. 50,000 new troops? Xiaoding was puzzled. Your Highness, those new recruits have trained for less than 3 months and have seen no battle. Sending them would be. They need to see battle. Zhu Yunxi interrupted. No matter how well trained they are, without facing the battlefield, they remain mere decorations. Liuzhou is the best training ground, and the king of Xinjiang is the perfect sparring partner. Sending these 50,000 new recruits to Liuzhou for combat will not only reassure Ma Bin, but also forge them into an ironclad army. It is a win-win situation. Moreover, Zhu Yunxi paused, his gaze drifting toward the sea beyond the window. If Ma Bin agrees, then we shall retrieve the 2,000 elite private troops stationed at Haikao. Considering the timeline, Linger should be returning with the fleet soon. Speaking of Linger, a tender smile broke through Xiaoding's stern countenance. Xiaoling, she is my younger sister, and also the fierce general of the Qiong king's residence. 2 years ago, she insisted on joining the army and, during the military competition, defeated those burly men, claiming first place. The prince, valuing talent, not only refrained from reprimanding her, but also appointed her to command the 2,000 elite private troops, bestowing upon her the title of the Black Armor Camp. This current sea hunt is led by her. Retrieving those 2,000 elite troops? Xiaoding inquired. Does your Highness have grand plans? Of course. Zhu Yunxi returned to his chair, lightly tapping the table with his fingers. Although hunting at sea proves profitable, it is not a long-term strategy. Those 2,000 troops of the Black Armor Camp are my trump card and cannot remain adrift at sea indefinitely. Since the king of Xinjiang has toppled the table, I must prepare my knife and fork, ready to feast at any moment. If Zhu Zani dares to extend his claws toward Liuzhou, a glint of cold light flashed in Zhu Yunxuan's eyes. Then I shall have Linger lead the Black Armor Camp to teach him a lesson. Go. Act as I have instructed. Yes. Xiaoding accepted the orders and departed. Once again, silence enveloped the study. Zhu Yunxi gazed at the complex situation on the map, the system's prompt resonating in his mind. Ding. Detection of the king of Xinjiang's rebellion. The chaos in the world intensifies. Although the host did not participate directly, their influence has affected the situation, earning the achievement of the hidden hand. Reward, reputation points, 50,000. 50,000 points. Zhu Yunxi regarded the surging reputation points, contemplating a grander scheme. The king of Xinjiang's uprising and the re-emergence of Hu Weiyong signified that the inertia of history had been disrupted. Since the butterfly's wings have begun to flap, let the storm arrive with even greater ferocity. Zhu Yunxi, Zhu Di, and that obliviously reckless Zhu Zani. Zhu Yunxi picked up a red pen and heavily marked an X on the location of Guangxi. Let you all battle it out slowly. Once I have set this board, the game will change. Just as Zhu Yunxi pondered whether to further stir the pot in Guangxi, perhaps by selling outdated weaponry to local chieftains and adding obstacles for the king of Xinjiang, a long, mournful horn sound suddenly echoed from the direction of Haikao Port. The sound pierced through layers of clouds, resonating throughout the city of Qiongzhou. Qiongzhou Prefecture, Haikao Port. Today's port was more bustling than ever before. The once busy dockworkers ceased their labors, and countless citizens surged to the waterfront from all directions, each one craning their necks with eager anticipation, gazing out at the horizon. Here they come, the fleet of His Highness. Good heavens! So many ships, more than ever before. There, at the meeting of sea and sky, a massive fleet was slicing through the waves. It comprised a total of 15 colossal treasure ships. Each vessel towered like a mountain, with towering masts piercing the clouds and enormous sails casting shadows over the land. The onlookers erupted in waves of astonishment, the sheer visual impact of such colossal creations sending shivers down their spines. Is this the naval force of Qiongzhou? Among the crowd, a few recent refugees from the mainland were so frightened that their legs turned to jelly. This ship is taller than the city walls. My goodness, how many people can it carry? What a sight to behold. An elderly local man from Qiongzhou proudly puffed his pipe. This is His Highness's black armored camp. They venture out to hunt, to engage in expeditions. Every return brings back treasures beyond measure. With a command from the flagship, a massive iron anchor plunged into the water, creating towering waves. In unison, the gangplanks of the 15 treasure ships were lowered. Thud, thud, thud. Lines of soldiers clad in black armor streamed from the ship's hulls. They wore menacing bronze masks, revealing only their piercing eyes. Equipped with powerful crossbows and long swords, they exuded an aura of formidable ferocity, the very essence of warriors forged from rivers of blood and mountains of corpses. 20,000. A full 20,000 black-armored warriors swiftly formed into battalions on the dock. In that moment, the formerly clamorous dock fell into a profound silence. The gathered citizens held their breath, the visiting merchants paling in fear, daring not to make a sound. At that moment, a red figure emerged slowly from the flagship's deck. It was a young maiden, clad in a custom-fitted silver-scaled armor, perfectly accentuating her tall and athletic form. A flowing crimson cloak billowed dramatically in the sea breeze as she rested a hand on the sword at her waist, standing proudly at the ship's bow. Her gaze commanding and fierce. Who is she? What a stunning general! The crowd stirred with excitement. That is Xiao Ling. Commander Xiao. An old resident who had lived at the dock for a decade shouted with enthusiasm. She is the sister of our esteemed General Xiao, the most beautiful woman in all of Qiongzhou. It was said she had arrived in Qiongzhou 2 years prior, originally as the personal maid of His Highness. Yet, during a military competition, she single-handedly defeated 18 strong men, seizing the position of commander of the black armored camp. She is a Valkyrie. She is the embodiment of vengeance for Qiongzhou. At the bow of the flagship, the radiant figure stirred. Xiao Ling raised her armored hand to unclasp the helmet at her temples. With a soft click, the ruthless mask was removed and cradled in her arms. She exhaled deeply and tossed her long, flowing black hair, now cascading like a waterfall, dancing wildly in the wind. The once oppressive air of bloodlust was instantly replaced by a breathtaking beauty. Tens of thousands of onlookers, citizens, merchants, laborers, gaped with mouths agape, their eyes nearly popping from their sockets. Who could have imagined that the fierce female warrior who led 20,000 black-armored soldiers, striking fear into the pirates of the South Seas, was such an exquisite beauty? Goodness! Is this the true visage of Commander Xiao? How utterly beautiful! I had imagined her to be a fearsome ogress. Beauty aside, just look at her gaze. TSK. A single glance sends chills down my spine. Just then, Xiaoling waved her hand impatiently. What are you all gawking at? Unload the cargo. Her command shattered the silence. Yes, the black-armored soldiers answered in unison, beginning to operate the winches to lower the massive cargo baskets. As the first enormous wooden chest hit the ground and its lid was pried open, a thunderous gasp erupted from the dock once more. Inside the chest were not mere trinkets, but bars of gold. Next, the second chest opened. It contained a blood coral, standing as tall as a person. Its entire body was a deep crimson, translucent and glistening, with branches flourishing as if it were a natural masterpiece. Good heavens, that is exquisite blood coral. This single piece could likely purchase half of Lizhou City. Look over there. Are those pearls? Why do they look as large as goose eggs? And spices? That is ambergris. Ambergris worth thousands of gold. Why is it packed in sacks like potatoes? As chest after chest of spoils were unloaded from the ships, the citizens at the dock went wild. They knew that His Highness's fleet had gone hunting, but they never expected the bounty brought back would be so immense. This is no mere hunting expedition. It is as if they have emptied the crystal palace of the Dragon King. Chapter 30. Adding flowers to the brocade. Clear the way. Clear the way. Just then, a rapid clattering of hooves approached. Li Qing, accompanied by a squad of royal guards, parted the crowd and hurried to the pier. He dismounted, gazing at the mountain of treasures, and couldn't help but gasp in awe, then quickly walked up to Xiaoling, saluting with a precise military gesture. I am Li Qing, reporting to Commander Xiao. Within the hierarchy of the Qiong royal court, Xiaoling was not only the commander of the black armored camp, but also the chief steward of the royal treasury, second only to Xiao Ding. Xiaoling glanced at him, casually tossing the helmet to a nearby guard, and said with a smile, Li Qing, you arrived just in time. This cargo is too conspicuous. Take your men to inventory it, and ensure that no unscrupulous hands make off with anything. Yes, Li Qing replied, then lowered his voice. Commander, His Highness has issued a decree. He said upon your return, there is no need to report to the camp. You are to immediately proceed to the study to meet with him. Really? Originally composed and commanding, Xiaoling's sharp eyes instantly lit up at the mention of His Highness. His Highness, he isn't upset that I returned late? His Highness has been waiting for you. Li Qing smiled. Oh dear, I must hurry, Xiaoling exclaimed, disregarding all decorum, shoving the inventory list into Li Qing's arms. This is for you. If a single coin goes missing, I will hold you accountable. With that, she sprang onto a nearby warhorse with a light leap. Go, she cried. The warhorse neighed as it galloped towards the direction of Qiongzhou City, leaving Li Qing holding a pile of ledgers, watching her retreating figure, shaking his head in helplessness. This is only in front of His Highness. If it were anyone else, who would dare believe this is the ruthless female demon who slaughters without a second thought? Qiong Royal Court, study. Zhu Yunxi sat behind a large desk, perusing a report on the training of the new troops in Lizhou, his brow furrowed in contemplation. Xiao Ding stood nearby, reporting on the latest provisions preparations. Your Highness, news has arrived from Ma Bin. The main forces of King Jingjiang are advancing towards Liuzhou. Though the morale of the 50,000 new soldiers from Lizhou is adequate, they have yet to see real combat. Bang! The study door was flung open with force, crashing against the wall. Your Highness, I am back. Before one could see her, her voice was already heard. Following that, a fragrant breeze swept in as Xiaoling dashed inside. Still clad in her armor, her footsteps echoed with a crisp clang, yet her radiant smile illuminated the entire study. Linger, Xiao Ding's expression darkened as he couldn't help but reprimand. Have you no sense of decorum? Did you not knock before entering? His Highness is in a meeting. Oh, brother, must you be so tedious? Xiaoling rolled her eyes at him, completely ignoring his admonishments, and dashed straight to Zhu Yunxi. Leaning over the desk with her hands propped up, her big eyes sparkling as she fixed her gaze on him. Your Highness, I miss you dearly. Do you miss me? The unabashed words left Xiao Ding's face turning a sickly green, wishing fervently to find a crevice in the ground to escape. What a misfortune for the family. How could this girl lack even a modicum of modesty befitting a lady? Yet, Zhu Yunxi had long grown accustomed to her nature. He set down the report in his hands and surveyed her with a smile. You seem a bit thinner. Zhu Yunxi reached out, intending to ruffle her hair. But noticing her lack of a helmet, he gently pinched her cheek instead, observing, and you've darkened a bit. It seems the sun in the South Seas is indeed fierce. What? Darkened? Xiaoling's expression changed dramatically at his words. She frantically touched her face, glancing around. Mirror. Where's the mirror? Have I really darkened? Do I look terrible? Oh no. Will you despise me, Your Highness? Seeing her in such a fluster, Zhu Yunxi couldn't help but burst into laughter. I was merely teasing you. This is a healthy glow, quite spirited, far more appealing than those pampered young ladies who overdo their makeup. Really? Xiaoling paused, eyeing him skeptically. You're not deceiving me, are you? When have I ever deceived you? Zhu Yunxi replied with a gentle smile. Now, sit down and tell me what treasures you have brought back from your 6-month voyage. With the mention of business, Xiaoling finally regained some seriousness. She pulled up a chair, took a large sip from the teacup on the table, and then exclaimed with excitement, Your Highness, we've struck it rich this time. Besides the gold and silver jewelry we just unloaded at the dock, the most important discovery is. A glint of bloodlust flickered in her eyes as she lowered her voice. We found a place called Luzon. Oh, Zhu Yunxi's eyes sparkled with interest. What is the situation there? Those natives were initially unruly, attempting to ambush us and seize our ship. Xiaoling dismissed with a scoff. I took the black armored camp for a little reconnaissance. And as luck would have it, I may have overstepped. She gestured with her finger, drawing a circle in the air. We raided their palace. The so-called king of Luzon is now locked in the dungeon of our ship. As for their army, there are about 100,000, I suppose. A mere 2 volleys, and they were utterly decimated. Xiao Ding listened in astonishment, nearly dropping his teacup. You annihilated their nation? His voice trembled. That's 100,000 troops. You only brought 20,000. Just 100,000 cattle, Xiaoling replied nonchalantly. Brother, you didn't see. They were armed with nothing but sticks and bone knives, hardly a few iron weapons among them. Our heavy crossbows could pierce through them like sugar-coated hawthorn. Turning to Zhu Yunxi, she eagerly continued, Your Highness, I had them estimate. Luzon is vast, with a population of at least 5 million. The land is fertile, capable of yielding any crop. Moreover, we discovered several open gold mines there, where one could dig up nuggets with just a shovel. 5 million. Zhu Yunxi's breath quickened, his eyes gleaming with intensity. Gold mines. That is merely the icing on the cake. For Qiongzhou, the true treasure is that population of 5 million. As industrialization progressed, Qiongzhou faced an ever-increasing labor shortage. Roads require labor, mining requires labor, agriculture requires labor, and factories require labor. These 5 million Luzon natives, with a little training, would become the finest laborers, the best industrial workers, and even an invaluable source of soldiers. Excellent. Well done. Zhu Yunxi slammed the table in approval, looking at Xiaoling with admiration. Linger, you have achieved a significant feat. These 5 million people are the wings upon which Qiongzhou shall soar. Xiaoding, at your service. Dispatch the order. On the next voyage, let Luzon be our focal point. Zhu Yunxi rose, pointing emphatically at the map. Send those 50,000 new recruits in batches. Train them through combat. Let them go forth to suppress, to govern, to assimilate. I intend to transform Luzon into Qiongzhou's granary and mining hub. Yes, Xiaoding responded, filled with excitement.